While other transmigrators are flanked by divine beasts and legendary talking artifacts, Qi Yuan leaves his entire sect speechless by soaring in on a rusty kitchen cleaver. To the world he is a lunatic and a trash eldest senior brother who spends his days glued to a jade slip playing games. But beneath that madman persona lies a terrifying perspective. Through the blood-red system prompts in his vision, Qi Yuan sees the world for what it truly is, a gilded slaughterhouse. He has uncovered a spine-chilling secret. Every cultivation technique in this world is a trap designed to turn practitioners into nothing more than spirit medicine and fodder for unspeakable entities. Refusing to be a sacrificial lamb, Qi Yuan chooses the path of ultimate defiance. He grinds for levels in forbidden zones that strike fear into the hearts of men, wielding a cleaver that has awakened its own spirit. To him, cultivation isn't about seeking the Tao, it's about donning his blood-red armor and shattering the chains of heaven to protect those he loves and rewrite the laws of the universe. Welcome back to Bala Manhua Recaps today. Join us as we follow Qi Yuan, the madman with a kitchen cleaver, as he carves out his own path to immortality, where games become reality and the one the world called insane becomes its only savior. Let's dive right in. Within the Divine Light sect, spiritual energy surged like white clouds filling the spaces between the mountain peaks. Disciples gathered in lively groups, their laughter echoing on the wind. On the streets of the outer sect, the usual bustle of trade and chatter continued unabated, until a sudden thunderous boom drew everyone's gaze toward the plaza. A figure descended with dashing grace, riding steadily upon the wind, or rather riding upon a blade. A massive kitchen cleaver hovered in midair, its cold steel reflecting the brilliant golden sunlight. With a flash of movement, Qi Yuan stabilized himself and landed firmly on the ground, his robe snapping in the wind, exuding an overbearing aura. The surrounding disciples watched slack-jawed. Good heavens, I've seen people ride spiritual beasts and demonic pets before, but this is the first time I've ever seen someone land by riding a kitchen cleaver. That's the eldest senior brother of 7 Colors Peak, Qi Yuan. I heard he once threatened his fellow disciples, claiming the cultivation techniques he practices are poisonous, that anyone who follows them will go mad and anyone who provokes him will die. He's as unfathomable as he is sinister and ruthless. Watch your tongue, don't provoke that lunatic. He's held the position of eldest senior brother for years, yet he hasn't even successfully reached foundation establishment. It's truly pathetic. A fleeting cold smirk played at the corner of Qi Yuan's mouth. Pathetic, sinister, mad, you only see the surface. How could you possibly understand how terrifying this world truly is? He was Qi Yuan, a disciple of the Divine Light sect and also a transmigrator. Ever since arriving here, his eyes could see tips floating above every person and object. Those blood-red words pulsed constantly in his vision, bringing endless frustration. A new disciple who worked as a laborer at Divine Medicine Peak for 10 years, desperately saved enough spirit stones for foundation establishment, but if he practices this technique he will be marked by an unspeakable existence. An inner sect disciple who just reached foundation establishment. However, his cultivation has deviated and he has less than 3 years to live. Qi Yuan felt a chill run down his spine. This world was too dangerous. Reaching foundation establishment simply meant becoming prey for those things that shouldn't exist. Cultivate? Absolutely not. Suddenly he snapped out of it and slapped his forehead. Damn, I almost forgot. Today is the day the 5 peaks select their personal disciples. In front of the Great Hall of the Divine Light sect, the elders and the top disciples of each peak had already gathered. Kong Fulu frowned as he looked around, his tone displeased. Has Qi Yuan of 7 Colors Peak not arrived yet? Jie Mo quickly interjected. Senior brother Kong, you know his temperament. He belongs to the lineage of obsession. He keeps to himself. It's common for him to be a little late. The lineage of obsession consisted of cultivators who were extremely fixated on a single thing, be it a sword, a flower, or a person. That near-maniacal obsession made their mental state vastly different from ordinary people. In the cultivation world they had a less than pleasant nickname. The psychos that nobody wanted to mess with. Kong Fulu was inwardly annoyed. This kid hadn't been in the sect that long, yet he dared to make his eldest senior brother wait. It was disgraceful. Just then, Jie Mo called out, he's here. Senior brother Qi Yuan is here. Qi Yuan stepped into the hall, his cold gaze sweeping across the room before he spoke. Since everyone is here, let the selection begin. Today was the grand ceremony where the 5 peaks selected personal disciples. The Divine Light sect was famous across the region, and countless geniuses from the Great Shang Kingdom had flocked here seeking the Tao. However, only the most elite who had achieved an A grade in the examinations were eligible to stand here. Kong Fulu walked to the center of the hall, his body radiating a spiritual light as dazzling as a miniature sun, forcing the junior disciples below to squint. Allow me to introduce the top disciples of the 5 peaks. This is the top disciple of Combat Peak, Quang Ren. This is the top disciple of 7 Colors Peak, Qi Yuan. This is the top disciple of Myriad Law Peak, Xu Yi. And this is the top disciple of Divine Medicine Peak, Jie Mo. Finally, I am Kong Fulu, the personal disciple of the 5 Lights Peak Master. The new disciples bowed in unison, respectfully greeting their senior brothers. The light attribute spiritual energy on Kong Fulu grew even more brilliant. He had already set his sights on a youth with a rare, light spiritual root, the perfect candidate to inherit his 5 Lights sacred method. He had to claim him first. He smiled slightly and said with meaningful intent, Junior brothers, how shall we choose today? We all know the drill. If anyone wants to pick first, speak up. Mo spoke first, as his master had instructed before they arrived. Let 7 Colors pick first this time. Kung Fu grit his teeth and cursed inwardly, talkative brat, but on the surface he acted magnanimous. Junior brother Chi Yuan, please. The new disciple's eyes lit up instantly. Competition for the other peaks was cutthroat, but 7 Colors hadn't recruited anyone in years. Their resources were piled high like mountains. Being chosen by them would be like a koi leaping through the dragon gate. They screamed in their hearts, pick me, pick me. Chi Yuan observed them slowly, lines of blood-red information appearing before his eyes. The first one, the youth with the light spiritual root, purpose of joining unclear, suspected spy. He walked past him, and Kung Fu breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, this guy has no eye for talent. The second one, a girl with a special constitution, marked by the black evil old demon, a future cultivation vessel, dangerous category. The third, a young man who had lost all his cultivation, with a remnant soul slumbering in his sea of consciousness, previously jilted by his fiancée. Damn, a standard protagonist template. Getting involved with him is a suicidal category. The next one was a man with a feminine face, a severe deviant. Chi Yuan felt goosebumps. Next to him was a 3-legged man. Chi Yuan was so speechless he didn't dare look directly at him. He rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. This divine light sect was truly riddled with problems. 3 months ago, he had tried to expose the sect master as a spy for the demon Desire Gate, only to be locked up for 3 days and nearly lose his life. Since then, he had decided to stay silent and stop exposing anything. If everything was a problem, then nothing was a problem. That was the only way he could comfort himself. Mo and Kung Fu began to grow anxious as they saw him remain motionless for so long. Suddenly, a young woman in white stepped forward, her voice crisp and determined. I am Zhang Lingzhu. I have long admired the reputation of the eldest senior brother of 7 Colors Peak. I beg senior brother to accept me and grant me the chance to enter 7 Colors Peak. Mo and Kung Fu's eyes widened simultaneously, and Chi Yuan froze as a line of text appeared in his mind. Zhang Lingzhu, direct descendant of the Zhang clan, bloodline just awakened, possesses the supreme treasure, the heaven-earth mirror, foresight of the future. Father dies in battle, mother bathes the palace in blood, the continent collapses. Only the tiny divine light sect is spared due to a hidden master living in seclusion. The heaven-earth mirror was the Zhang clan's ultimate treasure. What she saw was the literal future, a warning from the heavens. However, this memory could never be leaked. Otherwise, even she would lose it forever. Therefore, she had to join the Divine Light Sect, and the most ideal place was 7 Colors Peak because its peak master had a mysterious background and unfathomable strength, making it highly likely they were the hidden master from her memories. Furthermore, 7 Colors Peak currently only had 1 disciple. Joining would make investigating much more convenient and discreet. Rumors said that those of the obsessed lineage had eccentric personalities, ignored the mortal world, and had no one to care for or serve them. She, Zhang Lingzhu, could use that as her entry point. For the sake of the world and her family, what was a little suffering? She knelt, her sincere voice echoing through the hall. I, Zhang Lingzhu, am willing to be your servant, to work like an ox or a horse, and to help senior brother solve all his troubles. Her sincere attitude and the act of kneeling made Chi Yuan's face darken. A prompt appeared before his eyes. The final candidate for 7 Colors Peak. If 7 Colors Peak didn't take a disciple soon, the other 4 peaks would likely pressure them into a corner. He thought to himself that this was hard to refuse. She was just a woman anyway, and wouldn't compete with him for the master's attention. So Chi Yuan reluctantly nodded. She was overjoyed, looking as if she had found a hidden treasure. Thank you, senior brother Chi Yuan. The people around them suddenly had a moment of realization. So Chi Yuan likes this type? The girl put on a display of profound gratitude, but in reality Chi Yuan had no other choice. He spoke up. Everyone, I have made my choice. I shall take my leave. Mo suddenly called out to him. Junior brother Chi Yuan, please wait. I have several doubts regarding the recipe for the Foundation Nurturing Pill. I wonder if junior brother has time to offer some guidance. If you can resolve my confusion, I am willing to gift a Foundation establishment spiritual item as a token of gratitude. Chi Yuan sighed inwardly. Foundation establishment items weren't cheap, but how much could he trust this madman? A disciple from Divine Medicine Peak was actually coming to ask him about alchemy. Fine, he nodded. I'll be out walking my spiritual pets this evening. Bring the recipe then and I'll take a look. Mo was ecstatic. That's wonderful. Chi Yuan turned and called out. Junior sister, let's go. She responded obediently. Yes, the two left the hall one after the other, leaving behind a crowd with complex expressions. Kung Fu suddenly snapped. Junior brother Mo, do you really intend to let Chi Yuan guide you in the Tao of alchemy? Mo explained with a smile. Junior brother Chi Yuan has extraordinary talent and often has revolutionary ideas. He might have unique insights into alchemy. 2 weeks ago I ran into him while he was walking a zombie. We discussed a few points and I benefited greatly. Hearing this, Kung Fu could only shake his head, thinking that a madman was indeed a madman. Between a genius and a lunatic, there is only a thin line. Perhaps Chi Yuan did possess extraordinary talent. Kung Fulu stopped dwelling on it and clapped his hands. Alright, let's get back to business. If there are no objections, I'll pick next. On the other side, Lingzhu had followed Qi Yuan back to Seven Colors Peak. She looked around and couldn't help but freeze. Is this the legendary Seven Colors Peak? She couldn't resist asking. Eldest senior brother, where is the master? What kind of person is the master? Qi Yuan sighed, the corners of his mouth curling up involuntarily as his cheeks flushed slightly. The master is extremely beautiful. Lingzhu was stunned. Wait, is that how you describe your master? She broke into a cold sweat. Aside from being beautiful, is there anything else? Qi Yuan continued to daydream. The master's figure is also incredibly beautiful, Lingzhu thought in terror. Is this what a cultivator of the obsessed lineage is like? This is terrifying. She stopped beating around the bush. Senior brother, as a new disciple, may I pay my respects to the master? Qi Yuan shook his head. No, there is a restriction on the mountain peak. Master said that only those who reach the origin core stage are permitted to go up and see her. Lingzhu felt like she'd been struck by lightning. The origin core stage, from foundation establishment to origin core. Even with god-tier talent, it would take decades. Why would the master set such a harsh requirement? Qi Yuan added another blow. Oh right, master is probably afraid of seeing me. Lingzhu was speechless. Master is afraid of you? Rumor had it that after seeing Qi Yuan once, the master went into secluded meditation and never appeared again. What on earth did you do to make the master that scared of you? Qi Yuan remembered something and pointed to a corner of the courtyard. Right, junior sister. Seven Colors Peak never intended to take disciples, so there are no guest quarters. There's some straw and wood over there. Build yourself a thatched hut for now. Just make do for the time being. Having said that, he lazily turned and left, leaving Lingzhu standing alone in the courtyard, her heart in pieces. She was a dignified lady of the Zhang clan, yet she had to build a thatched hut with her own hands. But soon she took a deep breath and told herself to stay calm. For the sake of the big picture, her family, and the world, what did this bit of grievance matter? 15 minutes later, a crude thatched hut held up by brute spiritual force was finished. Lingzhu wiped her sweat and decided to proceed to the second step, building a good relationship with her eldest senior brother. She walked softly to Qi Yuan's door and called out gently, "Senior brother, are you in?" A lethargic voice came from inside. "Come in." She pushed the door open and her eyes widened instantly. Qi Yuan was sitting cross-legged on a stone bed holding a flickering jade slip in both hands. It was glowing brightly, emitting strange spiritual fluctuations. Lingzhu asked in confusion, "Senior brother, what are you playing with?" The current world of cultivation was no longer as quiet as it once was. There were pills, brothels, music, sword dances, and even electronic games. The jade slip in Qi Yuan's hand was a high-level entertainment device containing hundreds of games, ranging from combat and adventure to farm management and even some special types that made one's heart race. Lingzhu watched in disbelief. Senior brother's jade slip seemed very different from an ordinary person's. She suppressed her anger. "I worked all afternoon and he's just a Qi refining stage cultivator. Why isn't he cultivating?" She forced a smile. "Is senior brother not cultivating? If I'm not mistaken, you're almost at the great circle of Qi refining, just one step away from foundation establishment." Qi Yuan didn't even look up, his expression profoundly mysterious. "You don't understand. I am cultivating." Lingzhu felt suspicious. The lineage of obsession really did require an object of obsession to practice. Could senior brother's obsession be games? But a gaming addiction was just a gaming addiction. How could the lineage of obsession possibly rely on playing games to break through? Lingzhu hesitated, but was interrupted by Qi Yuan, his tone laced with impatience. "What do you want?" She had no choice but to ask for help. "Well, I've finished the hut. Can senior brother teach me the cultivation techniques of Seven Colors Peak now?" He flatly refused with a shake of his head. "The techniques of Seven Colors Peak cannot be practiced." Lingzhu probed further. Why? She was secretly pleased, wondering if the technique hid some secret. Was it related to that hidden master? "Perhaps I've already found a clue," Qi Yuan replied succinctly. "Because the techniques are poisonous." She shook her head in disbelief, her tone full of doubt. "How could a sect's techniques be poisonous?" She then smiled comfortingly. "It's all right, senior brother, I don't mind." He silently pulled something from his robes. It was a jade slip engraved with the cultivation formulas of Seven Colors Peak, which Qi Yuan had slightly tweaked. He handed it to Lingzhu. "Then take this one." She wore a look of surprise and muttered to herself, "What the hell is this?" Taking the jade slip, Lingzhu managed a strained smile. "Yes, senior brother is truly amazing. To be able to modify cultivation techniques," he replied. "I've modified it, but unfortunately it's not yet perfect. I'll give you the complete version later." She found it even more hard to believe. Modification of cultivation formulas was no easy task. At the very least, one had to be an origin core cultivator to be qualified. And he was only in the Qi refining stage. Lingzhu offered a tactful reminder, her tone carrying a hint of worry. "Thank you, eldest senior brother, but senior brother, cultivation formulas are of utmost importance. They mustn't be changed recklessly, or it could easily lead to Qi deviation." Qi Yuan looked impatient and raised his voice. "So you think everything will be fine if I don't change them?" Lingzhu cursed him in her head. "Recklessly changing formulas is the problem. This senior brother clearly had something wrong with his head, and it was quite severe. He truly lived up to the reputation of the lineage of obsession. She returned to her crude hut to begin her practice. First, she wanted to see what was so special about this 7 colors peak formula and what it looked like after being modified by her senior brother. The 7 colors fire refining art, a very ordinary jade grade technique she had seen before in her clan's library. Was this the part senior brother modified? It looks almost the same as the old version. Finally, Lingzhu brought the cultivation process to a halt. She had to be extremely cautious and could not let her eldest senior brother cultivate blindly. She felt she needed to send this cultivation manual to her elder sister for a second opinion. Inside the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, the air was thick with exceptionally fierce demonic beasts, yet no matter how overbearing they were, they ultimately met their end beneath his blade. Qi Yuan landed steadily, walking out of the dust-filled zone. He spoke, his tone dripping with disdain. A mere level 50 mob dares to show off its slight skills before an old hand like me. The game Qi Yuan was playing was this very monster-slaying game. This place was known as the Moon-Watching Continent, and he was currently in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, one of the 4 great forbidden zones he had discovered when he first entered. Back then he was only level 1. After surviving countless hunts in the Forbidden Land, he had fought his way through, slaying a vast number of monsters as high as level 80. Qi Yuan grew bolder with every battle, charging into the monster swarms alone, harvesting them with total confidence. He thought to himself that he was quite strong now. If he returned to the real world, splitting the sect master of the Divine Light sect in half with a single strike probably wouldn't be an issue. The sharp tip of his blade pierced straight into a demonic beast body. He looked into the distance, only that one boss remained, the level 70 Madness Brush. Qi Yuan knew its origin. This thing was a foxtail brush by day, but at night it would transform into a demon fox to attack those it had deluded. Furthermore, its night raid tactics are extremely brutal and terrifying. Even when I'm offline, I have to dig a hole and bury myself first. Today is finally the day for me, the Avenger, to use my trump card. He charged forward excitedly. You monster, let's see where you run. The foxtail brush emitted a dazzling 7-colored light which then transformed into a powerful force that struck toward Qi Yuan. After its sneak attack landed, the foxtail brush vanished without a trace, only to slowly emerge again from behind. The brush continued its backstabbing tricks, but the moment its tip struck his shield it bent instantly. Qi Yuan watched as it fell to the ground, mocking it. Stunned, aren't you? I prepared equipment specifically to deal with you long ago. He calmly raised the longsword that had accompanied him for so long. A tremendously powerful demon-slaying draw technique was unleashed with a boom. The strike caused dust to blot out the sun where Qi Yuan stood, and the monster was completely obliterated. Not enough fun yet, he said with regret. Too weak, a system prompt appeared. Congratulations, player, for clearing the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land dungeon. You have received unexpected rewards. Reward 1. 10 Heavenly Dao Fragments. Reward 2. The Divine Pen. He accepted them in surprise, thinking, is this the reward for clearing the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? The reward instantly merged into Qi Yuan's body. Qi Yuan thought to himself, after obtaining the Heavenly Dao Fragments, it seems I've become the master of this Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. This game's design is quite unique, but why was it split into so many fragments? Could there be other fragments? If they were all combined, what would the effect be? He glanced at the object in his palm. As for the other reward, the Divine Pen was condensed from the power of laws and could be used to write rules for the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. Let me give it a try. A brilliant idea flashed through Qi Yuan's mind. What's something interesting to write? Got it. He thought of the famous scene, you can get into any park on Earth as long as you're carrying a ladder. Qi Yuan fell into deep thought. Should I add a requirement that maintenance workers must wear uniforms? Never mind, I've already written it. It was getting late, it was time to go meet Mo. He tied a rope to the handle of his kitchen cleaver and decided to take it out for a walk. Let's go. Although Qi Yuan was a bit mad, he was still a celebrity within the sect, and many sect cultivators were out walking their spiritual pets as well. On the way, his kitchen cleaver bumped into someone else's pet, and Qi Yuan commented, this little owl pet name of yours isn't bad. Maybe in a few thousand years it'll develop spiritual intelligence. The other person cursed inwardly. Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Your pet is the one that needs thousands of years. She poked at Qi Yuan's sore spot. Senior brother Qi Yuan, when will your pet awaken its spiritual intelligence? The people nearby burst into laughter, thinking that Qi Yuan's pet was a kitchen cleaver. How could it possibly speak? Qi Yuan, however, was full of confidence. A year at most, if it's quick, then very soon. Linger laughed out loud. Senior brother truly knows how to joke, 2 disciples nearby thought to themselves. Senior brother Qi is acting crazy again, Zhou Fan said worriedly. Senior brother Zhe, you won't be fooled by him, will you? Look at how delirious he is. What could he possibly know about alchemy? Zhe Mo shouted a rebuke at them. Junior brother Qi Yuan has improved the spirit severing technique, and even tested it himself. Regardless of success or failure, such courage is worthy of praise. Your mockery is no different from being a frog at the bottom of a well. The group of junior brothers was intimidated by the aura of this Foundation establishment expert and bowed their heads in obedience. Senior brother's lecture is correct. Zhe Mo bowed to Qi Yuan in greeting. Junior brother Qi Yuan, master is refining medicine today, so I had to attend to him. Please forgive my late arrival, Chi Yuan responded generously. It's fine, Zhe Mo handed over an item. Junior brother Chi Yuan, this is the solid foundation pill recipe I obtained from a hidden grotto. Chi Yuan took it and looked. The system had already checked it. It was indeed a recipe for a solid foundation pill. If Zhuang Huang is replaced with ligustrum and Yang Ji Yu is replaced with little sunflower, the effect of the refined pill can be improved by 50%, and the pill's toxicity can be reduced by 10 or 20%. He immediately pointed out that this solid foundation pill recipe had too many problems, suggesting the replacement of Zhuang Huang with ligustrum and Yang Ji Yu with little sunflower. Zhou Fan, standing behind him, thought, what a load of nonsense, you didn't even look at the recipe carefully. Zhe Mo was lost in thought. Ligustrum, little sunflower. Chi Yuan then asked, what about the foundation establishment spiritual item? Zhe Mo pulled something from his sleeve. Here, this is violet crystal jade bamboo, an 8th grade foundation establishment spiritual item. Foundation establishment items were divided into 8 ranks, categorized as lower 3 grades, middle 3 grades, and upper 3 grades. Legend had it that there were even higher ranks above the 3rd grade. The higher the rank of the foundation establishment item used, the better the result after foundation establishment, and the greater the potential. The price of such items was extremely high. Even a 3rd grade violet crystal jade bamboo was not something an ordinary chi refining disciple of the Divine Light sect could afford, Zhe Mo advised. The rank of this violet crystal jade bamboo is a bit low. If junior brother Chi Yuan is not in a hurry, you could save up more spirit stones and exchange this for a higher grade item. Chi Yuan tucked it away. No need, thank you, senior brother. Zhe Mo sighed, his tone full of helplessness. Junior brother Chi Yuan, if you hadn't offended, master, let alone a mid-grade spiritual item like this, even an upper-grade one would be no problem, and you would have entered the foundation establishment realm long ago, he thought to himself. You should know that even the sect master of the Divine Light sect has to be respectful to your master. After all, Yi Shi is a true divine infant stage expert. 7 Colors Peak was established 1,000 years ago, and Yi Shi still holds the position of Peak Master today, her lifespan exceeding 1,000 years. A cultivator with 1,000-year lifespan must be at least in the divine infant stage. In the eyes of such an expert, even the scraps they let slip would be rare treasures. But it just had to be you, bold enough to infuriate Master, causing your resources to be completely cut off. Zhe Mo urged once more, how about you go and apologize to Master? I wasn't wrong, so why should I apologize? Chi Yuan replied. Let me tell you guys, Zhe Mo suddenly had an ominous feeling. Was this guy about to point at that secluded mountaintop and say, you're all afraid of Yi Shi, but I'm not, because she's actually… Zhe Mo quickly covered his mouth. Junior brother Chi, say no more. He then immediately took his leave. Junior brother Chi, I'll head back to study the recipe until we meet again. After returning to Divine Medicine Peak, Zhou Fan asked anxiously, Eldest senior brother Chi Yuan isn't even from our Divine Medicine Peak. How could he possibly understand a pill recipe? I'll go get the violet crystal jade bamboo back right now, Zhe Mo warned coldly. I have already completed the deal with junior brother Chi. What right do you have to interfere? Listen to me clearly. Yes, eldest senior brother, I was just worried that you would waste your efforts and medicinal materials for nothing. Zhe Mo sighed helplessly again. You people really don't understand anything. We'll talk after I've refined the pills according to the new recipe. Having said that, he went back, while Chi Yuan returned to 7 Colors Peak that evening. He untied the rope from the sword handle, holding a writing brush in his hand. Chi Yuan thought it would be time for games after dinner. A soft blue light flashed, reflecting on his face. Chi Yuan was stunned. She was actually online. When he first got this game Jade Slip, he thought it was just a strange electronic product. He had once asked curiously, what is this? Can I chat on it? At that time, the game map hadn't been unlocked yet. But the Jade Slip already showed one friend. Chi Yuan had been confused back then. What does Imperial Guard Commander mean? The things she says are so weird, and she's going to inherit a huge family fortune. Sounds like a rich, beautiful girl. I teased her a bit, and she seemed genuinely angry. She was quite cute. Chi Yuan didn't have many friends in the hospital to begin with, so the girl in the Jade Slip was the only person he could talk to. But who would have thought that after the game map updated, his friend list would be completely empty? He was still in shock even now, not expecting to see her again. What should he say now? Chi Yuan deliberated for a long time, repeatedly revising his opening line. Finally, Chi Yuan sent only 3 simple words, you there. Meanwhile, in the Nanqing Kingdom, the Empress stepped into the Jin Palace, waving away the palace maids behind her. As the door closed behind her, Empress Jinli of Nanqing thought listlessly, even my trusted maids cannot be trusted. My life as Empress is truly lonely and helpless. 10 years ago, her father passed away. At only 7 years old, Jinli thought she had inherited the throne. But in reality, she was just a solitary ruler. Demon tribes attacked and enemy nations watched like hawks. These years, the Nanqing Kingdom had been riddled with crises. She suddenly thought of how the powerful minister Sima Yan was conspiring with the Beihun royal court, while her most trusted ally, Qin Yi, had been gravely injured. The situation was growing increasingly dire. Qin Yi had once been Jinli's strongest support. Sima Yan, it was your treachery that caused Qin Yi's injury, wasn't it? She laughed in extreme anger, shed her clothes, and stepped into the steaming bath. Jinli sighed softly. So tired. Suddenly, the jade slip on the distant table lit up. It was the Linglong Jade Slip. Legend had it that Linglong Jade Slips were born in pairs, and the holders could communicate across space. There was also one in the Nanqing Imperial Treasury. A year ago, Jinli had accidentally discovered it in the treasury and took it with her. She looked at the spiritual item in her palm. It seemed to be calling out. She hadn't expected to meet such an interesting person through the Linglong Jade Slip. This was how she appraised him. This person is truly special, although his way of speaking is odd. He brought a trace of heartfelt joy to the lonely Empress Jinli, and her mood lightened. She thought with a bit of a pout, "Ignoring me for half a year, I thought something had happened to you." Jinli replied, "I'm here. You've been gone all this time. Where did you go?" Qi Yuan answered, "I originally wanted to ask you to go grind mobs together, but once I entered the map I couldn't chat with you." Through their communication during this time she deduced that grinding mobs must mean slaying demons. He was likely a demon hunter. Jinli asked with concern, "Is it dangerous there?" Qi Yuan tempted her. "What danger could there be in playing our fourth natural disaster game? What are monsters? But express packs. Do you want to party up with me? Men and women working together makes the task easier." Jinli pondered, "Is he inviting me to hunt demons together?" But considering the current situation, she replied, "Some things have happened at home recently. I can't get away." He asked curiously, "That busy you don't even have time for games?" She sent a message asking for his location. "Where are you?" Qi Yuan replied instantly, "I was in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land before. Now I'm preparing to go to the Yan Forbidden Land." Jinli sat up abruptly in shock. Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, Yan Forbidden Land, aren't those part of the four great Forbidden Lands? The moon-watching continent was vast and boundless, and the power of the human and demon races was evenly matched. But what reigned over everything were even more terrifying existences. Not races, but the legendary four great Forbidden Lands. Even the demon royalty dared not rush in recklessly, or they would surely die. Among them were the most fearsome dead zones where even royal powerhouses would find no escape. The Xuanyuan Forbidden Land was adjacent to the Nanqing border, only a few hundred miles from the imperial city. Legend said it evolved from the tomb of an ultimate powerhouse. Did Qi Yuan just say he had been slaying monsters in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land all this time? How was that possible? She hurriedly messaged, "Are you serious or are you teasing me?" He replied solemnly, "Why would I lie to you? I was still waiting to invite you to party up. Running dungeons alone is too boring. But no need now. I've cleared all the mobs in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. It was a blast." She felt her worldview being challenged as she listened. "Cleared them all? How is that possible? The demons in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land are not only numerous but also formidable. In the history of the moon-watching continent, very few geniuses had ever made it out alive. To say he swept through the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land was likely something even the ultimate royalty couldn't do." Jinli asked tentatively, "What is your cultivation realm? Are you already in the Emperor realm?" Qi Yuan was puzzled. "What is an Emperor? I'm already level 82. She puzzled over this sentence. Level 82? Qi Yuan's speech was always odd. This must be a self-created method of calculating strength. She needed a reference point. Jinli probed softly. "In the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, was there any demonic beast that left the deepest impression on you?" Qi Yuan revealed. "The most terrifying thing in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land is that madness brush. That fellow is full of tricks. It loves to transform into a pen at night and act sneakily. Completely unreasonable, specializes in sneak attacks. It made me dig a hole to bury myself every time I went offline to AFK. Have you heard of its origin? The madness brush. Then its strength must be at least that of a supreme emperor, and in the entire Nanqing kingdom there were only 2 or 3 who had reached the emperor realm." Jinli hurriedly asked, "What level is it?" Qi Yuan answered flatly, "That thing, it's just so-so, level 70-something. She was completely speechless. "It's level 70-something and you're already level 82. Are you telling the truth or joking?" Qi Yuan continued his invitation. "So, want to come to the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land?" Jinli was somewhat fearful. The outskirts of the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land have strict restrictions. Even an emperor would find it hard to force their way in. Qi Yuan entered persuasion mode, promising everything would be smooth. "I'll teach you, just like entering a movie theater. You just need to carry a ladder on your shoulder and no one will dare block your way. The demons inside won't attack you either. I won't say more for now. I've arrived at the Yan Forbidden Land. Let's chat next time." He left Jinli alone, reeling in a whirlwind of thoughts. The Xuanyuan Forbidden Land and the Yan Forbidden Land were thousands of miles apart. He had actually arrived in an instant. How was that possible? Even a supreme emperor couldn't do that. "Qi Yuan, who exactly are you?" A moment later, Jinli walked into her study to handle government affairs, 2 palace maids serving respectfully by her side. She frowned slightly. The war in the south was exceptionally brutal, and the war elephant tribe had also been drawn into the vortex. 3 days later, the crown prince of the Nanfeng kingdom would arrive at the imperial capital. The current Nanqing kingdom was like a piece of fat, with various forces vying for a bite, and even she herself was seen as a trophy. 10 days later, the grand preceptor of the Nanfeng kingdom would duel Qin Yi. If Qin Yi loses, I'm afraid I'll have to marry that crown prince. But Qin Yi is gravely injured and is no match for the grand preceptor of Nanfeng at all. What should I do? Her hands gripped tight until they trembled slightly. Jinli prayed silently. "Qi Yuan, I hope everything you said is true." She ordered her subordinates. Someone go to the library pavilion and bring me all the records concerning the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. Piles of documents were stacked on the table as Jinli focused intently, flipping through them page by page. To win this gamble, the wounds of Qin Yi had to be healed. The Xuanyuan Forbidden Land harbored countless spiritual medicines. Finding the right kind would be enough. Finally, she discovered that the peculiar 9-hued silk was the key. This flower bloomed with 9 petals emitting several distinct exotic fragrances, and was revered as an imperial medicine. If Qin Yi could obtain this spirit plant, not only would her injuries heal, but she might even have a chance to break through to the imperial rank. Can a simple ladder really grant entry to the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land and provide immunity to attacks? It sounds absolutely preposterous, but Qi Yuan has no reason to lie to me. Besides, details regarding the Madness Brush are only recorded in the ancient texts of the Nanqing Kingdom. After a moment of deep contemplation and weighing her options, Jinli made her decision. She immediately issued a command: "Pass down my decree. The imperial entourage shall depart for the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land immediately." Simultaneously, she dispatched a small team to the Yan Forbidden Land to investigate. If an expert truly was grinding mobs there, it would surely cause a massive commotion. Meanwhile, Qi Yuan had already slipped into the Yan Forbidden Land, witnessing a tide of headless demonic beasts all above level 50 surging toward him. He froze for a moment, a chill running down his spine. Damn, there are so many of them. This mob is too big, I'd better retreat for now. During his escape, Qi Yuan swung a beam of sword light and then quickly ducked behind a massive tree to evade pursuit. Seeing that he hadn't been followed, Qi Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. Finally shook them off. I tried a few times just now. But these monsters in the Yan Forbidden Land are completely different from those in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land. They have organization and formations. They aren't so easy to deal with. His body gradually sank into the ground. Forget it, that's enough for today. Time to log off. In the outskirts of the Nanqing Kingdom, within the Prime Minister's estate, the powerful minister Sima Yan was playing a game of Go with a guest. Suddenly, a subordinate reported, "Today the Empress met with the Minister of Revenue to allocate silver for disaster relief, then met with the elder Madame Qin. Afterward she buried herself in reviewing memorials. Nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't until late at night that she sent a maid to the library pavilion to retrieve records concerning the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land." A look of joy appeared on Sima Yan's face. The Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? It seems she can only pin her hopes on such an illusory place. With Madame Qin gravely injured, how does she expect to win the duel in 10 days? Sima Yan instructed his subordinate. She has reached a dead end. From here on, the only things I need to worry about are our partners in the Beihan Royal Court and the Apocalypse General at the border. The person playing Go opposite him hurriedly bowed. Congratulations, Prime Minister. Once Elder Madame Qin is defeated in 10 days, we shall strike together. At that time, Nanqing will belong to you. Sima Yan remained cautious, not letting his guard down. He decided, it's still better to send a few people to keep an eye on things. One must be careful in all matters. Qi Yuan returned to 7 Colors Peak exhausted. As soon as he landed, he saw Lingzhu practicing diligently and greeted her. "Morning, junior sister." The system displayed information. A girl with an extremely ordinary appearance but possessing boundless talent for enlightenment. She practices day and night, hoping that one day her strength will be enough to suppress the world so that tragedy never repeats itself. Qi Yuan was secretly pleased. Excellent. I didn't expect junior sister Zhang to have such grand ambitions to save the world. He covered his nose, looking disgusted by the pungent scent of sweat on her. Lingzhu also glanced at him. "Eldest senior brother, why do you look so haggard? You look like you've overindulged in certain pleasures." This remark made Qi Yuan's face flush with embarrassment. He barked back, "Nothing of the sort. I was just up all night playing games. My mental energy is just a bit drained." She certainly didn't believe him. Playing games can drain mental energy? At this, Qi Yuan was left speechless. He thought to himself that it must be because he hadn't reached Foundation Establishment yet. That's why playing games was so tiring. It seemed he had to reach Foundation Establishment as soon as possible. To do that, he first needed a cultivation technique. He had seen all the Sect's techniques, but they weren't enough. Qi Yuan began to eye this girl of extraordinary background and countless insights. Lingzhu trembled all over under his burning gaze. "Senior brother, is something the matter?" Qi Yuan placed a heavy burden on her shoulders. "Junior sister, you have to save your senior brother. I see you have an extraordinary background. Do you have any spare cultivation techniques? Any grade will do. Just lend them to me to look at." Lingzhu asked curiously. "How many do you want, senior brother?" Qi Yuan suggested. "The more the better, obviously. Hundreds or even thousands would be ideal." She instantly became alert, thinking, he wants that many? "Senior brother, what do you want them for?" Qi Yuan excitedly revealed that it was to create his own technique. "Just lend them to me. In the future, if my cultivation is successful, the entire Divine Light Sect, no, the entire Kanglan realm will be under my protection." That soaring aura left Lingzhu silently speechless. Eldest senior brother truly has a mysterious level of self-confidence. But with his current strength, I could probably hang him up and beat him with one hand. Why would I need his protection, however, since he asked I should help? After all, there are only the 2 of us on 7 Colors Peak. Moreover, Peak Master Yi Shi has only taken him as a disciple in all these years, which means she values him immensely. I should take this chance to get closer. She handed over an object. "These are cultivation techniques. I'll lend them to you. Don't just spend all your time playing games, eldest senior brother. Practice well so you can protect your little junior sister in the future." Before Qi Yuan could argue that gaming is also cultivation and matter determines consciousness, he was stunned. There were actually hundreds of techniques. Little junior sister no longer smelled of sweat, instead she was quite fragrant. He hurried back to his room to cultivate. Qi Yuan sat firmly on the bed, assuming his posture as strands of spiritual energy emanated from the jade slip. He was surprised by the Earth Fiend Demon Soul Art, the 4 progressions formula, and the 3 origins method. Techniques were divided into low, medium, and high grades, followed by jade, profound, and heaven grades. The higher the grade, the harder the cultivation, but the greater the power. This jade slip contained a total of 627 techniques. Most were low or medium grade. High grade was already rare, and jade grade was even scarcer. There were only a few, but these were already sufficient. By the next day, after a night of relentless, painstaking cultivation, Qi Yuan's mind suddenly cleared, and everything became as bright as day. A flash of irrepressible ecstasy crossed his eyes, and his mouth curled into a brilliant arc. He condensed a strand of spiritual energy in his palm and shouted excitedly, "I have enlightened." The system evaluated the jade slip. "This is a cultivation technique full of loopholes, with a risk of memory confusion during practice, but it can reach the great circle of qi refining. Most importantly, practicing this technique will not turn one into nourishment for a certain entity." Qi Yuan stroked the jade slip gently, treating it like a precious treasure. Many days of dedicated research had finally borne sweet fruit. He smiled with satisfaction and decided to give it a simple yet domineering name. "Let's call it the Qi Yuan scripture." Unfortunately, the current technique only allowed him to reach the great circle of qi refining. Tomorrow he would have to go to the great lecture hall to hear a lecture on foundation establishment, then continue to refine it and elevate it to a new realm. Thinking of this, he let out a tired sigh and gradually fell into a deep sleep, an unresolved question still lingering in his mind. "I wonder how Jinli is doing now." At the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, Jinli stood before the world's most terrifying restricted zone with an elite squad. She reached out to touch a cold stone pillar, her heart filled with doubt. Is this the legendary Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? The place where even supreme emperors must bow their heads? From behind, a subordinate reported respectfully, "Reporting to your majesty, I have just questioned the locals nearby. They all say there is nothing unusual about the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, and there has been no movement inside." Jinli frowned slightly, her heart full of confusion. Strange. Qi Yuan clearly just swept through this place. Why is it so quiet now? She immediately issued a decisive order, "Carry the ladder and enter." "Yes," the guard unit responded in unison, taking action immediately. The prisoners who had been escorted here cried out in panic, "Is this the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? How can we possibly enter?" "My lords, this is not what you said at the beginning. We came looking for a way to live, not a way to die." They fell to their knees in a row, kowtowing desperately. "We beg you, lords, do not push us toward certain death." Not far away, 2 figures were hidden behind thick bushes. "The powerful minister's spies," one whispered. "What do you think the Empress is planning? Does she really intend to storm the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? Does she plan to use that ladder to climb the walls? What a joke!" Before they could finish, they were suddenly stunned to see a brilliant golden spiritual light erupt from where the group of prisoners stood. The man in the lead walked forward in a daze, his body passing into the interior of the Forbidden Land without encountering any resistance. The 2 spies' eyes widened as they shouted in terror, "Heavens, how is that possible? They actually went in. They really went in." This was the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, where even supreme emperors dared not set foot. Why could they enter so easily? Was it really because of that ladder? This had to be reported to the Prime Minister immediately. But before they could turn to flee, 2 cold longswords were already pressed against their necks. After Jinli's guards dealt with them quickly, they reported respectfully, "Reporting to your majesty. The Prime Minister's spies have been cleared." Jinli nodded slightly, her tone steady. "Good. You must keep this secret absolute," everyone shouted in unison. "We pledge our lives that no second person shall know." Jinli continued her command. "Everyone follow me inside while carrying the ladder. Remember, no matter what terrifying beast you encounter, you must never let the ladder leave your side. Is that understood?" Jinyu stepped forward to advise with concern. "Your Majesty's person is of supreme value. How can you risk yourself? Please allow us to enter first. Your Majesty can wait here for news." Jinli shook her head firmly. "No matter, I shall enter with you," she whispered in her heart. "Qi Yuan, I must find out your secret." Jinli and her guards stepped through the gates of the Forbidden Land. As soon as she entered, she was stunned by the desolate yet mysterious landscape before her. She had actually made it in. A massive beast swept past, spared her a single glance, and then lazily moved away, making no attempt to attack. The guards cheered in surprise. "So many spiritual medicines. This is 3 glory fragrance, profound jade grass, and 6 fruit." Jinli looked around. This place, uninhabited for 10,000 years, was completely different from the outer areas of other forbidden lands that had been picked clean by experts. The spiritual medicines here were still growing luxuriantly. An hour later, a subordinate reported excitedly, "Reporting to your majesty, we have gathered 23 king-grade spiritual medicines." Jinli looked at the treasures presented to her, her heart shaken. In her entire life she had used fewer than 10 king-grade medicines. Jin Yu's eyes sparkled. With so many spiritual medicines we can nurture countless powerhouses and recruit innumerable experts, Jin Li calculated privately but still shook her head. A mere 20 or so were not enough to turn the tide. Thus she immediately ordered, "Go deeper. We must obtain an imperial-grade spiritual medicine at all costs, especially the 9-hued silk. We shall follow your majesty to the end." Jin Li clenched her fists, determination surging within her. She had to get the 9-hued silk to heal Qin Yi's injuries and even help her break through her realm. "I want to see exactly what is so special about this place you, Qi Yuan, have been hiding in for half a year." Jin Yu followed behind, filled with curiosity, wondering which extraordinary person had given the Empress such a brilliant plan. It had to be a supreme emperor. Meanwhile, in the cultivation hall of the Divine Light Sect, hundreds of outer disciples and laborers were waiting for a lecture when a sudden commotion broke out. "Look, a purple robe. Why would a personal disciple come here? That's no ordinary purple robe. That's the head senior brother of one of the peaks. What? Isn't this kind of lecture hall only for us outer disciples and laborers?" Qi Yuan sat amidst the crowd, his purple robes eye-catching and his face cold yet handsome, attracting all eyes. Whispers filled the room. As expected of the head senior brother of 7 Colors Peak, "He's so handsome. Why did he come here? I heard he offended the peak master of 7 Colors Peak so badly that she went straight into seclusion out of anger." "Hey, I'm only telling you this. Don't spread it around." A female disciple stared at him infatuatedly, her heart thumping. To dare offend even a peak master, he's truly bold. The corner of Qi Yuan's mouth twitched slightly as he thought. As expected, a handsome guy is the center of attention wherever he goes. Just then an old man entered the lecture hall, his gaze instantly locking onto him. A purple-robed personal disciple, and the head of 7 Colors Peak at that. "Why is he here?" The old man was secretly delighted. "It must be my talent for lecturing that attracted him. Today I must put in 200 effort and speak profoundly to open this kid's eyes." The old man cleared his throat and stood majestically in the center of the hall to introduce himself. "I am Shu Renshin. Today I shall personally teach you the key points of foundation establishment. Above Qi refining is foundation establishment. Once you succeed, you can become a deacon of the Divine Light Sect and enjoy a stipend. Surely you all know that foundation establishment items vary in quality. The better the item, the more startling the result. But did you know that foundation establishment itself is divided into grades?" Seeing Qi Yuan listening intently, the old man's heart settled. "Good, it's working." Shu Renshin continued his impassioned explanation. Foundation establishment is divided into mortal grade, spirit grade, earth pulse, and immortal grade. Usually lower grade items can only achieve mortal grade foundation establishment. I am of the mortal grade, having wasted my life with no hope of reaching the origin core. Medium grade items can form a spirit grade, while upper grade items correspond to earth pulse. Above the upper grade there are even higher ranks of items that can achieve immortal grade foundation establishment. Once you achieve immortal grade, you have the hope of truly stepping onto the path of the immortals. The outer disciples were left stunned after hearing this, their hearts filled with awe and longing. Heavens, immortal grade is so terrifying. Can one really become an immortal? Why is the teacher's lecture today so different from usual? Qi Yuan, sitting below, merely curled his lip thinking, is that it? The books on 7 Colors Peak had recorded this long ago. He suddenly raised his hand, his crisp voice ringing out, "Teacher, is immortal grade foundation establishment really the strongest?" Shu Renshin felt a hint of frustration. "I can't bluff this kid." He immediately adopted a profound look he had just learned from a novel, stroking his beard as he said in a deep voice, "Incorrect. Above the immortal grade lies the legendary Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment. That is the supreme realm of foundation establishment." Qi Yuan's eyes lit up like a child who had been given candy. "May I ask, teacher, what is Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment?" Shu Renshin froze for a second. He cursed in his heart. How should I know? But on the surface he remained calm. The so-called Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment is profound and unfathomable. I have only glimpsed a few aspects. Just listen and don't take it too seriously. He changed the subject. In your view, what is the most precious foundation establishment item in the world? Is it astral tears, primordial chaos essence, or supreme bone gold? Qi Yuan tilted his head, his tone confused. Since Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment contains the words Heavenly Tao, could it be that the required item is truly related to the Heavenly Tao itself? Shu Renshin broke into a cold sweat. Just as he was struggling to find an answer, he saw Qi Yuan's eyes widen as if he had been struck by lightning. So that's how it is. This disciple has enlightened. He stood up abruptly, his face flushed as if he had struck gold. Heavenly Tao Foundation Establishment means using the Heavenly Tao itself for foundation establishment. The entire lecture hall was deathly silent. The disciples behind him looked at each other in confusion. What is he saying? What did he realize? Shu Renshin gave a dry laugh, trying to save face. It's good that you understand. Qi Yuan reproached himself for being so stupid. How did I only just think of such a simple truth? He quickly bowed. Thank you for your guidance, teacher. This disciple shall take his leave. In the corner, a female disciple's heart raced. As expected of the head senior brother, he's simply too cool. Shu Renshin nodded, his face filled with profound emotion. Your heart for the Tao is truly rare and commendable. Go then, he didn't forget to shout in addition. By the way, legend says the item required for Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment is a wisp of pure energy descended from the heavens, known as the Celestial Pulse Aura. Even a single strand, however. Qi Yuan had already vanished into the distance, leaving only a trail of dust. As he ran, he muttered to himself, "If I'm to use the Heavenly Tao as a spiritual item for Foundation establishment, can I use the Heavenly Tao fragments from the game? The game can manifest in reality. What if it works in the real world too?" No time like the present. Qi Yuan dashed back to his room and slammed the door shut. Ling Zhu, who was in the middle of her cultivation, turned pale with anger. "Senior brother, are you skipping your practice again today?" Qi Yuan waved a hand, his face full of disdain. "Practice what? Is there anything that levels up faster than my game?" He took a deep breath and shouted in a low voice, "Raiment, launch." A blue light instantly enveloped him, his eyes flashing with excitement. In an instant, Qi Yuan appeared within the familiar secret realm, looking at the dense swarms of demonic beasts in the distance. A cold smirk played on his lips. "Looks like this run is a sure thing. I told you I wasn't lying." He looked around and grumbled. "So many mobs, and they love grouping up. I've got to find a straggler to start with." Qi Yuan immediately activated stealth mode. A faint golden light flashed in his pupils as his body gradually merged into the void, becoming completely invisible. He crept toward the monster zone, his face flushing slightly at the bizarre outfits he was wearing. Why are these monsters so lecherous? Qi Yuan glanced back and saw the pack of monsters huddling together, clicking his tongue twice. About half an hour later, his silhouette flickered in another desolate area. Ahead, a group of headless monsters were working hard at washing clothes. A wicked smile curled on his lips as he silently assessed that there were only a few scattered guards here. Qi Yuan decisively drew his cold gleaming longsword and swung it through the air, shouting, "Monster, taste my blade." The sword's edge tore through the air, instantly slaying the entire group of monsters. Looking at the satisfying results, he threw his head back and laughed. "Haha, that's more like it. Once I've leveled up enough, I'll come back and slaughter that whole group of lingerie fiends." Just then, the system interface suddenly flashed with a piercing red light and alarms blared loudly. Qi Yuan's face went pale instantly as he cried out, "Why are all these Raiment demons charging at me? Was I discovered? What on earth is happening? Do they have shared vision? This is a huge problem." With no time to think, he bolted. During his flight, a flash of inspiration hit him. "Wait, Jinli knows these forbidden lands inside out. Maybe I should ask her." He contacted Jinli without hesitation. Meanwhile, within the magnificent imperial palace of the Nanqing Kingdom, Jinli walked elegantly toward the dragon throne, her face glowing with joy. She was in an excellent mood. She calculated silently, "The 9-hued silk has been successfully delivered to Aunt Qin. Her injuries will surely be fine now. She might even take this chance to break through to the imperial rank." Suddenly, the jade slip she wore began to glow red. She hurried to pick it up, her brow furrowed with worry as she muttered, "Could Qi Yuan be in danger in the forbidden land of Raiment?" Only after confirming his safety did Jinli breathe a sigh of relief. She quickly calmed down and sent back a flying spirit message, "I'll help you check the records regarding the forbidden land of Raiment. For now, proceed with caution." Not long after, Qi Yuan replied, "Thanks for the concern, let me tell you. The monsters in the forbidden land of Raiment are too bizarre. There are actually bellyband wraiths and lingerie fiends there." Reading this message, Jinli's cheeks involuntarily flushed. She reached up to rub her temples, cursing herself inwardly. "I really shouldn't have bothered with this jerk's business." Half an hour passed, and as she flipped through the few pages of information just presented to her, Jinli frowned and questioned her subordinates why the records on the forbidden land of Raiment were so brief. A subordinate knelt respectfully and reported, "Your Majesty, the Duke of Du's estate might hold relevant records." He explained that the old Duke had entered the forbidden land of Raiment in his youth. The old Duke, named Dong Xishan, was once a grand scholar of the Wenyuan Pavilion. In a twist of fate, the Duke's daughter was the noble consort Guxi, while Jinli's mother was the late Empress. Back then, noble consort Guxi and the late Empress had a deep-seated grievance, and that consort eventually met a tragic end within the inner palace. Because of this, the Duke had always held a grudge, blaming all the fault on the late Empress. The subordinate worried privately, "Her Majesty is the bloodline of the late Empress. If she condescends to ask for the books, that old Duke will surely make things difficult for her." However, Jinli did not waver for a moment. She rose resolutely and announced with authority, "I shall visit the Duke of Du's estate in person." This unexpected decision left her subordinates stunned, unable to recover for a long time. Moments later, in the gardens of the Duke's estate, the accompanying female guard couldn't help but complain on her master's behalf. She grumbled that the Duke was being far too excessive. Knowing that the Empress had a leg injury from when she was 10, he still had the heart to be so difficult. This outspoken guard was the Imperial Guard commander, Hua Qian. She burst out indignantly, "Your Majesty is the sovereign of 9 and 5, yet you had to kneel before the memorial tablet for 3 hours, facing the attempt to stop her." Jinli gently opened the scroll she had just obtained concerning the forbidden land of Raiment, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Regardless, I finally got what I wanted." Her phoenix eyes narrowed as she pondered, "Why do the ancient texts only mention wedding dress wraiths? Yet Qi Yuan insists there are bellyband wraiths and lingerie fiends." Though she found it strange, she quickly pushed the thought aside and transmitted the core clues to him. At this time, Qi Yuan was leaning against a large rock, idly waiting for a reply. Soon, Jinli's flying letter arrived, mentioning that those Raiment demons were originally one entity, making it extremely easy for them to share vision, but once night fell, the connection between them would weaken significantly. Qi Yuan's eyes lit up, joy surging in his heart. I see. As long as I hold out until dusk and the monster's communication is cut off, my chance to counterattack will arrive. He looked up at the brilliant, dazzling sun still hanging overhead, clicking his tongue in regret that the time for leveling hadn't come yet. Gazing at the round sun, he thought of a smooth, shining golden core and muttered to himself with pride. Even more praiseworthy was that Jinli had carefully marked the exact coordinates of traps and the habitats of elite Raiment demons. This woman is certainly thorough. Qi Yuan immediately sent a transmission, curiously asking about the trouble Jinli had mentioned a few days ago, wondering if she was stuck on some main story quest. He even enthusiastically asked about her character's build so he could help her strategize. Reading these words, Jinli's heart skipped a beat. Is Qi Yuan asking about my real identity? After a moment of thought, she felt it wasn't the time to come clean yet, but she worried he might get angry. Biting her lower lip, she decided to reveal a partial truth. I am the Empress of the Nanqing Kingdom. When the message arrived, Qi Yuan's eyes widened in surprise, his fingers flying as he sent a string of goofy emojis. Whoa, your character configuration is top tier, you're actually an Empress, I'll definitely have to check out the game and see you later. An Empress is a rare find, his excitement unabated, he pressed further. What's your current quest? Jinli fell into thought. She guessed that the quest Qi Yuan spoke of referred to the current court turmoil. She decided to be blunt. Currently, Nanqing was facing internal and external crises. Internally, the powerful minister Sima Yan coveted the throne, and externally, the northern Han royal court watched like a hawk. Demonic beasts also raided cities from time to time. The situation was abysmal. On the other end of the screen, Qi Yuan stroked his chin and nodded repeatedly. Got it. Jinli is stuck in a plotline where she's being suppressed by NPCs, he guaranteed with total confidence. Don't worry, once I can get out, I'll clear out all these NPCs for you. Suddenly, a bold idea flashed through Qi Yuan's mind. Actually, I can help you in another way. He excitedly wrote down some bizarre knowledge and sent it over, saying that as long as they diligently practiced high-intensity physical routines like push-ups, sit-ups, squats, or pull-ups, they could easily obtain explosive power. Staring at these unfamiliar terms, Jinli's willow brows furrowed, her mind full of suspicion. She muttered the strange words, asking blankly, "What are those?" Seeing her confusion, Qi Yuan immediately drew a complete set of posture diagrams and sent them over. He earnestly urged her to pass them to her confidants and have them train hard in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land according to the movements. Their strength would surely break through. The Empress remained skeptical, unable to believe that mere physical movements could allow someone to break through in cultivation. But remembering the instruction to carry a ladder into the Forbidden Land, Jinli felt half convinced, wondering if this was some unique secret technique. Back with Qi Yuan, he was calmly wielding his brush to leave a few lines of text. With a powerful flick of his wrist, he shouted, "Open!" And the ink on the paper actually spiraled into the air as if it had gained a spirit. While he was feeling proud, the floating characters suddenly turned and plummeted. Startling him, he discovered with shock that this path to increasing strength came with a fatal side effect, hair loss. His brow furrowed tight, questioning why the mechanic was so bizarre. A thought flashed, could the dungeon system be automatically adjusting the rules based on my subconscious? At that moment, the image of a bald man throwing a devastating punch appeared in Qi Yuan's mind. He realized the truth and quickly sent a warning to Jinli. By the way, tell everyone to be careful. If they train too hard, they'll lose their hair. In severe cases, they might go bald. Receiving this bad news, Jinli was completely speechless, her expression cold. A tragic scene flashed through her mind as she asked herself in conflict, what kind of karma requires one to trade a full head of hair for cultivation? The space gradually blurred. On the other side, Qi Yuan had already logged off, completely exiting the illusory world. Back in reality, he strolled through the silent corridors of the Divine Light Sect. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, reminding himself to find a balance between grinding the game and resting. Even walking with his kitchen cleaver after the game had become part of his routine. He stroked the weapon as he walked, wondering if this scrap metal had awakened spiritual intelligence and if a single strike could harvest the life of a golden core true person. Just as his thoughts were surging, a group of figures hurrying along suddenly appeared ahead. The leader shouted to clear the way, "Law enforcement hall business, move aside, quickly." This person was a disciple of the Jingguang Hall, the law enforcement branch of the Divine Light Sect. However, the moment he saw Qi Yuan, his overbearing attitude instantly vanished. He hurried to clasp his hands and bow, lowering his head respectfully. "Greetings, eldest senior brother." Qi Yuan didn't care at all, merely waving his hand dismissively. Seeing this, the surrounding disciples began to whisper, "Senior brother Zheng Zhanghe is injured. Could the Black Mountain Sect have done it? Very likely. I heard that Chu Tiansheng, the true disciple of the Black Mountain Sect, kidnapped a girl in Song City and slaughtered her entire family. Senior brother Zheng Zhanghe of the Jingguang Hall went down the mountain to arrest him for that very reason." These fragments of gossip fell into Qi Yuan's keen ears. They were still wondering, how could an outstanding talent like Zheng Zhanghe lose to Chu Tiansheng? Someone sighed bitterly at the cruel laws of the cultivation world. Old ones fall and new ones rise. Sects are corrupt everywhere. Hearing these grievances, Qi Yuan's face darkened, a map of local powers automatically appearing in his mind. The Great Shang Kingdom was backed by 3 sects: the Divine Light Sect, the Profound Talisman Mountain, and the Demon Desire Sect. But if one were to speak of the most dangerous hidden threat, it had to be the Black Mountain Sect. Although its scale didn't match the 3 major sects, the sect master of the Black Mountain Sect had a notorious foster father, the old demon Black Crowned. This demon possessed a mid-stage divine infant cultivation. He was naturally cruel and extremely protective of his own, making him very difficult to deal with. Presumably with such backing, the Black Mountain Sect dared to be so arrogant, committing evils everywhere. The disciples weren't finished, their tones low and pessimistic. Moreover, the Black Mountain Sect will also participate in the Foundation Establishment Assembly in half a month. Our Divine Light Sect's reputation is likely to be completely dragged through the mud. Facing this oppressive atmosphere, Qi Yuan sighed softly and decisively walked away. His dashing silhouette made the female disciple's eyes sparkle, sighing that this senior brother was truly exceptionally handsome. Conversely, the male disciples wore looks of disdain, mocking the fact that the eldest senior brother still had the leisure to wander around with a kitchen cleaver while the sect was in crisis. Someone whispered a sneer. Qi Yuan hasn't even touched the threshold of Foundation Establishment. Attending the assembly would be seeking humiliation. He'd surely lose if he faced Chu Tiancheng. These harsh noises all reached Qi Yuan's ears, but his face remained expressionless as he maintained his steady pace. Silent late night arrived, and Qi Yuan once again delved into the illusory world. In the eerie region of the forbidden land of Raiment, belly bands floated in midair, swaying bizarrely in the wind. After observing from behind a tree for a long time, he nodded secretly. The dark night had indeed dulled the senses of these strange demons and severed their connection. Seeing the opportunity, he suddenly unsheathed his sword and soared into the air, instantly piercing the nearest target. Before that eerie bellyband could even resist, it turned to ash and vanished. Qi Yuan's gaze swept over the remaining prey. Seeing them still standing there like wooden blocks, he couldn't help but reveal a triumphant smile. Everything was going smoother than imagined. He waited no longer, charging into the pack like a whirlwind, swinging his sword frantically. A series of precise strikes cleared the group of bellyband wraiths in the blink of an eye. Only then did the remaining monsters begin to vibrate violently, shaking their hems frantically to warn their kin. Qi Yuan noticed the abnormality. Calculating that he had already slain more than a dozen, he sneered at the slow reaction of these Raiment demons. However, under this pitch-black night, these monsters were as fragile as ants in his eyes. His blood boiled, murderous intent erupting as he gripped his sword hilt and charged into the fray once more. A bloody feast of hunting officially began, his silhouette weaving rapidly through the heart of the monster swarm as if through uninhabited land. With every wave of his hand, a life was extinguished. He skillfully downed health potions to recover while laughing heartily at the sky. Ha ha ha, now this is the thrill of gaming. However, just as the battle reached its peak, a faint glimmer of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon, causing a stir of unease in his heart. The time of transition had arrived. Other types of demonic beasts began to wake one after another after their long slumber. Even so, an arrogant, cold smile remained on Qi Yuan's face. He silently assessed that these sluggish monsters were both slow and lacked the sense to group up. They couldn't possibly block his path. Bracing himself, Qi Yuan swung his sword once more and charged toward the pack of Raiment demons. He continued to immerse himself in the bloody battle. After several hours of relentless grinding day and night, his limbs felt weak. He found a jagged rock wall to lean against, panting as he rested to recover his stamina. Scanning the blurred attribute panel before his eyes, he stretched with a sense of relief, inwardly marveling at the overwhelming numbers of the Raiment demons. Nevertheless, the rewards were quite substantial. His experience bar had soared to level 84, marking a major leap in strength. He secretly planned to sweep through the entire Raiment Forbidden Land within the next half-month, fantasizing about using a succulent roast chicken to compensate for his spent energy. Back on the moon-watching continent, deep within the magnificent Imperial Palace. The moment the study doors opened, Jinli's eyes sparkled with immense joy. She hurriedly asked with concern, "Aunt Qin, is your injury better?" The elderly woman before her clasped her hands in a respectful bow, her words filled with gratitude. "Thanks to the imperial medicine bestowed by your majesty, this old one's injuries have completely healed, and my strength has even progressed a level further." The heavy stone pressing on Jinli's heart finally fell away, and she breathed a soft sigh of relief. "That is good." Suddenly her expression turned solemn, her gaze sharp as she prodded for information. "Aunt Qin, do you have confidence for the battle against the national master of the Nanfeng Kingdom in 6 days?" Mentioning this major event, Aunt Qin's expression instantly turned hesitant. Her tone was no longer steady as she spoke haltingly. The old woman lowered her voice to report dire news. During a secret visit by the Grand Preceptor of Nanfeng yesterday, the powerful minister Sima Yan had clandestinely gifted him a potent medicine known as the primordial blood-locking pill. This news hit Jinli like a thunderbolt, causing her to cry out in shock. "What?" Standing guard behind her, the female commander Hua Qian could not suppress her rage, shouting indignantly, "Sima Yan's intentions are known to everyone. Does he not fear the infamy?" Ignoring these complaints, Jinli fell into deep thought. She knew that the National Master was already a long-renowned king-rank powerhouse, and was furthermore a master of the prestigious Dragon Elephant Purgatory art. The characteristics of this technique were extremely overbearing. The more vigorous one's blood and chi, the more powerful the cultivation that erupted. Legend had it that those who practiced it to the peak realm possessed the power of 100 dragon elephants in every movement. Originally, by absorbing the essence of the nine-hued silk, Aunt Chin could have gained the upper hand. How hateful, with the help of that top-grade medicine, that Grand Preceptor would be able to push his realm toward perfection, perhaps even touching the blurred threshold of the imperial rank. The situation had reversed in an instant, pushing Aunt Chin into an absolute disadvantage. Anxious and desperate, Jin Li turned back with a glimmer of faint hope and pressed further. Aunt Chin, if you consume more imperial medicine, can your strength be increased? Aunt Chin looked at the pile of rare treasures presented by the Empress with a look of astonishment, answering sorrowfully, I do not know where your Majesty found so many precious medicines, but even if this old one used all of them, it would take 3 years to break through to the imperial rank. There isn't enough time. As soon as she finished speaking, her aged face was covered in wrinkles of worry. Jin Li bit her lip until it bled, her body trembling slightly with anger. She told herself she had to find a narrow path to survival. She wondered if finding some tiger and wolf drug could cause an instantaneous explosion of strength. But this thought was immediately rejected. She absolutely did not want to gamble with Aunt Chin's life. In her desperation, Qi Yuan's silhouette flashed through her mind. The crazy training methods he had constantly urged her to try might just be the light at the end of the tunnel. Her eyes burned with determined light as she decisively ordered the entire army to depart for the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land immediately. While Aunt Chin was still as bewildered as a lost lamb, the commander Hua Qian, who had attended the Empress previously, grasped the intent and gave a confident smirk of support. Long Jin Li was full of fighting spirit. Her current goal was to do push-ups. The scene blurred and transitioned to the solemn great hall of the Divine Light Sect, where Qi Yuan was walking slowly. He stopped in the center of the hall, bowing respectfully to pay his respects to the sect master. His eyes secretly observed the leader sitting high above. The man wore a benevolent smile and spoke calmly. Do you still recognize this old man as your sect master? The person sitting at the head was true monarch Kumu, the supreme controller of power in the Divine Light Sect. Ironically, the system panel before Qi Yuan's eyes exposed his true identity, a mole planted by the demon Desire Gate. Qi Yuan couldn't help but fall into thought, deducing the conspiracy behind it. The opposing side had actually sent a heavyweight elder to start as a lowly laborer and climb step by step to the position of a personal disciple. What confused him most was that the instructions from above were always exceptionally vague. Every time he made contact, the reply was always just 2 words, wait. Thinking back to those years, true monarch Kumu himself had roared in grievance because his role as a mole seemed never-ending. 3 years after 3 years, if this continues, I'll end up as the sect master. Little did he know that as time passed, that old joke would become a reality, pushing the former spy onto the highest throne of the Divine Light Sect. On the day of his coronation, looking at the thousands of subjects bowing and cheering below, he had compromised with a speechless expression, thinking, experiencing this supreme position doesn't seem so bad. The most ridiculous part was the story regarding the elder from the rival demon Desire Gate. Because of a cold, heartless letter from true monarch Kumu, that person had literally been provoked to death by anger. Every line of the letter decisively abandoned his origins, scolding the evil path for daring to try and drive a wedge between him and the Divine Light Sect, and was attached with a final ultimatum to cut ties to prevent leaks. After reading those words of betrayal, the elder sprayed blood in a fury, his withered hands trembling as he gripped the paper. He staggered and cursed the treacherous brat before vomiting blood and collapsing dead. Looking at true monarch Kumu's majestic appearance, Qi Yuan concluded that regardless, this insider had not yet done anything to harm the sect's interests. Suddenly, true monarch Kumu lowered his gaze to stare at Qi Yuan, speaking slowly to deliver a heavy responsibility. The Foundation Establishment Assembly is in half a month. This time it is hosted by our Divine Light Sect. Sects like the Great Shang Kingdom, Profound Talisman Mountain, and the Demon Desire Gate have all sent disciples to compete for the first-grade Foundation Establishment item, the Yellow Splendor Fruit. The head disciples of all other peaks have already reached Foundation Establishment. This time you shall lead our sect. I hope you can show our sect's might and take first place. As soon as he finished, Qi Yuan's eyes widened in shock. He composed himself and remained silent, falling into his own calculations. On the throne, true monarch Kumu stroked his beard and smiled meaningfully. He secretly plotted. Among the current head disciples, only Qi Yuan had not yet reached Foundation Establishment, and coincidentally, the secret realm of the Divine Yellow Splendor Fruit had appeared. He deduced that this was entirely the work of that great powerhouse on 7 Colors Peak, who was painstakingly paving the way for her precious disciple's promotion. The more he thought, the more he admired her for being willing to hand over such a coveted divine item to her bottom-ranked disciple. If he truly could use the power of the Yellow Splendor Fruit to overcome the hurdle of Foundation Establishment, Qi Yuan's future would be even more brilliant. Meanwhile, Qi Yuan's eyes were as bright as searchlights as a calculation filled with the scent of money flashed through his mind. He was certain that the top-ranked spiritual item could be exchanged for a mountain of wealth. Catching the greedy and excited expression on his disciple's face, true monarch Kumu could only sigh helplessly. Feeling extremely drained by his eccentric way of thinking, the scene shifted rapidly back to the border of the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, where Jinli's team had landed safely. At that moment, Aunt Qin was sticking her bottom up, gritting her teeth and working hard at push-ups. Most hilariously, she was also carrying a heavy wooden ladder on her back, drawing countless curious gazes from those around her. In a sweat-drenched moment after experiencing the fragrance of the soil, Aunt Qin panted in shock. It seems there really is an effect." This affirmation directly struck the minds of Hua Qian and the bystanders, making them shout in unison, "What?" Not waiting for them to guess wildly, Aunt Qin explained excitedly, "I only did one push-up, yet it felt equivalent to half an hour of cultivation." Hua Qian hurriedly calculated on her fingers and was struck dumb, realizing a miracle. Completing 24 push-ups was equivalent to an entire day of secluded bitter cultivation. If they continued training at this intensity, the path to the peak of strength would be as fast as lightning. As soon as she finished, someone in the corner had already excitedly dropped down to mimic the movements. That young girl wept with joy, her voice cracking with emotion. I actually broke through the bottleneck that plagued me for 3 years. Was it broken just like that?" Witnessing the rapid transformation before them, the pupils of Hua Qian and the others dilated to the extreme as they blankly received this earthquake-level shock. All cognitive barriers seemed to shatter as countless questions surged. What? Could this method of cultivation actually ignore bottlenecks in talent? Without being told, the entire group scrambled to throw themselves into this labor, kissing the earth tirelessly. The air was filled with the hot-blooded clamor of everyone competing to participate. A chaotic yet vibrant scene unfolded. Some were doing crunches, some were doing push-ups while drenched in sweat, and others were doing pull-ups with veins bulging. Jinli circled the area and walked softly to Aunt Qin's side to check on her. The old woman maintained her difficult rhythm of rising and falling, looking up to speak her heart. "This divine effect, I fear even a supreme imperial powerhouse might not have such means. Your Majesty's friend is truly a hidden master. In just 2 days I will be able to step into the imperial rank." Just as their momentum was at its peak, a strand of withered white hair suddenly fluttered down. Aunt Qin let out a startled cry, hurriedly reaching out with her wrinkled hand to rub her scalp, secretly wondering where this strange hair loss came from. Catching the terrified looks of her subordinates, Jinli cleared her throat to hide her embarrassment. Awkwardly informing them of the dire news ahead of time, she announced haltingly that the price for using this shortcut to raise one's cultivation in the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land was the risk of losing one's entire head of hair. The atmosphere froze instantly, and the entire group turned resentful gazes toward the queen, though no one dared to speak. But those eyes full of grievance seemed to silently accuse her of hiding the secret, intentionally wanting to turn this elite force into a team of bald beauties. However, the boundaries of shame were quickly broken. After only a few breaths, the desire to level up completely overwhelmed the fear of baldness. They smacked their lips and muttered to themselves that sacrificing a few hairs in exchange for the power to protect the Empress was only natural. The most typical example was a woman whose hair was already thin. She discarded all concerns and shouted excitedly, treating this as a once-in-a-millennium chance to grind levels. In the hazy space of the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land, every heavy breath and every sound of muscles straining intertwined, composing a tragic heroic anthem titled, "The Price of Effort is One's Hair." The camera turned, bringing the viewpoint back to the Raiment Forbidden Land. Qi Yuan rubbed his chin, mumbling as he calculated his leveling progress, certain that in just over 10 days he would heroically reach the level 90 milestone. Just then a spiritual talisman vibrated, bringing a secret letter from Jinli. She excitedly recounted the victory of Aunt Qin, turning the tide and successfully breaking through the imperial bottleneck, which had left the powerful minister Sima Yan looking both crying and laughing, frozen like a wooden chicken. Reading the pulsing words, the corner of Qi Yuan's mouth curled into a proud arc. He responded generously with blessings, promising that when the winds calmed and the waves settled, the two of them would find a poetic place to meet openly. Meanwhile, behind thin silk curtains, Jinli was soaking in a fragrant pool of petals to relax her body and mind, still fingering the transmission jade slip. Suddenly, Qi Yuan sent a casual question, "How do you feel beneath the Guki spring tree?" As the words drifted past like a warm breeze, the Empress's beautiful cheeks instantly flushed red. A strange flutter quietly filled her empty heart, making her press her lips together as she immersed herself shyly in the lingering thoughts. Is this love? The Guki spring tree was revered as the oldest and most mysterious divine tree on the moon-watching continent. Its canopy rose into the clouds and no one could measure its true height. There were only rumors that standing at the peak one could even touch the stars. Legend had it that this sapling was planted by a god himself. Before leaving, he warmly told his wife that when the Guki spring tree grew to 30 feet high he would return. As the years passed, that divine tree grew from 30 feet to 300, then 3,000, looming majestically. However, the wife cried all her tears away, waiting in vain until the end of her life without her husband's triumphant return. Thinking back to this, Jinli's cheeks couldn't help but turn crimson. A dreamy thought surfaced in the depths of her heart, and she secretly thought that if the two of them met under that legendary tree, the scene would surely be romantic to the extreme. On the other side, Qi Yuan frowned slightly, doubt rising in his heart. He vaguely remembered there was also a Guki spring tree on the summit of Seven Colors Peak. Could this rare plant be used as a coordinate base point? With this confusion, he quickly transmitted a question. Where is the Guki spring tree you speak of? Jinli immediately sent back directions. Look toward the southwest. Hearing this, Qi Yuan looked up decisively. Toward the southwest, Jinli's voice continued to ring steadily through the jade slip. There is a massive tree there. That is the Guki spring tree. Qi Yuan's pupils shrank suddenly. When the massive silhouette of the tree appeared exactly as described, he was startled. He hurriedly transmitted a reply, his expression full of disbelief. Holy crap, that is the Guki spring tree you meant? I didn't even notice it before. After regaining his composure, he excitedly outlined a date plan. When the time comes, I'll handle a barbecue feast, you bring the good wine and we'll camp together under the tree. How about it? Who knows what kind of ambiguous vision Jinli associated with this, but her beautiful cheeks turned red and hot once again. Her mouth curled into a brilliant smile full of happiness as she softly agreed. Okay. The scene instantly returned to the Divine Light Sect. Seeing Qi Yuan strolling leisurely on the mountain path, the surrounding disciples couldn't help but gossip. Senior brother, tomorrow is the Foundation Establishment Assembly. Why are you still walking your spiritual pet? Qi Yuan maintained his indifferent attitude, replying flatly, My pet is about to awaken its spiritual intelligence, so I can't be careless. I have to take it out for a walk. Hearing this bizarre explanation, his fellow disciples could only awkwardly agree. Senior brother is truly an eccentric. Once Qi Yuan's silhouette had completely vanished around the corner, everyone huddled together with their necks shrunk, whispering about the incomprehensible calmness of the person from Seven Colors Peak. The Foundation Establishment Assembly was right before them, urgent as a fire burning one's eyebrows, yet he still had the leisure to walk his pet and enjoy the breeze. Most bizarre of all, the thing he took for a walk was actually a clunky kitchen cleaver. Someone curled their lip in mockery, saying that since the master didn't care, why should the subordinates worry? Immediately, another sharp voice rose in rebuttal, asking why that person didn't step forward personally to represent the Divine Light Sect and win back their honor. Having his sore spot poked, the disciple coughed twice, awkwardly trying to hide the fact of his lowly cultivation. The conversation quickly shifted to a shocking piece of news. Chu Tianshang, the bully from the Black Mountain Sect, had arrogantly shown up at their gates carrying a corpse. The crowd gnashed their teeth in fury, cursing the beast who committed such evils while relying on the prestige of the Black Chicken ancestor. His conspiracy was a blatant slap in the face to the Divine Light Sect. These clamorous discussions reached Qi Yuan's ears without missing a single word. He frowned slightly, privately calculating and reflecting that the demonic sect was indeed arrogant enough. After wandering around, Qi Yuan finally returned to the lounge carrying the Li Qing kitchen cleaver. He skillfully untied the rope wrapped around the handle, threatening it as he did so. Since you've already awakened your spiritual intelligence, behave yourself or I'll use you to chop people down. At that moment, a rich aroma of food wafted past his nose. Qi Yuan stretched comfortably, a hungry smile curling at the corner of his mouth as he hurriedly called out, What delicious thing has junior sister made this time? It smells amazing. As soon as the words left his mouth, he turned and dashed excitedly toward the source of the scent. He left the kitchen cleaver lying cold and lonely on the ground. Yet, unbeknownst to him, this seemingly mindless object had already begun to develop an independent consciousness. Suddenly the blade trembled violently before unexpectedly levitating into the air. It spontaneously unleashed a sharp slash, cutting the rope tied tightly to the pillar. Then, with a series of clangs against the floor, it hopped and skipped along, following its master's footsteps, finally leaping obediently into Qi Yuan's palm. Catching the treasure, Qi Yuan raised an eyebrow in surprise, his tone carrying a hint of appreciation and jest. Oh, you're quite clever, actually untying your own bindings. However, in the next second his gaze suddenly turned cold, radiating a piercing, killing intent as he threatened sharply. You've clearly awakened your spiritual intelligence, yet you're still putting on an act. Are you trying to slack off? Feeling that terrifying pressure, the blade began to shake violently like a leaf in the wind. Seeing this, he suddenly reined in his hostility and gently stroked the cold steel body, assessing the immense benefits brought by this evolution. After all, if this kitchen cleaver truly erupted with spiritual power, its might would be enough to claim the life of a golden core expert in a single swing. Day drew to a close and night faded away. The moment the Divine Light Sect had been waiting for finally arrived as the Foundation Establishment Assembly officially opened. Standing at the main gate, the disciple in charge of reception cleared his throat and announced the names of the various powerhouses in a booming voice. Elder Flying Flower of the Demon Desire Gate has arrived. Parting Light Swordmaster of the Profound Talisman Mountain has arrived. Ancestor Beiji of the Black Mountain Sect has arrived. Qi Yuan had changed into a crisp, magnificent Taoist robe. Standing with the authority of a host, he cupped his hands and offered a standard business smile. Speaking warmly, welcome everyone to the Divine Light Sect to participate in the Foundation Establishment Assembly. Though respectful on the surface as Qi Yuan's gaze swept over the leader of the group, a surge of scrutiny welled up within him. He secretly concluded that the one who had gravely injured Zheng Zhanghe was this old fellow. This man was originally named Master Kunshan, but after shamelessly defecting to the Black Chicken Ancestor, he changed his title to Ancestor Beiji, Ancestor who worships the chicken. The old thief held his head high with an air of insufferable arrogance, demanding overbearingly, "Why hasn't the assembly started yet? Is the Divine Light Sect intentionally wasting our time?" Faced with such a boorish attitude, Qi Yuan didn't even bother to respond. He simply made an elegant gesture of invitation and flatly dropped a single phrase, "Please, everyone." Suddenly, a person with an eccentric manner from the back of the guest procession looked around, his gaze finally locking onto the young girl beside Qi Yuan. In a flirting tone he said, "Oh, isn't this Zhang Ran? What are you doing at the Divine Light Sect?" As soon as he spoke, a man walked forward arrogantly, radiating waves of oppressive malice. This person's identity was obvious. It was the bully Chu Tianshang. He stared at Zhang Ran with despicable eyes, spitting out threateningly seductive words. "Even though your talent is outstanding, you still need the help of the Black Chicken Ancestor to fully realize it. Why don't you come back to the Black Mountain Sect with me?" Pushed to her limit, Zhang Ran trembled violently, fear gripping her throat so tightly that she couldn't utter a single word. At that moment the system in Qi Yuan's subconscious flashed, completely revealing the hidden truth behind this girl. As it turned out, her natural cultivation vessel constitution had unfortunately been targeted by the lecherous Black Chicken demon. Driven to desperation, she had risked her life to flee to the Divine Light Sect for protection. Seeing a beauty being bullied by a villain on their own turf, the surrounding Divine Light Sect disciples immediately felt their blood boil. They collectively drew their weapons and roared in fury, denouncing Chu Tianshang's arrogance and resolutely charging forward to form a human wall to protect their junior sister. Someone sternly exposed that this bully had once incurred a blood debt in wrong city and had even dared to show his face on the mountain, after gravely injuring senior brother Zheng. Despite being surrounded, Chu Tianshang remained standing tall, arrogantly provoking them. "I came up the mountain at the invitation of your sect master. What, you're not happy about it?" He even maliciously rubbed salt into their wounds, mocking that their weak, angry expressions were exactly like those of the defeated senior brother Zheng. One Divine Light Sect cultivator's eyes turned red with extreme rage. He charged forward frantically, intent on a desperate struggle, letting out a roar of refusal. Meanwhile, Qi Yuan calmly scanned Chu Tianshang, and the system's information panel immediately appeared clearly before him. The truth reflected was that of a lowly demonic cultivator, and beneath that sallow complexion pulsed an omen of an impending blood-red disaster. Qi Yuan stepped forward without hesitation and asked leisurely, "This fellow brother, I have recently mastered a secret art of fortune-telling. I wonder if I might cast a hexagram for you." Chu Tianshang thought the other was trying to suck up to him, so he gave a playful smirk and waved his hand in permission. "Oh, junior brother." "By all means." Contrary to that mocking attitude, Qi Yuan's face instantly turned grim, his gaze piercing like a dagger straight up the space between the other's eyebrows as he coldly delivered his verdict. "I see a darkness upon your brow. I fear a bloody disaster will befall you very soon." This malicious prophecy was like a slap to Chu Tianshang's face, causing his facial muscles to twitch violently. He flew into a rage, his eyes wide as he prepared to burst into curses, when Ancestor Beiji suddenly let out a roar from behind to interrupt him. The old man scolded Tianshang in a low voice, reminding him to be careful because this was the Divine Light Sect's home turf. Even though his fury had reached his throat, Chu Tianshang could only gnash his teeth and swallow it. He glared fiercely at Qi Yuan and turned away in a huff, not forgetting to leave behind a venomous threat before leaving. "Good, very good. Thank you for your kind intentions, junior brother. I shall remember this." The bustling scene shifted to the mountaintop where a fresh breeze blew. Heroes from various sects gathered together as the bell tolled and the Foundation Establishment Assembly officially began. The format of the competition was actually simple and straightforward, purely a practical combat arena prepared for disciples in the Qi refining stage. On the square arena stage, Qi Yuan's opponent, a delicate female cultivator, had been waiting for some time. She cupped her hands elegantly and said, "Duan Tianzhao of the Demon Desire Gate pays her respects to senior brother." Qi Yuan politely returned the gesture. He flatly announced his name, Qi Yuan of the Divine Light Sect. In an instant the system's data stream jumped before his eyes, uncovering this seemingly ordinary woman's world-shaking secret. This woman suffers from a severe toe-digging compulsion. A kick from her must absolutely not be taken head-on or you will experience a horrifying biochemical weapon-like stench. Reading the warning, Qi Yuan turned pale, inwardly cursing that this elegant-looking woman was actually hiding a heavy-duty biochemical weapon. Just as cold sweat began to pour, the majestic copper bell rang urgently, accompanied by the referee's booming voice tearing through the air to announce the start of the match. The two took their stances, exchanging a look of high fighting spirit and an arrogant smile. They were just preparing for a life-and-death struggle. Before they even had time to make a move, a world-shaking accident suddenly occurred. Duan Tianzhao abruptly clutched her chest and spat out a mouthful of blood, staining her collar red. Qi Yuan stood frozen like a wooden post, his eyes wide with shock as he blurted out in extreme panic, "I haven't even done anything yet." However, ignoring his embarrassment, Duan Tianzhao staggered back a few steps, clutching her chest and putting on a look of total defeat, her tone sorrowful. Senior brother truly is the eldest disciple of Seven Colors Peak. Your air-piercing acupoint technique is actually this powerful. Tianzhao loses. She left Qi Yuan standing there in a daze as if a giant question mark were hanging over his head. He murmured incoherently, what is going on?" The announcement for the next round of the competition rang out again. It was Qi Yuan's second battle. Scrutinizing the brand new opponent on the stage, a playful smile curled at the corner of Qi Yuan's mouth. He secretly concluded that this person was a renowned sword cultivator from profound Talisman Mountain, a rare rival who could let him experience the ultimate sharpness of sword control techniques. Tidying his robes, Qi Yuan cupped his hands gracefully and said humbly, "Please guide me." The sword cultivator arrogantly pointed his sharp blade at him, wearing a self-conceited smile. Qi Yuan did not hesitate, sinking his weight into his stance. He clenched his fists, his body entering a state of readiness for an explosive burst, his blood surging. He secretly fantasized about gathering spiritual energy at his fingertips and focusing his mind to launch that invisible sword intent. In today's battle, he swore to pierce the opponent's defense and display the essence of the Tao of the sword to satisfy the fanatical battle lust in his heart. However, that soaring momentum was instantly and heartlessly extinguished. Just as Qi Yuan was about to charge, the arrogant sword cultivator suddenly collapsed. With a bang beneath Qi Yuan's extremely shocked gaze, his knees hit the ground heavily. The man acted with great depth, clutching his chest tightly, his face so pale there wasn't a trace of color. He groaned in pain. Ugh, such an overbearing technique, wounding a person invisibly. "Senior brother, I lose." After delivering this stiff line, he flopped onto the stage and closed his eyes tight, faking unconsciousness. Witnessing such clumsy acting, Qi Yuan was completely speechless, his mouth twitching as he inwardly criticized the scene for being far too fake. The audience below instantly exploded like a stirred-up pot, with countless angry roars rising one after another, accusing the match of being a fixed game involving the profound Talisman Mountain disciples. In the chaos, one disciple quickly covered the mouth of his loudmouthed junior, whispering a stern warning with wide eyes, "What are you doing? Senior brother, this is no joke. You have to consider the big picture. Do you not want to see our sect flourish?" Qi Yuan stood alone on the stage, his face as black as the bottom of a pot. Feeling wronged that he had won 2 rounds in a row without breaking a single drop of sweat, he could only helplessly cast a suspicious gaze toward Seven Colors Peak, which was perpetually shrouded in mist. A thought flashed through his mind as he secretly guessed that the one pulling the strings behind this farce was likely none other than his eccentric master. He was certain that she was the only one in the world with the shameless gall to use any means necessary just to pave the way for her precious disciple. In the VIP seats reserved for elders, a sect master stood with hands on hips, his face carrying a look of fear he couldn't hide. He secretly lamented that ever since the yellow splendor fruit, the rare treasure that could grant a first-grade foundation establishment, had appeared, the entire cultivation world had gone mad, fighting tooth and nail for it. What was hateful was that the female peak master of Seven Colors Peak had gone back on her word and delivered an astonishing show of force. She didn't use bribes or flattery. Instead, she sent a threatening transmission to every sect, forcing everyone to swallow their pride and actively make way. Not a single person dared to resist. All that fear stemmed from the incident 30 years ago. At that time, the demon Desire Gate had exposed its ambition to swallow the great Shang Kingdom and reach the pinnacle of the immortal path. Who would have thought that the female peak master of Seven Colors Peak would single-handedly level the demon Desire Gate's headquarters, slaughtering that group of evil cultivators until their souls scattered? From then on, their ambition for dominance completely vanished. Even more terrifyingly, she had blatantly uprooted the divine tree of eternal spring they had painstakingly nurtured and brought it back to Seven Colors Peak as her own. Rumors in the world said her cultivation had already reached the late stage of the divine infant. If not for her old lingering injuries, she would have long since broken through space and entered the Purple Mansion realm. Faced with such a god of slaughter, who would be tired of living enough to provoke her top disciple? It was precisely because of this layer of prestige backing him that Qi Yuan's subsequent matches were incredibly smooth. He was so idle that he began to mock his own illusory strength, even missing the days of his youth. Every time Qi Yuan's toes barely touched the arena, his opponent would immediately drop to their knees and beg for mercy. It wasn't until the final match to determine the champion and runner-up that the boring streak of easy wins was broken by the Black Mountain Sect. A disciple from that sect charged onto the stage arrogantly, waving a paper fan in his hand and putting on a scholarly air. He cupped his hands and said, "Chu Yundong of the Black Mountain Sect, I ask for senior brother's guidance." Instantly, Qi Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and the system's light scanned the fan, revealing its true identity. A magic artifact with the power of foundation establishment. Once activated, that feathered flower burst move was enough to tear an opponent of the same rank to pieces. Qi Yuan's brows furrowed tightly, inwardly cursing this group of shameless people for using such a lethal move in a chi-refining competition. Meanwhile, on the observation deck, a female sect master sneered mockingly. "HMPH, your Black Mountain Sect's ambition is truly not small." Ancestor Beiji's old face turned red, yet he didn't blush at all. He stroked his beard and defended himself with a dry laugh. "Everyone wants a foundation establishment spiritual item, otherwise what would be the point of this assembly?" She glared at the old thief from the corner of her eye, secretly weighing the balance of power. The black chicken demon sat firmly at the mid-stage of the divine infant. Although the Seven Colors Peak Master had a higher realm, her heavy injuries were hard to heal. Perhaps taking advantage of this, the group of wicked cultivators from the Black Mountain Sect dared to be so arrogant. In reality, the root cause was that the old thief Black Chicken had secretly broken through his bottleneck and reached the late stage. Below the stage, Chu Tianshang wore a twisted, sinister smile, revenge burning in his eyes as he stared intently at Qi Yuan. He screamed frantically in his heart, anticipating the moment that bastard who dared to curse him with a bloody disaster would end up dead without a whole corpse. As the referee decisively waved the flag to announce the start of the match, the audience around the arena also caught the scent of gunpowder, whispering about the oppressive pressure radiating from that Foundation establishment-grade treasure, feeling extremely worried for their senior brother's safety. Contrary to the tense atmosphere, Qi Yuan remained calmly smiling, full of confidence. He had already set a simple and brutal plan in his mind. As long as he dealt with the opponent before that fan could activate, everything would be fine. As soon as the command was given, Qi Yuan's silhouette instantly became light and airy. Relying on the secret technique of lesser immortal stride, he vanished without a trace like a ghost. This sudden disappearance scared Chu Yundong out of his wits, his feet feeling as if they were nailed to the arena, frozen and at a loss. He looked around in terror, searching for his target. Below the stage, Chu Tianshang also widened his eyes, roaring frantically, "Where did that kid go?" Just as the enemy was still dizzy and disoriented, Qi Yuan had already descended like a ghost behind Chu Yundong, and that useless waste hadn't noticed a thing. Qi Yuan gathered all his strength into his fist and unleashed a heavy air-piercing punch, smashing it hard into Chu Yundong's face, carrying overwhelming power. This heavy blow directly knocked out several of the opponent's teeth, blood splattering everywhere. The disciple holding the Foundation establishment artifact collapsed onto the cold stone floor like a pile of mud, falling unconscious. This final battle, which was expected to be world-shaking, ended abruptly in an instant. Qi Yuan gently brushed away non-existent dust from his sleeve, looking provocatively toward the referee's bench, and announced leisurely, "I win." Immediately after, the referee, hiding in the corner, dashed out like a cannonball, hurriedly raising a megaphone to announce the result. Qi Yuan of the Divine Light Sect wins. Only then did the Divine Light Sect disciples snap back from the visual shock. The crowd was abuzz with excitement over the soul-stirring turn of events they had just witnessed. Several female disciples covered their faces and gasped, their eyes full of affection as they chattered away, speculating that their idol must have just performed some profound and mysterious teleportation technique. Obsessively praising him for being incredibly cool, witnessing his side lose face so utterly, Chu Tianshang gnashed his teeth in rage, yet he was powerless. His face flushed a deep red as he vented his shame and fury upon Chu Yundong's battered body, hysterically cursing him as a useless waste. Despite feeling aggrieved and so angry his lungs felt ready to burst, Chu Yundong could only grit his teeth and endure it. After all, having the reputation of using a Foundation establishment artifact only to be knocked out by a single punch was far too humiliating to argue against. Seizing the opportunity to strike at her rival, Elder Feihua immediately threw her head back and laughed heartily, her triumph obvious. She glanced sideways at Ancestor Beiji and said mockingly, "As expected of the eldest disciple of Seven Colors Peak, his combat attainments are indeed profound." Having been slapped hard in the face, Ancestor Beiji's expression was as black as the bottom of a pot, his face twisting into a hideous grimace. Below the stage, Qi Yuan stepped down with a composed gait, and was instantly mobbed by Divine Light Sect disciples like a superstar. Everyone scrambled to cheer and praise his fierce victory. "Senior Brother Qi, you're amazing. Senior Brother Qi, how on earth did you win?" Faced with pair after pair of adoring eyes, Qi Yuan merely shrugged and tossed out a preposterous reason. "It's simple, just play more games." Everyone froze instantly, letting out a collective sound of utter confusion and bewilderment. In the awkward silence, a clever disciple quickly stroked his beard and feigned erudition, straining his neck to interpret the deep meaning behind the joke. "Senior Brother means one must balance work and rest. If one only practices bitterly, the mind will snap from the tension." The person next to him seemed frightened, trembling as he backed away and asked with a shaky voice about the hidden killing intent behind this advice. What does that mean?" Just then a majestic elder pushed through the crowd and stepped forward, solemnly presenting the supreme reward on a jade tray. He announced with gravity, "Qi Yuan, this is the reward for this Foundation Establishment Assembly, the first-grade Foundation Establishment spiritual item, the Yellow Splendor Fruit." The moment the red silk was pulled back, dozens of greedy eyes stared fixedly at the fruit shimmering with celestial light, their throats clicking as they swallowed hard. They secretly fantasized about how wonderful it would be if they could take even a single bite of this limit-breaking divine medicine. It wasn't just the crowd. Qi Yuan's heart was also churning with excitement. While his eyes were fixed on the spiritual fruit, his mind was picturing mountains of glittering gold coins. He calculated privately that this rare treasure could be sold for a staggering price of over 10,000 spirit stones. Catching the winner's expression of drooling greed for money, the elder gave a light cough as a warning and spoke sternly regarding the path of cultivation. "Ahem. I hope you will use this spiritual item to successfully reach Foundation establishment soon and serve the sect." This message completely shattered Qi Yuan's dreams of wealth, leaving him frozen in place like a stone statue. He screamed in desperate silence, cursing the notion of wasting a yellow splendor fruit on a mere standard foundation establishment. His true ambition was to reach the elusive heavenly Tao foundation establishment. In a corner of the stands, Chu Tianchong continued to cast a murderous, malevolent gaze, letting out a spiteful snort at the victor. That searing hatred quickly drew Qi Yuan's attention. He frowned and delivered a cold, serious verdict. "Brother Chu, the omen of a bloody disaster upon you is growing heavier and heavier." This curse sent Chu Tianchong into a fury, but he still gritted his teeth and maintained a facade of calm. He pointed a finger fiercely at Qi Yuan's face and threw his head back in a series of twisted, manic laughs. "Who are you trying to scare? You'd better worry more about your junior sister Zhang Ran. I see a great catastrophe looming over her." With a hint of doubt, Qi Yuan peeked at Zhang Ran. The system instantly flashed the scan results, completely refuting the curse. Instead, it confirmed that her fortune was as red as vermilion, full of signs of an impending auspicious event. Ignoring his junior sister's pale and worried face, Qi Yuan turned back with total composure to confront the man, his words cutting like knives as he mocked, "You are wrong. Junior sister Zhang is bathed in Buddha's light. She surely has a joyous event coming. You'd be better off kowtowing a few times to her to soak up some of that luck. Perhaps your bloody disaster will dissipate then." Struck in his weak spot and speechless with rage, Chu Tianchong's teeth ground together audibly. The pent-up rage in his chest was nearly exploding, leaving him unable to even utter a coherent curse. Beside them, Zhang Ran's eyes were wide with admiration as she stared blankly at her silver-tongued senior brother. Knowing he was outmatched in both intellect and strength, Chu Tianchong stomped his foot in a fit of pique and turned to leave. He violently shoved aside the attendants blocking his path, roaring maniacally, "Get out of the way!" Seeing this, the Divine Light Sect disciples couldn't help but clap in delight, exclaiming, "Senior Brother Qi is truly heroic." Hiding in a corner, a female disciple held her face with a dreamy look, her eyes turning into sparkling hearts as she stared at Qi Yuan's back, whispering in praise, "Senior Brother Qi calculates everything perfectly. He wouldn't dare do anything reckless as expected of Senior Brother Qi. His aura is just too cool." Contrary to everyone's excitement, Qi Yuan merely shook his head helplessly and let out a long sigh, filled with the exhaustion of being caught in circumstances beyond his control. Biting the hand that feeds you, they don't know a good heart when they see one. Seeing the disturbance settle for the moment, Zhang Ran hurriedly rushed forward and grabbed Qi Yuan's sleeve, her voice trembling and choking with extreme gratitude. "Senior Brother Qi, thank you." Qi Yuan blinked in confusion and asked in return, "For what?" The young girl gave a relaxed smile and answered softly, "For Senior Brother stepping in to resolve the situation for me, of course." Tucking away his cynical facade, Qi Yuan's face darkened as he analyzed the situation word by word. He decisively concluded that the man's bloody disaster was the real deal, and unless he was willing to lower himself to kneel and kowtow to her, perhaps heaven would show mercy and resolve the catastrophe. The righteousness reflected in Qi Yuan's eyes made Zhang Ran's heart skip a beat, and her favorable impression of him soared instantly. She secretly admired the unique charm radiating from this senior brother who showed no arrogance despite his great feat of saving a lady in distress. Feeling a sudden surge of worry, she hurriedly urged, "By the way, senior brother, you must be careful of Chu Tianchong. That man is ruthless and vindictive. Whatever you do, do not leave the sect during this time." This sincere advice fell on Qi Yuan's ears like the wind. He waved his hand dismissively and stated proudly, "A mere Chu Tianchong is but a matter of a single sword strike." His arrogant attitude made Zhang Ran turn pale with fright. She anxiously grabbed his sleeve and poured out the chilling details of their enemy's background. That man had already broken through to the Foundation establishment stage, and had even gone so far as to sacrifice his own wife to the Black Chicken Old Demon to trade for power within the Black Mountain sect. He surely had layers of demonic spells protecting him. Therefore she pleaded with her senior brother not to underestimate the enemy. Despite the woman's earnest words, Qi Yuan maintained his composed air, mockingly comparing the enemy's cowardice to a hiding crow. Finally he gave a slight smile and turned to leave with dashing grace. Watching that broad back fade into the distance, Zhang Ran felt a mixture of emotions. She held a sliver of faint hope, thinking that with this first-grade yellow splendor fruit, Qi Yuan had a great chance to break his shackles and charge toward the divine infant stage. However, facing the unknown gloom ahead, she couldn't help but mock herself bitterly, wondering if her broken body could last until the day she could rely on this powerhouse. The scene shifted abruptly as the evening mist shrouded the quiet Seven Colors Peak. Qi Yuan was walking alone on the mountain path, stopping before the sturdy barrier his master had personally set. He focused on observing the flow of spiritual energy. With the corners of his mouth curling slightly, he secretly speculated on the intent behind his master's confinement, certain that the once tight defenses had now loosened somewhat. This thought made his smile grow even more devious. He cleared his throat and, like a fanatic calling out "Open Sesame," performed a series of hand signs and incantations with great ceremony. Embarrassingly, the spiritual barrier remained as motionless as a 10,000-year-old boulder. He rubbed his chin, his brow furrowing slightly, as he reflected on whether he had misjudged his master's kindness. That elder had ignored her reputation to seize a divine medicine and deliver it to him. How could such deep affection lead to a rejection? Qi Yuan decided his attitude wasn't humble enough, so he flicked his robes and knelt heavily on the cold ground, holding the brocade box containing the celestial fruit high with both hands. He used his inner strength to let out a roar that shattered the clouds. Master, your disciple, Qi Yuan, has come to deliver the fruit. The moment Qi Yuan raised the yellow splendor fruit, a strange phenomenon occurred. The once clear sky turned pitch black as ink. Black clouds rolled and churned while lightning tore through the sky. The invisible restriction erupted once again with a dazzling spiritual light, cruelly repelling his steps. Qi Yuan's face turned pale instantly, as cold sweat poured down, his mind swirling with 1,000 suspicions. Master is angry. Did I misinterpret things? Is the symbolism of giving a yellow splendor fruit bad? Yellow flower, a flower that's about to wither? Right, you're already my wife. Why am I still sending betrothal gifts? Isn't that treating Master like an outsider? The strange prompt from the system flashed through his mind. It turned out that although Yi Shi was nominally his lofty and beautiful master, she was actually his destined wife. Once this thought clicked, the burden on his heart was immediately lifted. Qi Yuan let out a long sigh of relief, a triumphant smile appearing on his lips as he turned to walk back leisurely, humming to himself, time to go back. Just as he reached the open space in front of the courtyard gate, he bumped into Zhang Lingzu, who was looking around surreptitiously. Upon seeing her eldest senior brother, she rushed up, her face tense as she asked urgently, "Senior brother, did you feel something strange just now?" It seemed like the aura of some powerhouse caused a violent fluctuation in the spiritual energy, even making the heaven, earth and 4 seasons change. Could it be Master? Qi Yuan let out a long sigh and shrugged. It should be her. I just tried to give a gift to Master, but she didn't accept it. Zhang Lingsu's face turned pale instantly as she grumbled inwardly, her heart in her throat for fear that this troublemaking senior brother had once again stroked the tiger's whiskers and annoyed their master. She followed silently behind Qi Yuan into the main hall. Suddenly remembering a task she hadn't finished, she reported, "By the way, senior brother, you asked me to visit Zheng Zhanghe at Divine Medicine Peak last time, but the physicians there said that before his injuries were fully healed, he hurriedly went down the mountain to Wrong City. He also sent back word that the Black Mountain Sect group hasn't left Wrong City yet. He said as long as he is there he can tie them down and prevent the commoners from being harmed." She tilted her head, her lip curling in confusion as she pressed, "Senior brother, since when did you become so close to that Zheng Zhanghe that you had me represent 7 Colors Peak to offer him condolences? Is it just because he is usually respectful to you?" Before she could finish, Zhang Lingzu suddenly became speechless, her pupils shrinking as she backed away half a step, terrified by the sight before her. Qi Yuan's face was now as dark as a storm cloud, and a monstrous cold killing intent erupted unconsciously from his body, making her chest feel tight from the pressure. The scene shattered and shifted back to the Chen estate in Wrong City. As night fell, a group of demonic cultivators from the Black Mountain Sect kicked open the main gate and barged in, led by Chu Tianshang. He turned and put on a fawning smile to flatter ancestor Beiji. "Elder, let's stay here tonight." The old monster stroked his beard and gave a satisfied smile, nodding in approval. "Staying here will surely disgust that bunch of righteous hypocrites to the extreme, Tianshang. You are still the most sensible." The old man waved his hand, pointing toward the luxurious guest rooms, and nonchalantly ordered the lackeys, "All right, divide the rooms among yourselves." Once the ancestor's figure disappeared, a disciple scurried over to Chu Tianshang's side, leaning in curiously to ask, "Deacon Tianshang, is there something special about this place? Why will staying here make the Divine Light Sect unhappy?" Chu Tianshang's mouth twitched into a pathologically lecherous smile. "Because I attended the wedding of this estate's owner. I wanted to borrow his bride to practice my cultivation methods, but who knew that woman was so stubborn? She smashed her head against the bedpost and died right there." He leisurely sat on a stone chair in the courtyard with his legs crossed, his tone arrogant. "If those little shrimps from the Divine Light Sect hadn't rushed here, I would have slaughtered this entire family long ago for daring to ruin my fun. Today I'll stay right here and see if that owner dares to crawl back." The clever attendant immediately adopted a subservient look. "Deacon Tianshang, when we entered the city today, I heard ceremonial cannons. It seems some family is holding a wedding. I've already intentionally released a spiritual insect to follow them and record the address. Why don't you take us brothers there tonight to practice our blade techniques?" These words struck right at his dark heart, and Chu Tianshang threw his head back and laughed lewdly. He reached out and slapped his subordinate's shoulder heavily, clicking his tongue in praise. "Your name is Lu Wei, right? Quite sensible. I've remembered you. When we practice tonight, I'll let you have a taste of the bride first." Lu Wei was overjoyed, bowing subserviently in thanks. "Thank you, Deacon Tianshang." Chu Tianshang's laughter grew even more manic. "Haha, you're in for a treat, kid." However, before the lewd laughter could subside, the memory of the extreme humiliation from earlier that day returned, and his face instantly became distorted and savage. He roared through gritted teeth, "Those bastards from the Divine Light Sect deserve to die, especially that Qi Yuan. He went too far today. If not for his master's sake, I would have long ago shown him what a fatal disaster looks like." Seeing his master flying into a rage, Lu Wei quickly offered fawning comfort. "Why should Deacon Tianshang bother with a nameless junior? Once our Black Mountain Sect unites the cultivation world of Great Shang, how we toy with that kid will be entirely up to you." just as the dream of domination was at its peak. A series of dull thuds from a knock on the door suddenly tore through the night. The group of evil cultivators looked at each other warily. Chu Tianchong frowned and shoved Lu Wei forward, barking irritably. Lu Wei, go out and see what's going on. The wooden door creaked open a crack, and a cold, chilling wind carrying a dark shadow surged in. What met Lu Wei's eyes was a hideous ghost mask staring fixedly at his very soul. The lackey was scared out of his wits, stumbling backward. Inside the room, Chu Tianchong drew his weapon and threatened sharply, "Who goes there? Take off that mask immediately." The mysterious figure slowly stepped over the threshold, casually carrying a common kitchen cleaver in his right hand. His voice echoed like ice from the lowest depths of hell. "Are you sure you want to see? No one who has seen my true face has ever met a good end." Catching a glimpse of the ridiculous cooking utensil in the other's hand, Chu Tianchong's mouth curled into a look of extreme contempt. However, that mockery was frozen forever. Before he could even blink, the masked ghostly figure had uncannily flashed before him. A tragic blade light tore through the void, cold and sharp as it swept past. The strike was delivered with such grace that it sliced Chu Tianchong's body cleanly into two halves. His severed head, still frozen in a mocking sneer, rolled across the ground as the mangled heap of flesh that was his torso collapsed onto the bluestone floor. Beneath the eerie ghost mask, the author of this lethal blow was none other than Qi Yuan. He lightly flicked the blood from the tip of his blade and declared indifferently, "It seems the bloody disaster you spoke of has indeed been fulfilled upon your own person." Witnessing the demonic butcher slay their master as easily as turning a hand, a group of Black Mountain Sect lackeys finally snapped out of their stupor, pointing trembling fingers and screaming in terror. This is Deacon Tianchong. You have some nerve. Do you have any idea who we are?" Qi Yuan slowly raised the long blade, which was still dripping with crimson blood, a trace of merciless killing intent flashing in his eyes. "Of course I know. You're from the Black Mountain Sect, and I came here specifically to kill you." His silhouette instantly transformed into a lethal whirlwind as he unleashed his technique, the lower 8 slashes. With every fall of his blade, a body hit the ground. In just a few breaths, the vast majority of the demonic disciples had been wiped clean. Those few demonic cultivators lucky enough to have half a breath left were terrified, letting out shrill pleas. "Ancestor, ancestor, save us!" This wretched cry for help finally alerted the main culprit. Ancestor Beiji shattered the roof and erupted into the air, his entire body radiating the violent aura of a powerhouse. It swept over the area like Mount Tai pressing down as he roared in fury, "Insolent brat, how dare you be so presumptuous!" The remnants of the defeated force seized this last straw of hope, their eyes filling with tears of joy as they shouted, "Elder!" Hope was rekindled in their hearts. They firmly believed that as a great powerhouse of the Origin Core realm, the Elder would certainly be able to withstand the strength of a true Origin Core, even if that masked ghost could slaughter those in the Qi refining or foundation establishment stages. Ancestor Beiji said nothing, instantly condensing his spiritual energy. He violently fired a lethal beam of pitch-black light which tore through the air straight toward Qi Yuan. His snake-like eyes were fixed on Qi Yuan, filled with poisonous malice. "Die." Facing this brutal certain kill strike, Qi Yuan merely pivoted his wrist and swung his long blade. The secret technique Heaven-Slaying Draw was instantly triggered as his body surged off the ground, hovering in midair. A brilliant divine light erupted behind him, focusing all his power into a sharp, peerless blade beam that slashed down toward the head of the Black Mountain Sect monster with unstoppable momentum. Ancestor Beiji's pupils shrank suddenly, filled with extreme horror. In this moment of life and death, his divine sense nearly collapsed. He questioned frantically in his heart, "How is this possible? I'm actually afraid. I'm a dignified Origin Core cultivator." However, no miracle occurred. The cold blade beam longitudinally sliced the old monster's body in two, blood splattering everywhere and staining the entire courtyard red. As expected, the power of a kitchen cleaver that had awakened its spiritual intelligence was not to be underestimated. Just like that, an Origin Core powerhouse collapsed, suffering the same tragic fate as his disciple. Split into two, Qi Yuan landed slowly, quietly looking at the remains of Ancestor Beiji. He tilted his head slightly, a surge of intense disappointment rising in his heart. "That's it. Am I too strong? Or is his golden core too soft and small to even withstand a single strike from me?" He clenched his fist and struck it heavily into his other palm with a clack. He set an ironclad cultivation standard for himself. When he formed his core in the future, it had to be big and hard. It absolutely could not be like this guy's. Meanwhile, on the dark streets, a group of Divine Light Sect cultivators were aggressively surrounding their target, led by Zheng Zhanghe. Though his body was covered in white bandages, the fire of chivalry in his eyes had never been extinguished. He grit his teeth. He swore in fury to settle the score with those demonic cultivators who ran rampant in the Chen estate and treated the Divine Light Sect like dirt. His goal tonight was to drive them out of Wrong City completely, no matter the cost. As they neared the gates of the Chen estate, a thick stench of blood hit them, causing Zheng Zhanghe's expression to change drastically. He immediately signaled for the team to stop and stay on high alert, an ominous premonition rising in his heart. He slowly drew his sword, secretly worrying whether the survivors in the estate had already been silenced by that group of maniacs. However, when the team cautiously broke through the door, what met their eyes was the aloof back of a figure wearing a ghost mask. Zheng Zhanghe froze, narrowing his eyes as he assessed the figure. quickly ruling out the possibility of them being a Black Mountain Sect cultivator because the temperaments of the two were completely different. Filled with curiosity, he respectfully cupped his hands to test the waters. "May I ask who your excellency is?" Qi Yuan, who had been distracted, was startled by the sudden shout. He hurriedly kicked off, leaping onto the roof to make his escape, not forgetting to toss back a laughably lame excuse before leaving. "Ah, my wife is about to give birth, I must go." Looking at the silhouette vanishing into the shadows in that preposterous excuse, Zhang Zhanghe felt his reality being challenged, standing there in a daze, completely at a loss. Before he could snap out of it, a cry of shock from a junior brother behind him pulled him back to reality. "Senior brother Zhang, look inside." The group ventured deeper into the courtyard, and the inferno-like scene before them left everyone dumbstruck. Mutilated corpses of Black Mountain Sect disciples were everywhere, blood staining the stone slabs dark red. The most tragic of all was the corpse of the notorious elder, split into two. The sound of collective gasps filled the air. Zhang Zhanghe stared at a rolling object on the ground, his pupils trembling as he gasped in horror. "Is that Chu Tianshang's head?" A disciple nearby stepped forward, eyes wide as he pointed at the blurred mess on the other side. He shouted with a trembling voice, "Ancestor Beiji, even Ancestor Beiji is dead." Heavens, wasn't Ancestor Beiji a true person who had already formed a golden core? How could he lose his life here? In this eerie atmosphere, a smile gradually appeared on the corners of Zhang Zhanghe's mouth, and the long-suppressed frustration was swept away. He let out a hearty laugh. "Ha!" He then decisively waved his hand to order the cleanup. Good, well done. Set fire to this place and burn it down." The disciples were also filled with hot blood, responding loudly in unison as they quickly threw their torches. The roaring flames of a red lotus fire instantly rose, consuming the entire mansion. Looking at the dancing flames, Zhang Zhanghe felt immensely gratified, muttering to himself, "Hee, I won't even leave you a whole corpse." "Ah no, we're helping the senior destroy the evidence." Meanwhile, at the foot of the majestic stone steps leading to the Divine Light Sect, two hunched figures were trembling as they knelt under the hazy moonlight, creating a sorrowful scene. The old woman was covered in tears, sobbing as she tugged at her husband's sleeve. "Old man, let's go back." Though the wind was piercingly cold, the old man grit his teeth and persisted. He stubbornly held his ground. "I want to kneel a little longer. In case an immortal master passes by and sees us, maybe he'll take pity and avenge our Qianqin." Seeing the old man weeping tears of blood, the old woman felt as if her heart were being cut by a knife, wondering if their humble mortal lives were worth even a single glance from the immortal masters high above the clouds. At their most desperate moment, Qi Yuan happened to pass by. He stopped and comforted them with a calm and firm tone. "The sect already knows about your matter. Since we know, go back and get some rest." Having said that, he strode up the stone steps and entered the mountain gate. Yes, the morning sun gradually rose, shining upon the towering Seven Colors Peak. The morning silence was instantly broken by Zhang Lingsu's excited cheer. "Eldest senior brother." The door creaked open and Qi Yuan appeared looking like he hadn't slept, spreading his arms for a wide yawn as he muttered lazily, "It's early morning, what is it?" Standing to the side, Zhang Ran's eyes sparkled with excitement as she grabbed his arm to report the good news. "Senior brother Qi Yuan, Chu Tianshang and Ancestor Beiji are both dead." Zhang Lingzu also couldn't wait to chime in, describing the soul-stirring details with great precision. "They stayed in Wrong City yesterday, and as a result they were killed by a mysterious sword master. Strangely, that expert hid his sword techniques and instead used a massive blade to hack the Black Mountain Sect disciples to death." The corner of Qi Yuan's mouth twitched slightly, and a bead of invisible cold sweat formed on his forehead. He cursed his luck inwardly. He hadn't expected that even though he slipped away so quickly, the rumors in the world would be so detailed. He forced himself to stay calm and asked tentatively, "What kind of blade did that person use?" Zhang Lingzu shook her head in confusion, but her eyes shone with the light of idol worship. "I don't know. A being of that level must use a divine weapon, right?" He swallowed hard and continued to test the limits of his junior sister's imagination. "It couldn't have been a kitchen cleaver, could it?" As soon as the words left his mouth, Zhang Lingzu rejected them mercilessly. "How could that be possible?" Zhang Ran also covered her mouth and chuckled, joining in to mock the enemy's tragic state. "Those people from the Black Mountain Sect are usually so arrogant. If they were hacked to death by a kitchen cleaver, imagine how humiliating that would be." "Ha ha!" Qi Yuan rubbed the back of his neck, casually drawing the kitchen cleaver tucked into his waist and giving it a swing. He put on a serious expression and reminded them with a frown, "I have a kitchen cleaver, and the Black Mountain Sect disciples just happened to die by a blade. Do you think they'll suspect I'm the one who killed Chu Tianshang?" Faced with this absurd question, Zhang Lingsu's head was full of question marks. She let out a long, helpless sigh. "Eldest senior brother, you're overthinking it." Qi Yuan wouldn't let it go, scratching his head as he imagined various unlucky possibilities. "And I just warned Chu Tianshang about a bloody disaster yesterday. If outsiders think I was threatening him and then killed them all in the middle of the night out of spite, wouldn't that—" Faced with this timid senior brother's rich imagination, Zhang Lingzu gave two speechless coughs. She promised with a stern face, "Ahem, eldest senior brother, rest assured, no one will suspect you." Beside them, Zhang Ran looked at him with eyes full of admiration, thinking, "Senior brother Qi Yuan is truly interesting." Once the two junior sisters had walked away, Qi Yuan's expression immediately collapsed, and he began pacing frantically around the room like an ant on a hot griddle. he muttered to himself, reviewing his fatal oversight. Too careless. He held his head tight, filled with regret, even sketching out various perfect disguises in his mind, like wearing women's clothing to erase his tracks. He rehearsed various disaster scenarios in his head. What if the Black Mountain sect linked using a blade with the death prophecy? And even invited a master of divination to reveal the truth. At the thought of those thugs aggressively charging up to the Divine Light sect to demand his life, his blood boiled, and a sense of grievance welled up. He slammed both hands onto the table with a bang and roared in fury to demand justice. I only eliminated a few bullies on behalf of the moon. How can they team up to bully a child who is only 229 months old? Is there no law? Is there no justice? This is going too far. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Do not look down on a youth for being poor. No, I must have my revenge. Slumped on the table, the kitchen cleaver that had awakened its spiritual intelligence was completely speechless at its master's grand monologue. A deep sense of regret surged within its cold steel core. I definitely followed the wrong master. Qi Yuan threw his cowardice aside and strode out with his head held high, heading straight for the law enforcement hall to gather secrets on his opponents. Meanwhile, at a corner of the long corridor, a figure was staggering along, struggling to carry a mountain-high stack of documents. This person was Prince Dong Xian of the Great Shang Kingdom. Now, with the emperor old and fatuous, the court was in turmoil, with brothers fighting for the throne. As the most neglected one, Dong Xian wisely chose to compromise. To save his life, he endured the humiliation of a broken engagement and fled to the Divine Light sect for protection. He hadn't expected a miraculous encounter. The awakening of the remnant soul of a powerful artifact refiner residing within him. Under the meticulous guidance of this mysterious old grandpa, this trash prince's fate was instantly reversed, from cleansing his marrow to sweeping up treasures in the markets. As Dong Xian hurried along with his head down, he communicated secretly with the soul in his sea of consciousness. Master Qi, if the black chicken monster steps into the late stage of divine infant, won't the entire Great Shang Kingdom fall into chaos? An aged voice sounded with a hint of indifference. HMPH kid, you're only in the Qi refining stage. Such things aren't for you to worry about. Are you still thinking about that bit of worldly power? Dong Xian explained his intentions submissively. At least it could help you recover some of your strength. The elder let out a cold snort, dousing his disciple's fantasies. He bluntly exposed the mediocrity of his background and talent, outlining a blueprint for the next 100 years of secluded cultivation to reach the divine infant realm. Your family's foundation is too poor and your maternal clan isn't strong enough. What do you have to compete with others? Just focus on your cultivation, with my help. You will surely achieve the divine infant stage in a few hundred years. The lecturing voice stopped abruptly. The elder in the sea of consciousness was slightly startled, letting out a surprised "eh?" before hurriedly warning, "Who is that person?" The one who had just swept past with an extraordinary aura was Qi Yuan. Dong Xian answered cautiously. "That is the eldest disciple of Seven Colors Peak." Staring at Qi Yuan's receding back, Dong Xian was also at a loss. He couldn't understand why the usually arrogant Master Qi would suddenly show such interest in this senior brother. The elder's voice suddenly became urgent, sounding as excited as if he had found some world-shaking treasure. That kitchen cleaver is a great treasure. Quick, go buy it." Dong Xian broke into a cold sweat, inwardly crying foul. If the other person were a nobody, he could easily intimidate or bribe him into selling it. But he had just run into that god of slaughter, Qi Yuan. Though he was extremely frightened, he still swallowed hard and chose to submit with a long sigh. He then took a few quick steps and shouted from behind, Forget it. Since you ordered it, master, I'll give it a try." "Greetings, senior brother Qi Yuan," suddenly called out to. Qi Yuan turned around, his brow arching slightly. As the system's evaluation panel flashed, Qi Yuan thought to himself, "This is definitely the typical protagonist who sucks up all the spotlight and trouble. The further away from such people, the longer one lives." He gave a slight tilt of his chin. "Oh, it's you, kid." The prince scratched his head, probing awkwardly. "Senior brother Qi Yuan, I have something. I'm not sure if I should say it." Seeing through the other's attempt to get close, Qi Yuan interrupted coldly without hesitation. "If you're not sure whether you should say it, then don't." Dong Xian froze like a block of wood, hit so hard by this merciless slap that he couldn't react for a long time. Taking advantage of this, Qi Yuan had already vanished in a flash. Dong Xian hurriedly reached out and shouted, "Wait, senior brother," he cried out in his heart, wondering why he hadn't even had the chance to speak before being rejected so decisively. Suddenly, the elder in his sea of consciousness gave a sharp order to stop, his tone changing from desire to extreme terror. "No, stop, don't talk to him anymore. You must be careful." Dong Xian froze in place, his mouth hanging open as he failed to understand what was happening. Immediately after, the elder's horrifying divine sense crashed directly into his mind. "On his kitchen cleaver, there is the blood of an origin core cultivator." As soon as the words were spoken, Dong Xian felt as if he'd been struck by lightning, and cold sweat instantly drenched his back like a bath. His eyes stared fixedly at the ordinary kitchen cleaver on Qi Yuan's waist as it gradually faded into the distance. Prince Dong Xian secretly speculated whether that kitchen cleaver had just finished off an origin core true person. The scene shifts to Qi Yuan's room where he was briskly packing his bags. Pushing the wooden door open, he whispered a confirmation that the auspicious day had arrived. Seeing him dressed like this, Zhang Lingsu's eyes widened as she asked, "Is Eldest senior brother going out?" Qi Yuan firmly patted his bundle and announced solemnly, "I'm going out to achieve foundation establishment. I've already informed the sect master." Zhang Lingzu frowned in confusion, immediately calling out her senior brother's cowardice and curling her lip. Why go so far from the sect just for foundation establishment? Could it be that Eldest senior brother is afraid? How could the Black Mountain sect possibly suspect you? You're definitely overthinking this. Having his weak spot poked, Qi Yuan hastily adopted a scholarly air, clasping his hands behind his back as he spoke grandly of the sage's wisdom. Reading 10,000 books is not as good as traveling 10,000 miles, junior sister, you don't understand. Zhang Lingsu's face darkened, completely speechless, leaving her to watch his nonsensical rambling. Their gazes met, one desperately avoiding eye contact, the other burning with intense suspicion. Finally, Qi Yuan had to wave the white flag in surrender. He scratched his head and admitted to his cautious nature. "If that black chicken old demon sends someone to intercept and kill me, wouldn't that be certain death? Better to hide outside and wait for the danger to pass before returning." His little junior sister pressed her palm to her forehead and let out a long sigh, waving him away like one would a plague. "Eldest senior brother, you'd better leave quickly. I'm afraid if I stay with you any longer I'll go mad too." Qi Yuan gleefully cupped his hands in farewell. "Then I'm off." Despite her annoyance, Zhang Lingsu's heart softened, and she offered a few warnings about the taboos of the treacherous world. "Eldest senior brother, you must be extremely careful while alone outside. The world outside isn't like our divine light sect. If you run into people from the Black Mountain sect, whatever you do, don't be impulsive." He confidently patted his chest and smirked, saying, "I knew you understood me, junior sister. That bunch from the Black Mountain sect is ambitious. They'll surely try to move against me." Hearing this, Zhang Lingzu gave up completely. She stomped her foot in frustration and turned to go back inside, her face as black as charcoal, cursing repeatedly in her mind, "Why isn't Eldest senior brother a mute? Why isn't he a mute? Why isn't he a mute?" The scene shifts to reveal the bustling sights of Bloodless City in the far north of the Great Shang Kingdom. This was originally territory under the influence of the Black Mountain sect. This place was famous across the 4 seas for producing blood crystal mines, blood crystals being a priceless divine stone that greatly benefited cultivation. The temptation of massive profits attracted countless rogue cultivators to mine here, which in turn filled the treasury of the evil Black Mountain sect. Amidst the daily mist, a massive flying boat broke through the wind and arrived. An announcement echoed from the ship's speakers upon reaching Bloodless City. "The flying boat has entered the range of Bloodless City. Passengers, please pack your luggage." Next, a sturdy wooden ladder clattered down to the ground. Standing beside Qi Yuan was a glamorous woman who crisply warned those unfamiliar with the area about the bloody local rules. "Fellow Taoists, when mining blood crystals in Bloodless City, you must be careful of the Black Mountain sect. Offending the city lord might only mean your own death, but if you offend the Black Mountain sect, it could implicate your entire family." Qi Yuan stole a glance at the beautiful elder sister traveling with him. Privately calculating just how ruthless this evil sect truly was, he secretly wondered if his 9 generations would be exterminated if the matter of him killing Chu Tianshang were exposed. But thinking of his solo household register, he smugly stroked his chin, feeling a surge of satisfaction at his enemy's helplessness. With a determined gaze, he heroically set a grand mission for himself: to eliminate evil and promote good, disregarding personal grudges, to act on behalf of heaven. Just as he was immersed in his grand fantasies, the woman's honey-sweet invitation drifted into his ears. "Little brother, if you have no place to stay, why not lodge at my house?" Qi Yuan was startled, his eyes bulging like teacups as he blankly repeated the tempting and ambiguous proposal. Thoughts flashed through Qi Yuan's mind like sparks. He calculated that time was precious, the killing had to be fast and the retreat even faster. He couldn't let personal matters delay his grand objective. Just as he was about to decline, a crisp female voice from behind interrupted his thoughts. "Mother, I'm here." Speaking was Duan Tianru, the beautiful mistress of the blood crystal mining area. She frowned slightly, her phoenix eyes scanning Qi Yuan with a scrutinizing look, secretly wondering, is this youth another blind date candidate my mother just found? Seeing someone interrupt, Qi Yuan seized the opportunity, bowed to Lu Piaopiao, and decisively took his leave. "Fellow Taoist Lu Piaopiao, I have urgent business. I shall take my leave now." Lu Piaopiao was a sensible person and did not try to keep him, merely responding with an elegant smile. "Very well, until we meet again." The mother and daughter quietly watched Qi Yuan's silhouette vanish into the crowd. After a long while, Duan Tianru turned to her mother curiously and asked, "Mother, who was that?" Lu Piaopiao reached out to gently stroke her daughter's hair, her eyes carrying a motherly jest. Your guard is too high. He's just a rogue cultivator I happened to meet who came here to mine blood crystals. I saw he had an extraordinary temperament and wanted to introduce him to you." Her tone suddenly grew somber, carrying a mother's worry. "You're not young anymore. It's time to find a husband to support you. Not a single one of those cultivators in the Black Mountain sect is any good. You're so beautiful, yet you have to share the blood crystal mines with them. I'm truly afraid you won't be able to handle it." Duan Tianru's cheeks instantly flushed crimson. She bashfully gave her mother's arm a light swat and acted spoiled. "Mother, not just anyone can be my husband, let's go home quickly. I have to go to the Black Mountain Sect with the other mine owners later." With that, she pulled Lu Piao away at a quick pace. Despite her daughter's urging, Lu Piao maintained an elegant gait, explaining unhurriedly, "What's the rush? The Black Mountain Sect isn't going anywhere. In the Great Shang Kingdom, the Black Mountain Sect is merely a second or third-rate sect. They have no divine infant stage foundation, and they don't even have a late-stage origin core expert. It's only because the Black Mountain Sect master took the black chicken old demon as his foster father that their status has risen and they've grown increasingly overbearing. Their reputation is wretched. They've committed countless slaughters in the surrounding areas. They're even used to stop children from crying at night." Meanwhile, within the Black Mountain Sect's headquarters, the atmosphere was exceptionally tense. Sitting in the most prestigious seat, a woman announced coldly, "We still haven't identified the masked man." This woman was Yu Linglong, an elder who wielded great power. Rumors in the world said that the black chicken old demon had secretly chosen her as a cultivation partner, plotting to break through his realm via dual cultivation. Below, a disciple knelt on the ground reporting intelligence with a tremble. "The masked man kills with a blade, but the technique is actually swordplay. Therefore, the profound talisman mountain is the most suspicious. Elder Zan Feng has returned. The sect master has summoned all disciples and elders who were away to return to the sect, preparing to pressure the profound talisman mountain." After hearing the report, a corner of Yu Linglong's mouth curled into an ambitious smile. She secretly assessed the sect master's move, thinking that if the Black Mountain Sect truly dared to provoke the profound talisman mountain, it meant the black chicken old demon was confident in stepping into the late stage of the divine infant realm. Once the sect's status rose, her power would rise with it. Just as her dream was swelling, a series of shrill screams from outside shattered the silence. The kneeling disciple was startled, hurriedly kowtowing to ask permission to check. Outside the sect gate, the scene was like a living hell. A youth clutching a dripping longsword was approaching step by step over a field of corpses. He wore no mask. Qi Yuan's face was clearly visible. He glanced coldly at the severed suspension bridge behind him, a cruel smile appearing on his lips as he gloated secretly. "Except for those in the Foundation Establishment and Golden Core stages who can fly, the rest of these Black Mountain Sect disciples are now trapped like rats in a hole. Wait for death." In the courtyard, the disciple from before rushed out in a panic with a group of lackeys. The moment they met, a Foundation Establishment deacon arrogantly pointed a sword at Qi Yuan and barked, "Thief, state your name. How dare you run wild at our Black Mountain Sect?" Qi Yuan instantly adopted the role of a tragic male lead, acting with impassioned fervor. "You killed my entire family. I have cultivated bitterly for 100 years. Today I will destroy your Black Mountain Sect." As soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly frowned in conflict. Was the line just now about someone else killing his family, or was it that he's destroying them because he's afraid of revenge? Before he could figure it out, the deacon's mocking voice drifted over. "Hey, so you're a fish that escaped the net. If you had just lived your life in hiding, you might have enjoyed your old age. Coming back here to seek death now is truly a loss of sanity. Today your lineage ends." As the threat landed, Qi Yuan's imagination automatically drifted toward an extremely twisted direction. His eyes widened, blood rushing to his head as he roared in fury, "You actually want to cut off my rod?" This sudden train of thought left the deacon frozen in place, stammering in confusion. "Who wants to cut off your rod? What are you talking about?" But how could Qi Yuan listen? His rage soaring, he swung his sword violently. A sharp beam of sword chi swept through the enemy ranks as if tearing through space. "All of you go to hell," the deacon had just opened his mouth to explain when his throat was locked by a terrifying pressure. In the place where they stood, a world-shaking explosion erupted. This group of unlucky disciples, due to the misunderstanding born of Qi Yuan's rich imagination, was instantly sent to meet the king of hell. His anger unspent, he cursed this group who dared to target his vitals and declared loudly, "HMPH, trying to cut my rod. This is the consequence. Black Mountain Sect, you have committed many evils. Today I shall destroy your entire sect." As the dust settled, several figures slowly approached and a dull, majestic voice asked, "Who are you?" Speaking was an Origin Core elder with the notorious Elder Zan Feng standing beside him. At the sight of the residual sword Qi, Zan Feng's pupils shrank and he pointed at Qi Yuan, roaring in rage, "These moves, you're the one who killed Ancestor Beiji?" Qi Yuan threw his head back and laughed loudly, feeling immensely gratified. He arrogantly waved his sword and threatened, "Since you've discovered it, I certainly can't let you live." Zan Feng was dumbfounded, unable to believe the absurd reality before him, murmuring in panic, "You don't have a golden core, you aren't an origin core cultivator at all. How could you slay 3 deacons with one strike? How is this possible?" The corner of Qi Yuan's mouth curled into a peerless, cunning smile. He slowly pointed the tip of his sword toward the high sky, giving his answer through action. Above his head, a golden sphere suddenly manifested, radiating a blinding, dazzling light. Zan Feng looked up at this anomaly. His soul trembling under the terrifying pressure, he roared in horror in his mind, "Why can someone who hasn't even reached Foundation Establishment borrow the power of a golden core from the 9 heavens?" Fear gripped his heart, and he cried out in despair, "Are you even human? Run!" But where could he run? Qi Yuan's sword light fell straight down, splitting Elder Zan Feng into 2 halves. This move was overbearing to the extreme. Qi Yuan even had to grip the hilt with both hands, the resulting dust from the vibration filling the entire courtyard. Sheathing his sword, Qi Yuan mocked coldly. Cursing because you can't win, you're the one who isn't human. He did a quick calculation in his head. The Black Mountain Sect had a total of 7 origin cores including the Sect Master. Subtracting the dead ancestor Beiji and the 2 he just finished off, only 4 targets remained. Just then, a heavy sense of oppression suddenly descended from the sky. Qi Yuan looked up and was surprised to find that the Black Mountain Sect's strongest lineup had arrived. Leading them was the Sect Master, Black Wind Taoist, with the final 3 origin cores following closely behind. Looking at the field of corpses, these powerhouses were struck dumb with shock after steadying his mind. Black Wind Taoist stepped forward and proposed a negotiation with a mix of soft and hard tactics. Though my Black Mountain Sect is a small household, a black chicken old demon is this old man's foster father. If your excellency leaves now, we shall consider this matter settled. Qi Yuan stood proudly in place, his eyes flashing with disdain as he countered the shameless lie. You killed my family and then threatened me, yet you want me to leave? Do you think I'm some naive child? Yu Linglong stood beside the Sect Master. Swaying her hips, she stepped forward with a wanton smile. Little brother is indeed interesting. She began to employ a honey trap. Her tone grew moist and full of temptation. If you are willing to spare the Black Mountain Sect, I am willing to spend a night of passion with you for the sake of the sect. Qi Yuan snorted coldly in his heart, despising those men who fell for honey traps and never returned. He pointed a finger at her and scolded her for her shamelessness. HMPH, even using a honey trap. Shameless indeed. Today I will surely destroy your entire sect. Black Wind Taoist was so enraged his face turned purple, unable to maintain his sage-like appearance any longer. He waved his hand and tossed out a pitch-black formation flag, roaring in fury. Since that's the case, this old man shall speak no more. Form the array. The formation flag instantly hovered, generating an astounding suction. The spiritual energy of the surrounding disciples was forcibly drained, leaving them to wail in agony, their shrill cries echoing through the mountains. Conversely, the several elders excitedly enjoyed the massive surge of energy pouring into their bodies, their strength exploding. Seeing through the trickery of the array, Qi Yuan gave a faint smile, privately assessing that the combat power of these origin cores had indeed been forcibly raised by a level. Suddenly, Black Wind Taoist opened his mouth and spat out a precious golden core, a pitch-black orb. Holding it in his hand, he announced arrogantly, "This old man has formed a thick black golden core of the triple 3rd grade. This core is the most solid. Even a divine infant cultivator would find it difficult to break in a short time. Though your techniques are exquisite and your killing moves never-ending, if I were to entangle with you, I would surely be picked off one by one. Therefore this old man shall use the golden core to conquer all laws with brute force." Having spoken, he exerted all his strength and hurled the golden core like a cannonball, carrying matchless power as it aimed straight for Qi Yuan, determined to decide life and death in a single strike. Yet, facing this trump card, Qi Yuan's expression remained unchanged. He only let the corner of his mouth curl up slightly as he chuckled. Qi Yuan thought to himself that since the opponent was playing for such high stakes, it actually saved him the trouble of hunting them down one by one. He might as well just face them head-on. He pulled that legendary kitchen cleaver from his back. The moment this divine weapon appeared, it radiated a blinding celestial light. The sharp edge vibrated violently, and the rust on its surface began to flake away and scatter. Feeling the staggering killing intent erupting from this seemingly ordinary kitchen cleaver, the Black Wind Taoist turned deathly pale, his terror reaching its peak. His powerful intuition urged him to shriek and recall his golden core. He screamed, "A kitchen cleaver, what the hell, this feeling? Oh no, get back here." But it was far too late. The kitchen cleaver had already struck like an arrow piercing the wind. The instantaneous frontal collision split the golden core clean in half. In that breath, a world-shaking explosion roared, the shockwave sweeping through everything as dust and smoke filled the sky, blotting out his vision. When the mist cleared, Qi Yuan's silhouette slowly descended, his posture the picture of dashing grace. In stark contrast, the Black Wind Taoist's meridians had been completely shattered by the destruction of his golden core. His body was a broken mess as he vomited great mouthfuls of black blood, despairingly murmuring in his extreme helplessness, "How is this possible?" Soon after, that withered frame collapsed heavily onto the cold ground. Qi Yuan walked up coldly, looked at the corpse and mocked with disdain. "It's not that I'm too strong. It's that your golden core was too weak." He turned, pointing the blood-stained tip of his blade toward the remaining survivors, and pronounced their sentence with a cold snort, "Your turn." This massacre lasted only 10 breaths. Whether they were Qi Refining Foundation Establishment or Origin Core Elders, they fell one after another beneath Qi Yuan's merciless blade. In the chaos, Yu Linglong took advantage of a moment when an elder was gravely injured to deliver a fatal blow, devouring her fellow disciple's origin core in an attempt to recover her cultivation. Now, as she huddled in a corner and saw the demonic Qi Yuan approaching with his blade, her entire body trembled violently. Her glamorous face was covered in tear tracks as she kowtowed and begged for mercy. "Could your excellency spare this lowly woman's life?" Qi Yuan remained expressionless, raising his long blade to strike. But Yu Linglong used her hands to shield herself in terror, hurriedly tossing out her final bargaining chip. Wait. I possess the purple bamboo constitution, and I am still a virgin. The black chicken old demon has always coveted my primordial yin and spent massive resources nurturing me just to raise me to the divine infant stage. Once I reach that realm, he intends to dual cultivate with me, to seize my primordial yin, using it to gain the chance to enter the legendary purple mansion stage. If your excellency is willing to spare my life, I am willing to become your excellency's slave, and offer my primordial yin to you, helping you obtain the serendipity of the purple mansion. Hearing this, Qi Yuan frowned slightly, repeating two words in confusion, purple mansion. Thinking he was moved, Yu Linglong immediately writhed her graceful body, emitting a thick enchanting fragrance as her tone turned to a seductive whisper. As long as your excellency is willing to share a night of passion with me, you can step into the divine infant realm today. If you can wait until I cultivate to the divine infant stage to spend a night with me, there is even more hope of advancing to the purple mansion. Qi Yuan let out a cold laugh, directly exposing the fatal trap. So what you're saying is you're just the black chicken old demon's spare rations? Since that divine infant stage black chicken old demon is so terrifying, then I definitely can't leave behind the hidden threat of a purple mansion expert. Yu Linglong broke into a cold sweat of shock. In her panic she was just about to scream wait, when the merciless blade swept across her beautiful head, sending it rolling across the ground the moment her golden core flew out. Qi Yuan quickly followed up with a heavy strike to shatter it, mocking loudly, I've cut off your head and shattered your golden core. Let's see how you dual cultivate with that old demon once you're dead and gone. Looking down at Yu Linglong's headless corpse, he suddenly felt a surge of caution, thinking it best to be safe rather than sorry, worried the old demon might use some evil art to utilize the body. He unhesitatingly pulled out a bottle of corpse-dissolving water and poured it over the remains, cursing as he did so. No, on the off chance that black chicken old demon can use her body, I must destroy the evidence. With this corpse-dissolving water, he won't be able to take any primordial yin. But looking at the pool of foul-smelling liquid, Qi Yuan still didn't feel safe enough. He simply set a fire to burn away all traces, swearing not to leave behind a single speck of ash. Seeing the roaring flames, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, scanning the group of disciples who had narrowly escaped only to be left dying from the array draining their energy. He clicked his tongue and snorted, Hey, so there are still a few who weren't sucked dry by the array. Whatever, I'll send you on your way and clear out the library pavilion while I'm at it. Qi Yuan swept through like a whirlwind, leveling the library pavilion and looting every single item of value, leaving nothing behind. After completing this official business, he patted his hands and raised his chin triumphantly. Time is about up. Let's move. Meanwhile, at the foot of Black Mountain, a carriage pulled by several rabbit demons was wobbling its way up the slope. Inside, Duan Tianru, the mistress of the blood crystal mine, sat with several burly men, the atmosphere exceptionally heavy. One of the men slapped his thigh hard and decisively encouraged the group. Everyone, for this negotiation with the Black Mountain sect, we must stand together and absolutely not back down. Giving up 20% of the blood crystals to the Black Mountain sect is my absolute limit. We cannot give a single bit more. A person sitting opposite could only let out a long sigh, their expression pessimistic. Old Wong, even if we form a united front, what can we do? The Black Mountain sect is backed by the Black Chicken Old Demon. Even the three major sects of the cultivation world have to show them some respect. What do we rogue cultivators have to fight back with? I'm just afraid that if we don't increase the share, we can forget about returning to Bloodless City alive. Old Wong was momentarily speechless, his chest burning with rage he couldn't refute. He could only sigh helplessly and voice a dreamlike wish, sigh if only a sword immortal would appear one day and level this Black Mountain sect with a single strike. Duan Tianru let out a soft sigh, offering a bitter smile at her companion's fantasy. She thought to herself that since even the four major sects were wary of the Black Chicken Old Demon's power, where would a sword immortal find the world-defying ability to do such a thing? Suddenly the carriage braked hard, startling everyone into a stumble. Old Wong hurriedly pulled back the curtain, demanding an answer from the driver irritably. Why have we stopped? The driver's trembling voice came from ahead. Ahead, someone is blocking the road. Old Wong broke into a cold sweat, clasping his hands and muttering like a prayer. Please don't let it be someone from the Black Mountain sect. Please don't let it be the Black Mountain sect. Extreme panic filled the carriage as everyone guessed it was bandits blocking the way to rob them, except for Duan Tianru, who remained calm. She boldly pulled back the side curtain to look outside. The one blocking the middle of the road was none other than Qi Yuan, a bright and friendly smile on his face. Seeing him, Duan Tianru thought in shock, It's him. Why is he in the Black Mountain sect's territory? Could he be a disciple of the Black Mountain sect? Her face darkened. As for Qi Yuan, he politely cupped his hands and asked courteously, Everyone, sorry to bother you, but does anyone know where the Lingtian Pavilion market is around here? Hearing him ask about Lingtian Pavilion, the organization that controlled most of the game jade slips and media in the Great Shang Kingdom, Old Wong patted his chest and let out a sigh of relief. Phew, luckily he's just asking for directions. Duan Tianru hurriedly answered first. There is one in the Tianyin market. Qi Yuan smiled as brightly as the sun, cupping his hands in thanks. Many thanks, everyone. He secretly felt pleased, reflecting that there were indeed many good people in this world. Seeing him turn to leave, Duan Tianru couldn't help her curiosity and shouted after him. Didn't you go to dig for blood crystals? Why are you here? This is the Black Mountain Sect's territory. Shi Yuan's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the acquaintance from a few days ago. Thinking things had taken a bad turn, he quickly squeezed out an awkward smile and stammered out an excuse. I accidentally got lost. Seeing his embarrassed look, Duan Tianru advised kindly, "It's dangerous here, don't come around if you don't have to." Chi Yuan took the opening and bolted, echoing her words. "You're right, I think this place is too dangerous too, gotta get out of here." Watching Chi Yuan's figure vanish in an instant, Old Wang scratched his head with a confused look. "Owner Duan, you know that youth?" Duan Tianru lowered the curtain and replied coldly, "Only met once, let's hurry to the Black Mountain Sect for the negotiations." The carriage began wobbling toward the summit once more. When the rabbit demons came to a halt, what met everyone's eyes was a scene of hair-raising ruins. Duan Tianru covered her mouth, crying out in terror. Why is the white bone bridge broken?" Beside her, Old Wang's face turned deathly pale, his finger trembling as he pointed at a pile of broken bricks and tiles. "Everyone look, what is that?" They saw the Black Mountain Sect submerged in a sea of blood, buildings collapsed, dust and smoke thick in the air and corpses everywhere. Everyone was instantly frozen like stone. Someone with sharp eyes recognized the clothing on a corpse and shouted in horror, "A deacon, an elder, an Origin Core powerhouse." Duan Tianru took 2 steps back, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "The Black Mountain Sect has been exterminated." Shock spread through the crowd. Old Wang swallowed hard, confirming the terrifying fact. "This is indeed the Black Mountain Sect," he murmured in awe, unable to guess which divine infant powerhouse had the courage to offend the black chicken old demon and be determined enough to level this insufferably arrogant sect. Old Wang clutched his chest, defending himself in a daze for his jinxing. "I was just speaking nonsense, how could I know any sword immortal?" While everyone was immersed in terror, Chi Yuan's silhouette flashed through Duan Tianru's mind, and she vaguely wondered if that mysterious youth had witnessed the massacre. Intuition told her that a storm was about to sweep through the great Shang kingdom, and she decisively urged everyone to turn the carriage around and flee this place of trouble. At the bustling Tianyan market, Chi Yuan had arrived safely and breathed a soft sigh of relief, looking a bit worried. "Sigh, even though I dealt with Yu Linglong's body, the matter still isn't thorough enough. There are risks. What if more than one person in the Black Mountain Sect has the purple bamboo constitution? What if that sect master Black Wind Taoist also had it? What if the black chicken old demon is playing a big game of chess?" Yu Linglong was only the purple bamboo constitution on the surface, while his foster son Black Wind Taoist and even others in the Black Mountain Sect might also possess that physique. He scratched his head and came up with a devious plan to divert the investigation. There was only one move now: spread the news that someone in the Black Mountain Sect possessed the purple bamboo constitution. When the black chicken old demon emerged from seclusion, what he would see was a Black Mountain Sect that had already turned to ash. To break through their realms, he couldn't imagine how far those cultivators would go in their madness. By then, the Black Mountain Sect would be leveled to the ground and the disciples' mangled limbs would be scattered across the country. "I'd like to see how you investigate then, black chicken old demon." Within the quiet space of Lingchen Pavilion, incense smoke curled from an exquisite bronze furnace, wrapping around like a veil. In this mist, a deacon was resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, an attendant led Chi Yuan in with a submissive bow, reporting in a low voice, "Deacon, we have business." The deacon slowly opened his eyes, the corner of his mouth curling into the shrewd smile of a merchant. He nodded slightly, his tone steady. "What are the honored guest's instructions?" Chi Yuan got straight to the point. "I want to use your Lingchen Pavilion's reach to spread a piece of news and make it known to all under heaven." The deacon nimbly pulled a glowing jade slip from his sleeve and presented it respectfully. "This is the price list, please take a look. Which tier would you like to choose?" Scanning the dazzling numbers on the price list, Chi Yuan's mouth twitched with a pang of regret. He complained privately that the price was truly expensive, starting at dozens of spirit stones. "If I hadn't made a fortune at the Black Mountain Sect, I couldn't even afford this little advertisement." He had to choose the most top-tier effect. Gritting his teeth, he made up his mind and announced grandly, "I choose the 3,000 spirit stone package." Hearing this staggering number, the smile on the deacon's face grew even more brilliant, revealing a row of shining gold teeth. He bowed and scraped as he replied, "Understood. What news would you like to spread?" Chi Yuan leaned in close, whispering an astounding sentence into the deacon's ear. "The news I want to promote is the Black Mountain Sect possesses the purple bamboo constitution." The deacon's pupils shrank abruptly, his soul struck as if by lightning, screaming in terror in his mind. "What?" His face instantly darkened, his gaze sharp as he scrutinized the stranger. "Does your excellency have a grudge against the Black Mountain Sect? You're trying to leave them with no peace at all." However, the instincts of a great merchant quickly overrode his concerns, and he raised his chin, proudly displaying the power of Lingchen Pavilion. "Any other place might not dare take this order for fear of offending the Black Mountain Sect. But my Lingchen Pavilion is not afraid. I'll take this order." Having said that, his gold teeth showed again in triumph. As for Chi Yuan, after finalizing the deal, he used the cover of night to sneak away, steering a spirit boat to fly back to the Divine Light Sect. The wind whistled in his ears as he felt his empty coin pouch and let out a long sigh. That pile of spirit stones flew away before they even got warm. Luckily I made quite a bit this time. While Qi Yuan lay in bed sleeping soundly, 2 information bombs completely detonated the cultivation world of the Great Shang Kingdom. Terrified exclamations were everywhere on the streets. What? The Black Mountain Sect has the purple bamboo constitution? What? The Black Mountain Sect was exterminated? What? Was it because a powerful enemy discovered they had the constitution that the sect was wiped out? What? Spirit boat tickets to the Black Mountain Sect are all sold out? In an instant the entire Great Shang Kingdom fell into a frenzied vortex of greed and curiosity. Returning to the ruins of the Black Mountain Sect, the site was still immersed in a deathly silence, the corpses appearing exceptionally desolate under the hazy moonlight. In these mass grave-like ruins a dark shadow appeared. The person scanned the field of corpses, a smile of certain victory curling on their lips. It seems I'm the smart one, being the first to arrive at the Black Mountain Sect. That's the only way to scavenge good treasures. Maybe there are even fragments of the purple bamboo constitution left. He was immersed in dreams of wealth. Suddenly a sharp piercing sneer came from behind. You rogue monk with your face full of brawn, you actually dare to have designs on the purple bamboo constitution? What, do you plan to pick up a piece of a corpse to practice your boyhood art? The monk jumped in startlement, turning his head abruptly to roar, Who's there? How dare you spy on me? From the shadows a group of people walked out leisurely. The beautiful woman leading them smiled slightly, her eyes full of temptation as she replied flatly, Rogue monk, besides you, who else in our group walks around barefoot all day? As soon as she finished, before he could even react, another furious shout tore through the air. I am the true wandering monk. Where did you come from, you impostor? The fake monk froze, left speechless. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, he let out a dry cough to cover his tracks and tried to steer the conversation toward a professional analysis. Ahem. To wipe out the Black Mountain Sect would require at least a divine infant old monster, yet there is no trace of such an aura here. Could it have been an origin core cultivator? A glamorous woman narrowed her eyes as she observed the surrounding marks, offering a keen analysis. I'm afraid it wasn't an ordinary origin core. The wounds look like blade strikes, but they are actually executed with sword techniques. Could it be that someone from Profound Talisman Mountain did this intentionally? The fake monk waved his hand in dismissal. There are countless sword users in this world behind them. The true monk listened with burning rage, silently cursing the old ghost of Profound Talisman Mountain for being despicable enough to impersonate him. The real and fake monks began a fierce war of words. One barked, You're the one from Profound Talisman Mountain. The other was not to be outdone, retorting with a sharp tongue. As the two argued incessantly, others quickly searched every corner of the sect, overturning every corpse and digging up every stone, yet they found no sign of the purple bamboo constitution. Doubt began to grow. Could the news be fake? Just as they hit a stalemate, the woman keenly sensed a slight movement. She reached out and snatched a small wriggling creature. Opening her palm, she revealed a spirit insect emitting a faint purple glow, her pupils shrinking as she cried out in shock, A purple bamboo insect? The crowd erupted in exclamations. What? The fake monk leaned in, nodding with an air of profound wisdom to maintain his scholarly facade. Where there are purple bamboo insects, there must be a purple bamboo constitution in residence. It seems a purple bamboo constitution certainly existed here. Greed was instantly ignited in everyone's eyes. Their hearts screamed frantically. Knowing this was a supreme treasure that could help a divine infant powerhouse touch the otherwise unreachable gates of the purple mansion, their resolve to seize the treasure burned, and they whispered oaths to themselves. With this I can break through, I must find it. The search for bodies grew even more frantic until a sudden scream rang out. Wait a minute, there's a body missing here. The fake monk performed a quick calculation, his expression turning solemn. Origin core true person Yu Linglong, everyone else is here. But she is the only one missing. Could she be the purple bamboo constitution? Beside him an old man gave a cold snort, his voice full of resentment. HMPH, and why was this news leaked? Are they playing us for fools? Just then, another person discovered the mangled remains of the Black Mountain Sect Master and shouted urgently, That's the Black Mountain Sect Master. The crowd charged forward like flies drawn to honey, fighting to claim the remains. They shoved and tore at each other, their shouts blending into a chaotic mess. You rogue monk, how dare you? Some grabbed an arm while others tugged a leg. No one was willing to let go of this treasure corpse. No one would yield in the fierce struggle. Let go. You let go first. The competition grew too heated, and the already battered body of the Black Wind Taoist instantly tore apart, shredded into fragments. Only then did the crowd stare with wide eyes, shouting in frustration, This isn't a purple bamboo constitution. Why were you fighting me for it? The glamorous woman clicked her tongue and sighed, shaking her head as she explained, It truly isn't a purple bamboo constitution, but rather the lower tier blue bamboo constitution. By grinding this corpse into ash to nourish spiritual medicines, one can grow blue splendor fruit, which helps a cultivator increase their cultivation in the divine infant stage. What a pity it was torn into blue bamboo fragments. She shook her head slightly, piecing together a startling truth. I didn't expect the Black Mountain Sect Master to be Yu Linglong's father. Luckily it was discovered early. Otherwise within 200 years the black chicken old demon would have surely entered the purple mansion. The old man broke into a cold sweat, secretly feeling relieved that if that had happened, the great Shang kingdom would have surely been plunged into a bloodbath of shifting dynasties. However, their greed had not been extinguished. The crowd began to trade cold mocks again, secretly competing. Perhaps there are other fragments nearby. I can't let others have them, without a word of farewell. Each person dashed off in a different direction, frantically excavating the ruins of the Black Mountain Sect for a glimmer of hope. While various heroes were bashing each other's heads in over the rumors, the instigator, Qi Yuan, was lounging comfortably in his small room. He lazily pulled out his entertainment jade slip and muttered softly, "Finally I can play games in peace." The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the window, Qi Yuan was still fast asleep, drool wetting his pillow. This tranquility was soon shattered by Zhang Lingsu's crisp yet urgent voice from outside. "Eldest senior brother, when did you get back?" Jarred awake, Qi Yuan sat up abruptly. He pushed the door open listlessly, yawning as he complained. "Came back last night. Junior sister, how did you know I was back? Don't tell me you've been spying on me while I sleep." Zhang Lingsu's face turned bright red with embarrassment and she stomped her foot in anger. "Who would want to watch you sleep?" She then held up Qi Yuan's kitchen cleaver, waving it in front of him as she said with a resentful tone, "Senior brother, I heard a noise outside early this morning and thought we had a thief, but when I ran out to check I found your kitchen cleaver rummaging through my trash can." At the mention of trash rummaging, an image of a divine weapon diving headfirst into leftovers flashed through Qi Yuan's mind. His mouth fell open, unable to believe his ears. Rummaging through the trash? A surge of anger hit him as he glared at the ignorant cleaver, silently cursing, "I spent so many spirit stones and treasures to upgrade your hardness, and you use it to dig through trash? Have you no ambition?" The cleaver seemed to sense the killing intent and curled up, trembling as it hid behind the hem of Zhang Lingsu's robe like a scolded child. Seeing the tense atmosphere, Zhang Lingsu quickly changed the subject, asking with concern, "Eldest senior brother, didn't you go to achieve Foundation establishment? Did you succeed?" Qi Yuan let out a long sigh, dejectedly admitting defeat. "I failed." He clicked his tongue in regret, mourning the divine item. 2 first-grade Foundation establishment items wasted. Foundation establishment is truly difficult. Zhang Lingsu gasped, her mind racing. She knew the cruel laws of the cultivation world. The higher the grade of the spiritual item, the greater the resistance at the bottleneck. If a person with ordinary talent forcibly tried to consume a top-grade item, they would experience chi deviation at best and soul dissipation at worst. The eternal truth was suitability is best. Having reached this conclusion, she spoke up to comfort her worried senior brother. "Eldest senior brother, don't force it. The Foundation establishment item that suits you is the true way. Although the yellow splendor fruit is a first-grade item, it is merely that." Hearing this, Qi Yuan's eyes instantly lit up like torches, and he announced a luxurious ambition with soaring spirit. "You're right, the yellow splendor fruit doesn't suit me. I want to achieve Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment." Zhang Lingsu was left completely speechless. She cast a look of secret disdain, thinking that having the talent for Earth Pulse Foundation establishment was already a blessing from one's ancestors. How could this trash senior brother dare to dream of the legendary Heavenly Tao realm? She understood that to touch the celestial pulse aura, a cultivator had to reach the yin soul or even yang soul stage and nurture a powerful primordial spirit. Not once in dozens of generations of his ancestors had a yin soul or yang soul powerhouse appeared. Where did he get the confidence to fantasize? Despite this, she forced a smile and considerately pressed a bottle of precious pills into his hand. "Eldest senior brother, these are stability pills, which can help you regulate your spiritual energy. You just failed Foundation establishment and your energy is unstable. You need to take one to prepare for your next attempt." She quickly downplayed the price. It's not expensive. It's just a local specialty from my home, worth only a few spirit stones." The moment Qi Yuan took the pill bottle, the system flashed, providing detailed information. Seeing that the analysis showed the medicinal effect was equivalent to 10 high-grade spirit stones, Qi Yuan's eyes widened. He swallowed hard, calculating the terrifying exchange rate between high-grade and low-grade spirit stones, silently marveling at the generosity of this wealthy heiress. Thinking back to the cleaver's strange behavior, he cursed inwardly at the unfairness. "A sugar mommy, she's too rich. It seems you, this kitchen cleaver, actually have an eye for talent. Is there really that much good stuff in her trash can?" A sense of excitement surged. Qi Yuan patted his chest, promising loudly to look out for her. "Junior sister, I appreciate the sentiment. From now on, if anyone tries to cut you, your senior brother will block the blade for you." Zhang Lingsu let out a PFFT of laughter, waving away his excessive enthusiasm. "Eldest senior brother, you should worry about protecting yourself first. I don't want to see you get hurt." Suddenly remembering a major event that had shocked the cultivation world, her expression grew solemn. "It's a good thing you're back. Yesterday the Black Mountain Sect was wiped out. I'm afraid the entire Great Shang Kingdom is going to fall into chaos." Qi Yuan instantly went into actor mode, his eyes bulging and his mouth hanging open in a look of extreme surprise. "What? The Black Mountain Sect was wiped out? Who was the killer? Did they use a blade or a sword?" His strange focus made Zhang Lingsu frown in confusion. "Eldest senior brother, your focus is truly bizarre," she made a casual joke. The Black Mountain Sect was exterminated. Don't tell me you were the one who did it. These words were like a needle striking Qi Yuan's weak spot, making him freeze instantly as cold sweat poured down. He waved his hands frantically, stuttering his denial. It wasn't me, it really wasn't me. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to play games. Bye. With that he bolted, scurrying back into his room and slamming the door shut with a bang. Zhang Lingzhu stood in a daze watching his odd fleeing back with a giant question mark in her mind. Eldest senior brother's reaction is far too strange. Returning to her own room, she pulled out the Heaven-Earth mirror, a high-level treasure capable of seeing through one's cultivation level. Recalling her observation of Qi Yuan just now, she murmured to herself in comfort, "He's only at the great circle of Qi refining. There shouldn't be any problem, right?" Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Empress Jinli of the Nanqing Kingdom was lounging on her comfortable dragon bed. Her slender fingers moved quickly as she messaged Qi Yuan, "Great circle of Qi refining. Nanqing's current crisis is all my fault. I'm afraid I'm not suited to be an empress." Before she could spiral into depression, Qi Yuan's domineering reply instantly popped up. "If we go by that standard, then no one in this world is suited to be an empress." He followed it with a playful tongue-poking emoji. Jinli's mood brightened instantly, a sweet smile curling on her lips as she thought shyly, this guy, immersed in the warm feeling, she hesitantly sent her hopes for the future. "Once the situation in Nanqing stabilizes, I'll leave. What do you think?" Qi Yuan's reply was even more uninhibited. "What's the fun in being an empress? Just leave once the quest is done. When the time comes, I'll take you on a mob-grinding frenzy and lead you to ascension." Jinli's face turned red as a ripe fruit, her heart racing like a panicked fawn. She covered her face bashfully, her thoughts drifting far away. Does he want to take me away to fly far and high? Wouldn't that mean, heavens, I'm going to have insomnia again tonight? Qi Yuan's casual words had unintentionally planted a sweet dreamlike seed in the young woman's heart. She couldn't help but let outbursts of silly giggles. Hee hee. Meanwhile, in the Raiment Forbidden Land area filled with an eerie aura, Qi Yuan brandished his longsword and roared, "When the time comes, I'll definitely show off my skills in front of her and let her see my pro-level moves." Before him, a group of bizarre Raiment demons trembled beneath his lethal sword edge. A bloodthirsty, wicked smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "It's hunting time again." He transformed into a whirlwind of death, charging into the pack of monsters to harvest them to his heart's content. Suddenly, his footsteps came to a halt as he sensed something was wrong. A bloody garment was suspended in midair. Qi Yuan frowned, his mind quickly analyzing the situation. "I didn't kill this Raiment demon. Are there other people here, or is it a hostile NPC? Scanning the surrounding corpses strewn everywhere, a chill ran up his spine to the top of his head. He reached a tense conclusion. That's a lot of kills. This guy is strong, very dangerous. Without hesitation, he immediately activated his stealth skill, merging into the dark space as he held his breath, meticulously searching every blade of grass and tree. For a long time, the mysterious figure remained unseen. He clicked his tongue in self-comfort. Strange, there's no one nearby. Was I just scaring myself? Whatever, I'll dig a hole and bury myself first to ride out the storm. No sooner said than done. He brandished his precious sword and worked hard at digging. In a moment, a deep pit was finished. He jumped into the hole with a thud, wiping cold sweat from his forehead and letting out a sigh of relief. Phew, finally a sense of safety. But before the word safety could fully land, a hideous ghost head with hollow eye sockets suddenly peeked down, staring fixedly at him from the edge of the pit. Qi Yuan was scared out of his wits, his heart leaping into his throat, letting out an earth-shattering scream in his mind. Holy crap, what kind of ghost thing is this? In this moment of life and death, a brilliant golden light erupted from within Qi Yuan, forcibly boosting his strength fivefold. His entire body radiated the terrifying pressure belonging to a divine infant powerhouse. He gripped his sword hilt and unleashed a world-shaking beam of sword light toward the demon, accompanied by a thunderous roar. Kill! A terrifying explosion instantly overturned the ground, dust and smoke blotting out everything. When the haze cleared, Qi Yuan stood frozen in place, his eyes wide. That disgusting monster stood there completely unharmed. Only then did its true form fully manifest, a monster wrapped entirely in filthy white bandages, radiating a suffocating stench. The system's red light flashed frantically. Area Lord level, stinking Raiment Monster Emperor. Level 95. Qi Yuan felt his scalp go numb, cursing the fact that this power gap was too absurd. A major boss, I'm only level 88, how can I fight this? Level 95 is an entire major realm higher. The monster tilted its chin arrogantly and gave a contemptuous snap of its fingers. Countless blood-red threads erupted from its body. They wove into a massive scarlet web that enveloped the entire space. The cold blood-red threads tightly coiled around Qi Yuan's limbs, constricting his internal organs. He stumbled, feeling dizzy and realizing he was in a fatal crisis. Not good. This aura is controlling my body. With every breath, his strength and speed were dropping catastrophically. He grit his teeth and analyzed the situation calmly. If this continued, the power gap between them would only grow wider. He summoned every ounce of strength for a roar, unleashing the heaven-slaying draw to shred the blood-red web in search of a lifeline. With a roll, he escaped the monster's control. He fled for his life, his mind racing with the realization of the extreme danger he was in. Dangerous? This guy is beyond dangerous. As long as I can see a health bar, I can kill it, but for now I'd better slip away. I simply can't win this. The boss followed leisurely, step by step, its relaxed gait resembling a cat playing with a mouse. Qi Yuan stole a glance back, feeling a mix of shock and relief. It doesn't seem to be in a hurry to catch up. He plunged into the dense forest, sprinting for his life and crossing countless ridges. It wasn't until his legs gave out that he dared to stop, drenched in sweat as if he had just stepped out of a bath. He wiped his face, huffing and puffing as he gasped for air. Phew, finally shook it off. That's enough for today. I'll log off and rest for a bit. This game is way too intense. As he calmed down and took in his surroundings, a chill ran up his spine to the crown of his head, and he let out a gasp of alarm. Under the dim moonlight he was met with the sight of dense, uneven burial mounds. Feeling the creeping cold, he muttered to himself, "How did I end up in a mass grave?" Adhering to the philosophy that caution is the parent of safety, he bowed to the four directions, chanting a prayer for the deceased. "Gentlemen, I'm just borrowing this precious land for a moment. No offense intended, no offense intended. We'll be neighbors for one night." He moved nimbly, stripping off his equipment and repeating his old trick of digging a hole to hide. Qi Yuan lay obediently underground, quite satisfied with this temporary sanctuary. "This will do." Just as he was half asleep and preparing to log off, his hand accidentally brushed against something cold and slimy. He shuddered violently, cold sweat breaking out instantly as his mind deduced a hair-raising conclusion. "Hiss, it feels slippery. Did I dig right into my neighbor? Whatever, I'll log off and sleep first. I need to get my head straight." The log-off command activated, and his consciousness began to blur. Yet at that very moment a patch of eerie red light flickered deep within the burial mounds. Half an hour after Qi Yuan went offline, right where the pit was located, a wisp of deathly pale smoke rose in a twisting spiral. Within the smoke a wedding sedan, dripping blood red and garishly decorated, approached, harried by four headless monsters. The urgent, mournful notes of wedding music echoed through the silent night. The shadow of the sedan grew distant, and as the desolate drumbeats of the third watch sounded, two empty blood-red bridal sleeves could be seen fluttering in the wind. Qi Yuan logged back in. As soon as he opened his eyes, the sheer luxury before him struck his vision with full force. Red silk was everywhere and candle shadows flickered. This was clearly a grand wedding night, yet it exuded an unspeakable eeriness. Qi Yuan found himself sitting on the wedding bed as the groom, with a bride huddled beside him, radiating a strange aura of both shyness and joy. Qi Yuan's mind was in a whirl of terror. A wedding night? Wasn't I lying in a mass grave? What's going on? How did I get married for no reason? Turning his head to scrutinize his wife, he nearly fainted on the spot. The woman had no facial features, and her arms and legs were terrifyingly short. Even her feet were nowhere to be found. Qi Yuan muttered in terror, "What kind of ghost is this? A wedding dress wraith? Am I being taken advantage of by a monster?" Driven by instinct, he hurriedly pushed the bride away, rejecting her decisively. "I really want to split you in half with one strike and treat you as a doorstep experience pack." After being coldly rejected, the bride's invisible heart seemed to shatter, and her entire body trembled violently with grievance. Qi Yuan frowned, silently criticizing the aesthetics of the monsters in this place. How is it that the monsters here are all trying to outdo each other and being freaks? He noticed a few slender red threads emerging from the wedding dress wraith's empty sleeves. These red threads gently caressed him before burrowing into his body, instantly neutralizing the weakened state previously caused by the stinking Raiment monster emperor. Qi Yuan froze, his attitude shifting instantly as he asked gently, "Are you helping me clear the influence of the monster emperor?" He secretly marveled at the miraculous effect of the red threads, recalling the days spent being tortured by that filthy blood energy. That blood energy was incredibly difficult to deal with. It was just reducing all my stats and even trying to seize control of my body. With this wedding dress wraith here, she actually cleared it for me? She seemed different from the other wedding dress wraiths, showing signs of emerging intelligence. Qi Yuan felt curious and lowered his voice to probe her background. "Who are you? What's your name?" After waiting for a long time without a response, he sighed and talked to himself. "No name, huh? Well, let me give you one." Names flashed through his mind. Little Red, Little Monster. After thinking it over, he slapped his thigh and settled on the most affectionate title. "Xiao Jia. From now on I'll call you Xiao Jia." Hearing this name, the wedding dress wraith began to vibrate with wild joy. Her entire form turned red as a ripe tomato, showing extreme satisfaction. Suddenly, she leaned over to pick up a worn piece of wood and handed it solemnly to Qi Yuan. On it were crookedly carved characters, "Husband." Qi Yuan was petrified on the spot, cold sweat pouring down like rain as he screamed in despair in his heart. "Is she calling me? She actually thinks I'm her husband?" Qi Yuan's gaze swept over the wedding dress wraith's form, and he couldn't help but sigh, secretly evaluating her. "I didn't expect a wedding dress to have such an outstanding figure. Too bad Xiao Jia has no face or nose, no hands or feet. She can't be a wife." Sensing Qi Yuan's meaningful scrutiny, Xiao Jia trembled slightly, a trace of confusion rising in her empty heart. Qi Yuan rubbed his chin, continuing his worldly internal conflict. "They say brothers are like hands and feet while women are like clothes, but you can't actually be a piece of clothing. What would our married life be like in the future?" The more he thought, the more he felt it was a dead end. So he let out a long sigh and decisively waved a hand to reject this absurd marriage. "No way. We haven't even registered at the Civil Affairs Bureau. This doesn't count." Hearing this cold pronouncement, Xiao Jia shook her head frantically in panic, the hanging red silk looking as desolate as if it were weeping. Seeing the bride's intense resistance, Qi Yuan's eyes widened as he muttered, "This fellow actually has the nerve to look unhappy." Just then a line of text popped up coldly on the system panel, sealing his fate. "Xiao Jia, the bride you brought home in an 8-man sedan chair." Qi Yuan jumped up, scratching his head in lamentation. "What kind of mess is this? She's really my wife?" Knowing he couldn't defy the system's arrangement, he had no choice but to accept his fate. He sighed helplessly in compromise, pointing at the wooden board in Xiao Jia's hand and complaining, "Since you can communicate with wooden signs, at least prepare a few more to introduce yourself clearly." As soon as he finished, Xiao Jia reached into the void with her sleeve and pulled out a thick stack of cards. Each card was engraved with vivid illustrations, ranging from the bride and groom walking side by side to various emotions. Most striking of all was a pattern depicting the couple in a passionate embrace inside a coffin. Qi Yuan's eyes went round as he couldn't suppress his curiosity, flipping through Xiao Jia's sleeves frantically. He muttered in disbelief, "Holy crap, where did these cards come from?" Startled by the man's sudden touch, Xiao Jia pulled back her hand, her entire fabric body trembling incessantly, pitching forward as if she were drunk. Above the collar a pink glow spread out like a shy young girl being held by her lover for the first time. Looking at his bride's useless state, Qi Yuan shook his head in disappointment and said coldly, "This wife doesn't look useful at all. Sai, let's get a divorce. The feelings are broken. I demand a divorce." He cursed himself for being stuck with a burden, eager to split before the wedding was even finished. Hearing the word divorce, Xiao Jia jumped up in a panic. Seeing Qi Yuan about to turn and leave, she hurriedly shot out red silk to tightly bind his sleeve, begging him to stay. Qi Yuan stopped, frowning in confusion. "What's the point?" As soon as he spoke, his pupils shrank and he clutched his head as his face contorted from a sudden surge of pain in his mind. After a long while the pain gradually subsided. He wiped away his cold sweat and looked at Xiao Jia with suspicion, asking in shock, "You're saying you can help me?" Xiao Jia nodded repeatedly in excitement, her swaying red silk seemingly answering for her. "That's right." In an instant, Xiao Jia's thin form erupted with brilliant light, and a dazzling blood-red aura surged out like a tide, forming an eerie halo. Qi Yuan's eyes widened, holding his breath as he witnessed this phenomenon. Suddenly, that blood aura charged at him like a dragon emerging from the sea, merging completely into his body. In the blink of an eye, a suit of majestic crimson battle armor enveloped Qi Yuan's entire body. He clenched his fist, feeling the infinite power surging through his muscles, and thought excitedly, "I'm full of power. It seems I've become stronger again." He looked down and touched his chest, his fingertips brushing against a newly appeared strange tattoo, and murmured a guess. "Is this Xiao Jia's true form, this tattoo?" Simultaneously, the system interface jumped frantically, his level leaping to 93. Qi Yuan was stunned, wild joy welling up in his heart. Level 93, merging with Xiao Jia, directly bumped me up 5 levels. His mouth curled into a calculated, wicked smile. This way, the difficulty of leveling up and grinding mobs would be greatly reduced. And next time I run into that stinking Raiment monster emperor, I won't have to run for my life. I'll have the strength to duel him one-on-one, maybe even take him out directly. The surprises weren't over. The system followed up with information on new skills. The ultimate skill, Comrade in Arms, allowed him to merge into one with Xiao Jia, seizing her formidable powers. The minor skill, Armor Rend, carried a piercing attribute, making every one of his attacks a bane to any armor. Qi Yuan took a deep breath, marveling at the logic of this leveling system. "I even got 2 extra skills. For every 30 levels I get an ultimate. For every 10 levels he got a minor skill." Seeing Xiao Jia shed her initially timid, daughterly demeanor, Qi Yuan vaguely felt an invisible deep connection established between them. He cleared his throat twice to break the awkward atmosphere, haggling, "Ahem, it's a deal then. No divorce, all right? Once I clear this map I'll have to leave and you might have to stay here alone." Hearing about the separation, Xiao Jia's red silk immediately drooped, and she radiated an aura of extreme sadness and loneliness. Seeing his little wife's grievance, Qi Yuan quickly patted her head in comfort. All right. Let's just call this the mediation period before the divorce." Eager to test his new power, he shouted, "Fusion," at the command. Xiao Jia immediately transformed into thousands of red threads, obediently weaving into and vanishing within Qi Yuan's body. The tattoo on his chest flickered with a majestic light, and he donned the heroic husband-wife battle armor. "Excellent," he stretched, revealing an incredibly proud smile. "Ho, so using a skill to fuse even has special effects. Too cool, as expected of me, Qi Yuan." He warmed up his limbs while evaluating the power of this combat form. If Xiao Jia's active possession focused on defense and protection, then the Comrade in Arms fusion state he initiated was more geared toward offense, charging into those Raiment mobs in this armor. Who could stop me besides that Forbidden Land overlord? Just as his momentum was peaking, the system dropped a bombshell. "You have obtained 1-3 control over the Raiment Forbidden Land." Qi Yuan was startled, stammering a question to himself. Is this Xiao Jia's authority? Is Xiao Jia also one of the big bosses of the Raiment Forbidden Land? Since she could share her authority with him, he probably wouldn't have to kill her in the future, right? Calculating the clear route, he identified his ultimate goal. To obtain the Heavenly Dao fragments and achieve Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment, he had to defeat that Raiment Forbidden Land overlord. In other words, he had to fully beat this game. "It seems I need to collect all the authority." Night fell, and darkness swallowed everything as a heavy mist carrying a piercing chill shrouded the desolate graveyard. Clad in blood armor and bolstered by Xiao Jia, Qi Yuan strode out of his hiding pit. The red light from the armor tore through the mist, reflecting on the cold tombstones. Relying on the shared authority, his mind automatically loaded a vast amount of top-secret intelligence regarding the Raiment Forbidden Land. He touched a moss-covered stone monument, thinking to himself, "Thanks to Xiao Jia's shared permissions, I've mastered a lot of intel. Right beneath this mass grave lies an underground palace, the resting place of successive ancient emperors of the Raiment Forbidden Land." He leapt without hesitation, landing steadily at the bottom of the deep tomb. Surveying this dark space, everything proceeded with unusual smoothness, which surprised him. No traps and no obstacles. He quickly found a reasonable explanation. "I guess because Xiao Jia is attached to me, this place opened its doors to welcome me." He tapped the solid brick wall, muttering in evaluation. Being able to build an underground palace like this shows these Raiment demons have some brains. But another series of questions regarding the logic of these monsters' existence popped into his head. But why were all the Raiment demons I encountered bloodthirsty, mindless lunatics? Except for Xiao Jia. Considering they're both bosses of the Raiment Forbidden Land, why did that overlord go mad while Xiao Jia is perfectly fine? Could it be because Xiao Jia hasn't fallen yet? And what on earth was this so-called falling? As he continued deeper into the corridor, an ancient wonder that left Qi Yuan breathless unfolded before him. Under the dim light of the blood armor, thousands of terracotta soldiers stood in majestic formation, stretching as far as the eye could see. His eyes widened, and he blurted out in extreme shock, "Holy crap, did I accidentally stumble into the terracotta army of the first emperor?" Passing through the infantry square, his gaze was drawn to another massive stone stele engraved with seal script. The ancient characters spoke of a buried, glorious history. Divine Court of 4 Divisions, Raiment Division's bride princess, the celestial wife who presides over Divine Court affairs, gathering the battle raiments of the world to strengthen the majesty of the Divine Court, striking terror into the hearts of all demons, her name shaking the universe. The text continued to heroically record past achievements. Back then, the Sword God established the Divine Court to rule the 4 divisions, with his power shaking the world and peace reigning within the seas. Among them, the Raiment Division was the most prominent of the 4, specializing in slaughter and war. The Raiment Division's army once leveled 100,000 mountains, swept clean the endless plains, and forced the demon race to tuck their tails and flee back to the frozen barrens. And the commander standing at the peak of the murderous Raiment Division was none other than the bride empress, the celestial god's wife. After reading this legend, Qi Yuan stroked his chin and began to deduce, piecing together the scattered fragments. Could Xiao Jia be related to this divine raiment goddess? The ancient records on the stone stele continued to describe the collapse of an invincible empire. The Divine Court guarded the 5 lakes, 4 seas, and the 8 desolations, maintaining world peace for centuries and reaching a state of peerless invincibility. But suddenly one day, an extra-dimensional enemy invaded the moon-watching continent. The Lord of the Divine Court, that powerful celestial god, led his army to meet the foe and never returned. Consequently, the 4 divisions gradually fell into decline, and this silent terracotta army before his eyes was precisely the last army of the Raiment Division. They were buried in this underground palace, waiting for the day they would awaken to continue fighting for the celestial god and for the world. Having grasped the ins and outs of the plot, Qi Yuan clapped his hands suddenly and muttered to himself excitedly, "So this is the plot of the game. Presumably the 4 major forbidden lands are the 4 divisions of the ancient Divine Court. So is my quest objective to defeat the extra-dimensional enemies, protect the world, and then the heavenly Tao will grant me a reward?" A satisfied smile curled at the corners of his mouth, radiating the aura of a savior hero. He ambitiously announced his grand mission. "Since I've already donned this imperial-grade armor, I must be the great hero who saves the world. For the sake of Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, I'm going all in." No sooner said than done. He carefully set his precious sword aside, sat cross-legged on the cold stone steps, and hurriedly pulled out his jade slip to send a message. He had to share today's intelligence with Jinli. Perhaps she had some information on her end that could corroborate this. Meanwhile, in the imperial study of the Nanqing Kingdom, Empress Jinli was forcing herself to process a mountain of memorials. Exhausted, she tossed her brush onto the desk, reached out to rub her temples, and let out a long sigh. Suddenly, the transmission jade pendant at her waist erupted with a dazzling light, causing her heart to skip a beat. She hurriedly grabbed the jade pendant, knowing it must be a message from that nuisance Qi Yuan. The first line of text caught her eye. "Jinli, I have a piece of good news and a piece of bad news to tell you. Which one do you want to hear first?" The exhaustion on her face vanished instantly, replaced by an irrepressible sense of anticipation. She suppressed a secret smile, thinking that Qi Yuan had finally sent a letter. She quickly transmitted back, "Let's hear the good news first." On the other end, Qi Yuan casually dropped a bombshell. "The good news is that I'm married." The smile on Jinli's lips froze instantly. The newly sprouted bud of affection withered in an instant, and it felt as if the entire sky had collapsed. She stood frozen like a wooden chicken, unable to believe the cold words before her eyes. Just as her heart was churning with waves of emotion, Qi Yuan's next message arrived just in time to save the situation. The bad news is my bride is a wedding dress. After listening to Qi Yuan's rambling account of this absurd sequence of events, the heavy stone on Jinli's chest finally fell away. She let out a long sigh of relief, exclaiming with a mix of laughter and tears, "What kind of monster is this? Why would it go looking for someone to marry as a bride?" Qi Yuan continued to boast about his record of grinding mobs with his newly acquired wife. "With Xiao Jia, the speed of my mob grinding will surely soar. I'll be able to clear this Raiment forbidden land very soon." Then he considerately asked about the situation of her dynasty. "How are things on your end? Is the situation stable?" At the mention of state affairs, Jinli's expression dimmed again. She bitterly saw through the stalemate she was trapped in. Among the 6 ministries of the court, except for the great sage Kong Qi of the Ministry of Rights, everyone else had long since become Sima Yan's pawns, and the only military forces I can currently mobilize are the imperial rank powerhouse Ant Qin and a mere 2,000 imperial guards. Although the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land can help everyone improve their strength, I still need more time and I can't send too many people in. Otherwise, any slight mishap would alert Sima Yan. Facing the power of the influential minister, she let out a heavy sigh of helplessness. The power she could mobilize was simply too meager. On his end, Qi Yuan nodded and noted her previous help while ambitiously promising to slaughter in all directions. "The intelligence on the Raiment Forbidden Land you gave me last time helped a lot. It's a pity I can't leave the Forbidden Land right now, otherwise I'd take my blade and chop off Sima Yan's head to solve your troubles." He glanced at the majestic terracotta army, an ambition to dominate the world sprouting in his heart. "When I can fully control the Raiment Forbidden Land, I assume this army of the Raiment division will also submit to me. Although individual strength might not be top tier, if they form a regular army it should be enough to sweep through the world, right?" The scene shifts back to the Prime Minister's estate in the Nanqing Kingdom. Sima Yan was leaning lazily against an exquisitely carved chair, his pudgy fingers rhythmically fiddling with a string of green jade beads. Suddenly, the eldest son of the family, Sima Ryu, stood up abruptly, his face full of rage as he barked impatiently, "Father, why don't we just rebel? Waiting like this is utterly boring." Sima Yan lifted his chin, coldly issuing a dismissal. "You may leave. I have important matters to discuss with your Uncle Wen." Understanding his father's meaning, Sima Ryu forced down his resentment, bowing respectfully to accept the order. "Yes," he turned indignantly and stomped out of the hall with heavy steps. Once his son's silhouette had completely vanished, Sima Yan turned toward the guest beside him and asked in a low voice full of conspiracy, "Brother Wen, have you discovered the reason for Madame Qin's sudden breakthrough? Is there someone behind Jinli supporting her to target me, or to target the Tianyan sacred sect?" The man addressed as Brother Wen cupped his hand slightly, calmly reporting the results of his investigation. According to internal sources, this matter might be related to a man named Qi Yuan. This man was Wen Zhongyang, an imperial rank powerhouse originating from the Tianyan sacred sect and one of Sima Yan's most solid backers. He specialized in sinister curse arts. Years ago it was he who used a forbidden art to defeat the late emperor, despite the late emperor being protected by the Tianyan imperial seal. Wen Zhongyang twitched the corner of his mouth, revealing a royal secret. Jinli once took a treasure named the Linglong imperial seal from the treasury. It was precisely this item that allowed her to contact that person. Old Madame Qin's ability to break through to the imperial rank is precisely due to that person's help. Sima Yan stroked his beard, a flash of malice in his eyes, secretly pleased that the extensive intelligence network planted by the Tianyan sacred sect had proven effective. There must be a layout within the Tianyan sacred sect. They likely used spies to discover these movements of Jinli. He pondered as he assessed the political situation. The Tianyan sacred sect was originally the #1 sect of the human race, its prestige spreading across over a dozen countries. Located in the frozen far north, this sacred land bore the mission of suppressing the human race's providence and resisting the ancestral court of the great demons. Previously, the sacred sect had always held itself aloft, but recently they have reached out to manipulate secular imperial power, and Sima Yan is a capable pawn in their hands. He frowned, pondering the mastermind behind Jinli, wondering which faction dared to openly provoke the sacred sect. To be an enemy of the sacred sect and also be able to help Madame Qin level up, could it be some hidden top-tier powerhouse? Or perhaps the demon race, just like that person. He turned to Wen Zhongyang and asked tentatively, could it be the demon race? Wen Zhongyang waved a hand, a cold, killing intent erupting in his eyes. Regardless of who it is, anyone who dares to disrupt the Prime Minister's layout, anyone who dares to disrupt the sacred sect's schemes, even if he were a supreme emperor, is surely doomed. Hearing this arrogant tone, Sima Yan's eyes widened in surprise, and he hurriedly inquired, "Oh, Brother Wen already has a countermeasure?" Wen Zhongyang smiled sinisterly. Turning over his palm to reveal a jade slip emanating a terrifying spiritual aura, he confidently pronounced Qi Yuan's death sentence. "Since we know his name, that is enough to curse him to death. This item is named the Imperial Ruler, a treasure personally bestowed by the Tianyan Sacred Master containing the Sacred Master's supreme cultivation. I shall use this item to cast a curse. Even a supreme emperor cannot escape death." He nodded to indicate the preparation for the execution. "Prime Minister, please wait a moment. Once I find the proper jade vessels, I shall immediately perform the ritual to curse him to death. Sima Yan hurriedly stood up, bowing in complete prostration. Then I shall trouble you, master. In the distant far north atop the towering Tianyin sacred mountain, a figure staggered out of a bustling tavern. The person stretched to loosen their muscles, looking up at the sky with a lewd smile. A journey of dust and toil, but how can a journey of dust compare to a beauty? This rogue-like man was unexpectedly the lofty Tianyin sacred master himself. He threw his head back and laughed wildly, enjoying the rare freedom. 3,000 years, I can finally leave the Tianyin sacred mountain for 300 miles. Not bad, truly not bad. Not many knew the world-shaking secret of this sacred master's origins. 3,000 years ago, he was merely a green-haired turtle on a rocky mountain. By a stroke of luck, he caught a drop of a great powerhouse's longevity blood, thereby opening his spiritual intelligence and transforming into a human. He possessed a 10,000-year lifespan and a vast treasury of secret arts, but the price was being eternally confined within the range of the Tianyin mountain. Relying on incredible patience, he cultivated bitterly in the mountain for thousands of years, even with bottom-tier talent. It took him 500 years to climb to the imperial rank, 1,500 years to touch the supreme emperor level, and only in the last 20 years did he grope his way into the heaven domain realm. To compensate for his garbage talent, his fighting style was exceptionally low-class, specializing in using verbal abuse to humiliate enemies until they spat blood, then bringing prostitutes to spend the night directly on the opponent's grave for entertainment. He even cruelly forced his enemies' descendants into brothels to be tortured at will, satisfying his perverted pleasure. Haha, delightful, truly delightful. Relying on sinister cunning and accumulated strength, he exploited loopholes to establish the Tianyin sacred sect and firmly sat as the sacred master. The subordinate elders were played like fiddles by him, completely unaware that the successive generations of sacred masters taking power were actually just puppet stand-ins he personally controlled. While the Tianyin sacred master was rampaging through the streets, he was dreaming of domination, feeling proud of his poisonous schemes. As expected, I was too timid before to trigger the war between humans and demons. I wasted thousands of years, gathering the blood energy of all humanity after death just to help me step into the supreme emperor level. The progress was too slow. Like I am now, I must seize the human race's national providence and the demon race's bloodline, then take them all for sacrifice. That is the true path. He outlined a vision of ascending to the pinnacle of power through the slaughter of living beings. Wait another 60 years. Once I have dived deep into the moon-watching continent, I shall absorb the national providence of all countries and sacrifice thousands of lives. At that time I shall be like a koi jumping over the dragon gate, a turtle transforming into a Xuanwu, the true lord of the moon-watching continent. In his excitement, he casually hummed those desolate and mocking lyrics. I too have bowed and scraped before the powerful, and a mere few words have brought about disaster. Even if your talent is peerless and eternal, you shall eventually turn to dust and become a laughingstock. The eternal green undying turtle, look to the present for the late bloomer. That sharp, disaster-like singing caused passers-by to frown repeatedly, pointing and whispering, "There's no rhythm to this song at all. What on earth is this person singing?" Another person mocked in defense of this madness. What, is a blind man not allowed to compose poetry? The Tianyin sacred master's face darkened as he suppressed his rage, calculating the time to enter seclusion and wait for the opportunity. In the next 60 years, the final 60 years, I shall hide in a coffin to cultivate, letting a fake identity handle the overall situation, and I shall never show my face for anything. He looked around and stopped before a luxurious carpenter's shop, his mood soaring to the clouds again. While I'm still outside, I'd better hurry and pick out a few new coffins. Suddenly a black crow flew overhead, letting out a series of mournful cries, caw caw caw. What a buzzkill! He casually snapped his fingers and barked coldly. Annoying! That innocent crow instantly exploded into a puddle of black blood in midair. But immediately following that, a bone-chilling cold instantly spread through his spine. He turned pale with fright, his heart racing violently. Intuition told him that the god of death was right beside him. This sudden premonition made him turn around frantically to look everywhere, becoming paranoid. Something extremely terrifying. No more opera, I have to go home and hide. He didn't dare delay for half a second, bolting toward the direction of the sacred mountain. Back at the Prime Minister's estate in the Nanqing Kingdom, in a dark secret room, a bonfire was burning fiercely. Wen Zhongyang was frantically performing his ritual, waving his hands to unleash a sinister curse art. Sima Yan stood to the side with arms crossed, holding his breath and staring intently at every movement. Suddenly Wen Zhongyang's eyes bulged, the veins on his forehead popping as he roared the curse that would seal Qi Yuan's life. 10,000 miles to slay the form, the spirit departs with calamity, execute. As his arm swung toward the sky, that eerie flame also surged violently, spiraling into a pillar of fire that shot into the clouds. Sima Yan took an anxious step forward, hurriedly inquiring about the result. "Master, how is it?" Wen Zhongyang smiled sinisterly, a murderous intent revealed in his tone. "The curse is complete. In a moment blood shall be seen." Sima Yan was overjoyed, cupping his hands in celebration and promising a heavy reward. "I've troubled you, master. If you can help me stabilize Nanqing, your contribution will surely not be small. However, before the promise of the reward could be finished, a world-shaking explosion rang out. Wen Zhongyang's body unexpectedly expanded rapidly, then exploded into a blur of flesh and blood, gore splattering everywhere. It sprayed right onto Sima Yan's face. The old prime minister was completely frozen. Cold sweat poured down like a fountain, and his eyes turned white from extreme terror. His entire body trembled violently as he stammered incoherently. What is going on? Wen Zhongyang actually exploded. Could it be a backlash from the curse art? Why would this happen? Didn't he say even an imperial-rank powerhouse couldn't block it? Ignoring the viscous liquid all over the ground, he collapsed and frantically scavenged through the mangled remains trying to find the treasure. When his trembling hand picked up that imperial ruler, which was covered in cracks and completely destroyed, the panic in his heart reached its peak. He wailed in terror in the depths of his soul. Even the imperial ruler is destroyed. What kind of god is the opponent? Meanwhile, deep within the forbidden land of the Tianyan Sacred Mountain, the Tianyan Sacred Master finally escaped back to his lair. He used his last bit of strength to push open the ancient coffin lid, gasping as he comforted himself. It's fine now, it's fine, as long as I crawl back in here, I'm safe. This coffin was built using the accumulated wealth of the Tianyan Sacred Sect for hundreds of years. Its defense is peerless. Just as he was about to shrink into his safe harbor, a chorus of crisp birdsong suddenly rang in his ears, as loud as a summons from the god of death. The Tianyan Sacred Master's mental state completely collapsed, extreme terror clutching his throat. Who is it? I've been discovered, tracked. His legs went weak and he collapsed to the ground, violently vomiting a large mouthful of thick black blood. Looking at his hands, which were withering and aging at a pace visible to the naked eye, he tremblingly spat out his tragic last words. I'm growing weaker. Why is this happening? Am I going to die? Is my life force being cut off? I've painstakingly and meticulously planned for 3,000 years. Why must I die so absurdly? Ugh. With those words, the towering figure of the St. Gates leader collapsed heavily onto the cold stone floor. With his dying breath, his pupils began to dilate, filled with an endless sense of grievance as he let out two desolate sighs. What a bitter life. Exactly one incense stick's time after that absurd death, his body suddenly twitched violently before exploding into a puddle of mangled flesh and blood, just as Wen Zhongyang had. As the explosion settled, a person who looked identical walked in, followed by a mysterious figure. This impostor was none other than the body double meticulously trained by the heavenly Tao Sacred Master. Looking at the gore on the floor, a triumphant sneer curled on his lips. The old tortoise is finally dead. The companion merely furrowed his brow slightly, maintaining an unfathomable silence. The double's eyes darted around as he secretly puzzled over the strange cause of death. Wait, the Sacred Master of Heavenly Fortune was supposed to be critically injured at most. How did he just drop dead? I can't let any cracks show now. He quickly resumed his arrogant posture, cupping his hands toward the mysterious figure as he asserted his new authority. Ancestor, I am now the Supreme Emperor, and the Sacred Gate of Heavenly Fortune belongs to me. Can our cooperation continue? The mysterious figure stroked his beard and smiled. His tone was heavy with meaning. Of course, naturally. The double spread his arms and let out a manic, joyous roar toward the sky. His long-suppressed lust for power finally satisfied. It felt good, unbelievably good. Was there anything better in this world than a body double becoming the real thing? Back in the Raiment Forbidden Land, the gloomy atmosphere was shattered by Qi Yuan letting out an earth-shaking sneeze, spray flying everywhere. He rubbed the tip of his nose, muttering in confusion. Did I catch a cold? Am I not playing a game? Xiao Jia, hiding behind him, was also startled. She hurriedly looked up at her husband. Seeing her worried look, Qi Yuan quickly waved her off, half joking. No, your fabric is too cool. I'm afraid the more I hold you, the colder I'll get. He stepped forward, looking at the monsters wandering nearby, confidently sketching out his future plans. With Xiao Jia's help, he had to clear out this Raiment Forbidden Land as soon as possible. As the saying goes, when a man and a woman work together, grinding mobs is a breeze. He drew his longsword and charged into the swarm of Raiment demons, letting out a thunderous roar. Kill! As his blade danced, a sweet sound of system notifications for experience gains rang out incessantly. Immersed in the slaughter, he calculated his challenge against the big boss. He was close to the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor, so he could level up while waiting for him. With my current strength, I shouldn't lose to him, right? After clearing a wave of mobs, he wiped his sweat and let out a long breath, opening his personal attribute panel to check. A brilliant smile broke across his face as he marveled at the results. Not bad at all. Efficiency has improved significantly. I've already reached level 89. Before the joy could fade, a chilling aura of killing intent suddenly surged from behind. Instinct told Qi Yuan that a crisis had arrived. He grew secretly alert. It's here. Without hesitation, he roared and activated his ultimate move. With the eruption of blood energy from Comrade in Arms, his fusion with Xiao Jia was completed instantly. In that same moment, the hideous figure of the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor appeared aggressively before him. Qi Yuan stomped down to launch himself into the air, unleashing his secret technique, Heaven-Slaying Draw. The sword Qi, carrying destructive power, howled as it slashed toward the boss. Faced with the lethal move, the Monster Emperor remained as motionless as a statue. It wasn't until the blade was about to strike that it casually raised a rotting arm to block the blow. The entire force of the attack was effortlessly neutralized. Qi Yuan's eyes widened in horror, his mind reeling. Damn, I can't even scratch it. Changing his expression faster than flipping a page, he immediately sheathed his sword, forced a strained smile, and cupped his hands in farewell. Sorry to bother you, goodbye, goodbye. With that he bolted, vanishing behind the misty forest like a streak of lightning, his heart screaming with terror. Holy crap, this monster emperor is ridiculously strong. Qi Yuan cast a sharp glance back, confirming he had reached a safe distance. He spun around and swung his sword, using all his might to unleash an incredibly powerful beam of sword qi. The dazzling sword qi seemed to tear through the night sky, letting out a piercing whistle that forced the pursuers back. He hurriedly retreated, letting out a long breath of relief, secretly counting his blessings. Thanks to Xiao Jia, he hadn't been forced to scurry away like a rat. With this solid shield at his disposal, he greased his soles and sprinted at full speed once more. After running for a while, Qi Yuan and Xiao Jia finally reached a safe zone and ended the fusion. He used his sleeve to wipe the thick sweat from his forehead, his eyes burning with the fires of revenge as he muttered through gritted teeth, "Grind mobs, I need to level up first. In a few days I'm definitely coming back for payback." The scene instantly shifted to the Yin-Yang Forbidden Land, a place of deathly silence and darkness where ancient coffins were scattered in disarray. Suddenly a withered hand burst through the wood of a moss-covered rotting coffin. Nearby, several blurred silhouettes belonging to peak powerhouses of the divine domain watched silently. One of them spoke slowly, his voice laced with unmistakable excitement. "Another fellow traveler is about to emerge in the mortal world. How wonderful! I never expected that even with the extra-dimensional demons severing the connection between heaven and earth and dropping their fishhooks into the moon-watching continent, someone would still be able to set foot in the heavenly domain." An old man beside him stroked his silver-white beard, immersed in long-forgotten memories. Ever since the celestial god left 10,000 years ago and never returned, the moon-watching continent has undergone cataclysmic changes. Whenever a martial artist breaks through the imperial rank and enters the heavenly domain, a fishhook descends from the sky, piercing their body to suck dry their brain and flesh. When the hook finally leaves, it leaves behind only an empty skin. It has been 10,000 years since a new powerhouse appeared. I never thought one would emerge now. At that moment, a woman with a hint of cunning in her bright eyes chimed in, her voice full of curiosity. "Do any of you know the identity of this person?" The old man was startled and turned to look at her, his expression turning wary. He recognized her as the Flower Burial Fairy, a legendary figure who had once shared a brief romance with the celestial god 10,000 years ago. He bowed respectfully and replied, "Fairy, that person comes from the Raiment Forbidden Land. He only reached this step by relying on the resources of the wedding dress princess." At the mention of her rival's name, the fairy's expression darkened instantly. She let out a cold snort and spat with contempt and resentment. "HMPH, it seems that golden-armored bastard left that wench quite a lot of good things." The old man swallowed hard, cold sweat pouring down, secretly admiring the Flower Burial Fairy's audacity. After all, she was perhaps the only one in the world who dared to address the celestial god so bluntly. While the atmosphere was awkward, another powerhouse spoke up to break the impasse, turning everyone's attention to the bigger picture. Since he is about to enter the divine domain and is the husband of the new wedding dress princess, he can be considered one of us. 3 years from now, during the celestial dog swallowing the moon, the extra-dimensional demons will be at their weakest. That will be our time to attack the earthly severance forbidden land. Every person adds to our strength. He clenched his fists, suppressing the anger accumulated over 10,000 years. The extra-dimensional demons occupy the forbidden lands and plague the mortal world, while we so-called divine domain powerhouses can only hide like rats in the yin-yang and 5 elements forbidden lands. We have cultivated bitterly for 10,000 years just to wait for the demons to weaken, so we can organize the demon-slaying assembly and charge into the earthly severance forbidden land together. This is our only chance." He looked around and firmly proposed, "We should send out an invitation to the demon-slaying assembly." However, a voice of opposition immediately rang out. "But he hasn't even entered the divine domain yet. He might not even survive his encounter with that stinking Raiment monster emperor. There's no need to rush." The speaker was an elegant scholar who flicked his paper fan and mocked with a cold sneer, "That wedding dress empress is truly selfish. If she had chosen someone of the universal rank, it would have surely bolstered our strength and increased our chances at the demon-slaying assembly." The old man saw right through the scholar. This guy had harbored a crush on the Flower Burial Fairy for years. His sarcasm toward the wedding dress empress was nothing more than an attempt to curry favor with the beauty. The scholar laughed again, his voice full of bitterness and disdain. "Now that she's married to that kid, at most we gain 1 Titan-level combatant. The help is limited. A pity, a real pity." Note: in this ranking system, powerhouses between level 95 and 98, like the Flower Burial Fairy, are called Divine Domain Titans, while the universal rank represents peak powerhouses, and the celestial god is the peak of the peak. The scholar's complaints were immediately cut short by another powerhouse's cold dose of reality. "What's the point of saying all this? Is it because any of you dare to leave the yin-yang forbidden land to find the wedding dress empress?" The scholar was instantly speechless, forced to give an awkward hollow laugh to cover his embarrassment. The old man looked up at the gray sky and let out a heavy sigh. "The extra-dimensional demons are terrifying. Even the celestial god was no match for them. Can we really win the demon-slaying assembly in 3 years?" The celestial god was the most brilliant talent 10,000 years ago. Even the universal rankers and the 2 peaks of the 5 elements forbidden land were suppressed by him. But even he fell. Can we truly succeed? The atmosphere instantly plunged into extreme pessimism. Just then, a powerhouse with a majestic third eye on his forehead stepped forward, roaring with a voice like a booming bell. Enough with the great enemy before us, you shall not shake our morale. Mo Li, send an invitation to that fellow traveler. Invite him to join the demon-slaying assembly. Mo Li, the powerhouse who had spoken earlier, hurriedly bowed his head and accepted the order. By your command. The scene shifted back to Qi Yuan's world. He was staring at the system panel, clicking his tongue as he evaluated his progress. That's enough for today. Before he could log off, ripples suddenly appeared in the space before him, and an exquisite invitation with ancient patterns materialized out of thin air. He widened his eyes, letting out a surprised "A" as he took the envelope. He frowned as he quickly scanned the contents, muttering in bewilderment, an invitation for 300 years from now, the demon-slaying assembly? In less than 3 seconds he made his decision and tossed the expensive invitation into the furthest corner of his junk tab. He curled his lip in disdain. Go, yeah, right. In 300 years my daughter will be dominating the ages. With that he exited the game. Back in reality, Qi Yuan stretched his back, his bones popping, and cheered himself on. The morning sets the tone for the day, time to study hard. He untied the storage bag at his waist and excitedly dumped its contents onto the floor. Let's see what we've got. He expected only a few trophies, but instead, hundreds of secret manuals and technique scrolls poured out like a waterfall, forming a small mountain in the center of the room. Qi Yuan's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He was stunned for several seconds, muttering in a daze, why are there so many techniques? Then, remembering his brilliant achievements from a few days ago, he slapped his forehead and mocked himself for being an old fool. Right, I went through a lot of trouble to empty out the Black Mountain Sect's entire library pavilion. Recalling how he hadn't even left a scrap of waste paper behind at the Black Mountain Sect, he threw his head back and laughed triumphantly. Haha, great, with all this data I can perfect my foundation establishment technique. But before the smile could fade, a nightmare of studying set in. He clutched his head, ruffling his hair into a mess like a child forced to do homework, and wailed, Damn it, why do I still have to study like a maniac even after transmigrating to another world to perfect my foundation establishment technique? I have to read through all of these carefully. Looking at the mountain of scrolls, he took a deep breath to push down his frustration, clenched his fists, and ignited a soaring fighting spirit. For the sake of Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, I'm going all in. From that day on, Qi Yuan began working around the clock. By day he locked himself in his room to devour books. By night he became a god of death sweeping through the Raiment forbidden land. With the overbearing boost of his fusion with Xiao Jia, he rampaged through the area, his leveling speed as fast as lightning. Although he still lacked the ability to completely kill the stinking Raiment monster emperor, his attacks were finally beginning to draw blood from the troublesome boss on the virtual battlefield. Qi Yuan suddenly unleashed his heaven-slaying draw, tearing a chunk of flesh from the monster emperor. Seeing the boss's health bar drop slightly, he let out a triumphant sneer. Not bad. But his smile froze instantly as he saw the monster's mangled arm regenerate in the blink of an eye. This terrifying regenerative ability instantly deflated Qi Yuan's spirit. He hurriedly withdrew his attack and bolted without a word, his mind already calculating his next move. Time to bail. I'll wait until I hit level 90, then I'll be certain of success. Relying on his agile movements, he leaped over jagged rocks and landed lightly. Ending his fusion state, he stretched his limbs and said tiredly, I've killed enough for today, time to log off and study. Turning around, he opened his arms dotingly and pulled Xiao Jia's flat frame into his embrace, coaxing her gently. Come on, let's go to bed. Xiao Jia nestled in his arms, her body trembling slightly with shyness as she emitted a faint red glow, appearing exceptionally adorable. Tucking into his familiar sheltered spot, Qi Yuan continued to hold Xiao Jia tightly, while his other hand quickly swiped through the system panel. Xiao Jia's happiness was clearly through the roof. The bright red heart icon remained suspended in the air, refusing to vanish. Qi Yuan stole a glance at his wife in the game, then thought of the beauty waiting for his message in reality. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead as a pang of conscience hit him. I have a wife, yet I'm still chatting with a girlfriend online. Is this considered cheating? Whatever, let's keep flirting. Tossing aside his moral baggage, he quickly composed a flying spirit message to Jinli. Any movement from Sima Yan, stay careful. Don't worry, I'm almost finished clearing the Raiment forbidden land. I'll come help you then. Soon a single icy word was returned to the screen. Oh, Qi Yuan frowned and scratched his head, completely baffled by this cold response. He vaguely sensed that something was off. Jinli's mood seems a bit off. Could she be in trouble? The scene shifted back to the Prime Minister's estate in the Nanqing Kingdom, where a secret meeting filled with conspiracy was underway. Sima Yan was bowing and scraping before a figure of immense power, his sweat soaking through his clothes as he screamed inwardly in terror. How is even he here? The one causing Sima Yan to kneel in such trepidation was none other than a demon sovereign. Sima Yan swallowed hard, secretly shocked. Back then I only borrowed a bit of influence from this great demon. He's my true trump card. I never expected the sacred gate of heavenly fortune to actually be in league with the demon race. Today the two most powerful forces in the world were both coveting the Nanqing Kingdom. Sitting beside the demon sovereign was the Emperor Ranker of the Tianyin sacred sect. He took a slow sip of tea, adopting an air of superiority as he unhurriedly made an arrogant promise to carve up the world. Sima Yan, they are but a bunch of mortals, why bother feeling distressed? This time shall be recorded as a great merit for you. Once the sacred master's grand plan succeeds, you may take whichever of these dozen or so national territories you desire. The demon sovereign stroked his beard and laughed wildly, echoing the sentiment that treated human lives like grass. Those who achieve great things do not fret over trifles. Sima Yan trembled in fear, so terrified that his words became incoherent. A world-shaking secret was subsequently revealed. It turned out the demon race had long since colluded with the puppet Saint Master of the Tianyin sacred sect to assassinate the true Saint Master, and the Nanqing kingdom had already been sold out, becoming a sacrificial offering delivered into the mouth of the demon race. At this moment, the demon sovereign had come ahead to pave the way with a nation extermination decree. Sima Yan was utterly horrified by the impending bloody scene. Trifles, this is by no means a trifle. You intend to slaughter the entire capital of Nanqing, sacrifice tens of thousands of commoners in a blood ritual, and then use that overwhelming blood energy to refine an ultimate imperial weapon, the bloodless imperial scepter. You won't even spare my army? How can I possibly agree to this? However, despite the grief and indignation in his heart, he could only bow his head submissively before the absolute pressure and accept the order. Everything shall be as the Lord's command. The entire army is entering the city in succession. The Tianyin sacred sect Emperor Ranker nodded in satisfaction, tossing out a lure to lock in the traitorous official's loyalty. Very well, Sima Yan. He who understands the times is a wise man. The Tianyin sacred sect will certainly not mistreat you. Once this matter is settled, a Hall Elder token will naturally be bestowed upon you. Within the Tianyin sacred sect, your status will be no lower than mine. Upon hearing the three words, Hall Elder token, Sima Yan's pupils shrank and his heart raced as he frantically calculated the political benefits. With a Hall Elder token, I will be the one controlling the board, rather than a pawn at the mercy of others as I am now. Blinded by ambition, Sima Yan hurried to his knees to express his gratitude. Thank you, my lord. The demon sovereign suddenly recalled something interesting and asked with a wicked smile, by the way, I heard that your Nanqing Empress is a beauty of unparalleled grace? Sima Yan replied submissively. Indeed she is. A pathological and lewd smile appeared on the demon sovereign's face as he conceived a cruel punishment for the mother of a nation. I have always loved collecting wine vessels from fallen capitals. Leave the empress's head to me. A beauty's head and an empress of a nation at that. It will be perfect for serving wine. The taste will surely be sweet. Although Sima Yan felt disgusted, he could only grit his teeth and endure the humiliation, forced to agree. Yes, the next day, majesty still reigned over the golden throne room of the Nanqing kingdom, but the atmosphere in the court was tense. Minister Kong stepped forward and sternly questioned the influential minister's blatant act of rebellion. Prime Minister Sima Yan, why have the Dragon War Army, the Black Flag Army, and the East Guard Army aggressively moved into the imperial capital for 3 consecutive days? Do you intend to rebel? Sima Yan folded his arms, his gaze shooting toward Minister Kong like a dagger as he waved a hand contemptuously. The entry of the 3 armies into the capital was conducted under the orders of the Ministry of War, completely in accordance with Nanqing law. Minister Kong, cease your baseless accusations. Showing such contempt for the laws of the court is the true joke. Shaking with rage at this twisted logic, Minister Kong's face turned crimson, yet he was left speechless. You, the military officials in the hall chuckled triumphantly, while the civil officials hung their heads in dejection as if mourning their own parents. Minister Kong wailed in his heart, Sima Yan's intentions are known to everyone, yet not a single soul among the civil and military officials dares to speak out. Nanqing is finished. Ignoring the officials' fury, Sima Yan turned to Jinli, fabricating an absurd reason to cover up the mutiny. Recently, demons have been causing chaos in the imperial city. To ensure your majesty's absolute safety, I have mobilized the 3 armies into the capital. During this time, the city will be under martial law. Entry is permitted, but none may leave. Once the demons are swept clean within half a month, the army will naturally withdraw. Do not panic, everyone. I still have important matters to attend to and shall take my leave. Please suit yourselves. With that, he flicked his sleeves and departed, showing no regard for the empress. A group of sycophantic military officials hurried to follow, shouting as they ran, Prime Minister, wait for me. Prime Minister Sima, I have a report. At that moment, Minister Kong collapsed to the ground, vomiting blood and fury. The civil officials were thrown into chaos, their cries for help echoing through the hall. What should we do? Quick, take Lord Kong Chi to see the imperial physician. Sitting upon the throne, Jinli's face was grim, her knuckles white as she gripped the dragon chair. She frowned and thought, desperately analyzing the dead end. Why is Sima Yan so fearless? What on earth has happened? How should I respond to such a situation? Meanwhile, Jinli returned to her private quarters. She stared blankly out the window, stroking her token and whispering, if the nation falls and my family is gone, can our promise still be fulfilled? A guard rushed in, kneeling and shouting urgently, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, the 3 armies have blockaded the inner city. Sima Yan's ambition is laid bare. This old subject is willing to fight to the death to escort your majesty through the breakout, the surrounding guards shouted in unison. We are willing to die for your majesty. Jinli gave a tragic smile. Everyone, I am the ruler of Nanqing, how can I abandon the city and flee? Furthermore, Sima Yan has surely set an inescapable net. Instead, you all still have a chance. He will not make things difficult for you. Go quickly to the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land to seek refuge. Only there can you be preserved, Aunt Qin said in horror. Your Majesty, I fear Sima Yan is doing more than just usurping the throne at the Prime Minister's estate. I sent several extremely terrifying auras, and among them were demons. Jinli was struck with shock. Demons, Aunt Qin replied with a pale face. Emperor-rank powerhouses, no fewer than 3. Jinli roared in rage. What exactly does Sima Yan intend to do? The scene transitions to the Raiment Forbidden Land. At this moment, Qi Yuan was fused with Xiao Jia, grinding mobs as his experience points soared. His experience bar was now nearly full. After an unknown amount of time, a golden light flashed, and his level finally rose to 90. Qi Yuan shouted in excitement, level 90? I'm finally level 90. I feel all my attributes have undergone a qualitative leap. Is level 90 also a major threshold? I've even gained 2 more skills. Calm Spirit can stabilize the soul to counter illusions, and Death's Light and Unyielding Will, which triggers when death is near, allowing for a burst of potential that greatly enhances combat power and restores status. As long as I wound an enemy, I can leech life force to heal injuries and recover stamina. After reading the skill descriptions, Qi Yuan was ecstatic. This is practically a divine skill. The lower the health, the stronger the combat power. And it even comes with life and mana leech. Even if he used Death's Light at full health, he could burst with double combat power. Qi Yuan looked at the longsword beside him, fused with Xiao Jia once more, and transformed into a streak of light charging toward the big boss. Stinking Raiment Monster Emperor, meet your end. In an instant he was right in front of it. The 2 sides collided violently. Thunderous roars continued. Explosions occurred one after another. A moment later the 2 separated again. The corners of Qi Yuan's mouth curled up as he swung his sword down. Have another taste of my blade? He thought to himself that although he had already heavily wounded the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor, the aftershocks could conveniently clear the surrounding trash mobs. These were all walking experience packs and inexhaustible supplies of mana and health potions. The sword light swept across, instantly clearing the small demons in the rear. By now the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor was battered and broken. Qi Yuan used the wheel step technique and laughed. That had an effect, hee hee. Now take my second strike. To his surprise, the boss actually turned to run. Qi Yuan leaped into the air and roared loudly, trying to run today, life and death shall be decided. Take this Raiment Rend with its armor-piercing power. The sword slashed down heavily. The boss raised its hand to block it directly, but its hard giant palm began to show cracks. Looking at the devastated battlefield, Qi Yuan felt a pang of private distress. This place will be my territory sooner or later. I can't damage it further. Let's finish this quickly. He gathered all his strength and launched a charge with a roar. This was his strongest strike. The sword light was like the Milky Way falling from the highest heavens, aiming straight for the boss's vitals. Strangely, the boss did not dodge this time. Qi Yuan was startled. Why isn't it dodging? He saw the corner of the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor's mouth curl into a smile of relief, and then its body dissipated like sand. In the blink of an eye, the boss vanished completely, leaving behind only a dropped mask on the spot. Qi Yuan ended the fusion and picked up the faceless mask. Only a mask remains. Is this its true form? The moment he touched the mask, memories flooded into his mind. Someone was giving instructions to a youth. You are the genius of our clan with the potential to reach the peak of the heavenly domain. But the celestial demon is monitoring the moon-watching continent. You must hide your name and identity. Take this faceless mask and leave the Feng clan. Only enter the 4 forbidden lands after you have stepped into the Supreme Emperor rank. Remember, never enter the heavenly domain in the outside world. Years later, the youth had become an emperor-rank powerhouse and stood before the gates of the Raiment Forbidden Land preparing to break through here. The moment he stepped into the Forbidden Land, a line quietly entangled the youth's body. Qi Yuan watched, heart pounding with terror. That was actually a fishhook. It pierced into the youth's body, and energy was frantically extracted like a waterfall. Veins popped on the youth's face as he suffered immense agony. Qi Yuan was horrified. He was actually sucked dry in the blink of an eye. The youth turned to ash, and then a power reshaped him into the stinking Raiment Monster Emperor that had just been killed. Qi Yuan exited the vision and looked up at the sky, his thoughts heavy. The fishhook, the celestial demon, is that the mastermind? The methods are truly terrifying. Defeating the boss had raised him to level 92. He put on the mask and a system prompt appeared. Raiment Forbidden Land cleared. Rewards. Contaminated Heavenly Tao Fragment. Command authority over the Raiment Division. Qi Yuan was stunned. Contaminated Heavenly Tao Fragment. Why is it different from the one from the Xuanyuan Forbidden Land? Could it be because this place was contaminated by the Celestial Demon? I'll have to kill the Celestial Demon to get the complete fragment back. It seemed he had to make a trip to the Earthly Severance Forbidden Land. He let out a long breath of exhaustion, pulled Xiao Jia close and crawled into the coffin. Xiao Jia, your husband is tired, let's rest for a while. Xiao Jia nestled in his arms, her heart full of joy. Meanwhile, dark clouds loomed over the Nanqing court. News of the impending replacement of the Empress spread like wildfire, with only a few important ministers like the Duke of Yu remaining loyal. He urged Jinli to flee in secret, but Jinli held her head in sorrowful distress, saying, I cannot escape. Why hasn't Qi Yuan sent a message yet? Am I truly unable to escape this calamity? I fear our promise under the Guki spring tree cannot be fulfilled. Suddenly the jade slip lit up. Qi Yuan sent a victory report. I've punched through the Raiment forbidden land. It's under my control now. Furthermore, I have a brilliant plan to help you stabilize Nanqing. Want to hear it? Hope was rekindled in Jinli's heart, but she was also filled with confusion. What is it? Qi Yuan explained. I've gathered a group of underlings in the Raiment forbidden land. With their strength, crushing Sima Yan will be more than enough. Do you want me to send the army over to help you? Jinli let out a cry of shock. Ah! Her cheeks flushed a deep crimson as tears welled in her eyes, and she thought to herself, Qi Yuan, you truly are my great savior. Why aren't you by my side? If only you were here so I could properly repay you. Meanwhile, Qi Yuan was secretly feeling quite pleased with himself. I've basically activated a cheat for you. However, the speed of sending them over normally might be too slow and they would have to fight their way in from outside the city. With no one to protect you, Sima Yan might very well lash out like a cornered beast. How about this? Build a ritual god platform to perform a sacrifice. The Raiment division guards should be able to descend in about 3 days. Qi Yuan provided Jinli with the detailed summoning method. Filled with joy, Jinli thought that after summoning the Raiment division guards, she might even be able to see Qi Yuan again. She then barked a loud order. Someone summon Minister Kong Qi of the Ministry of Rights and Duke Yu to the palace immediately. A guard took the order, replying, By your command. Half an hour later the two summoned men arrived. Jinli spoke, Minister Kong, I wish to construct a ritual god platform. She presented the blueprints, which had taken several days to draw. The Minister of Rights took the drawings, studied them for a moment, and then replied, Your Majesty, this ritual god platform can be completed in about 4 or 5 days, but I must ask, for what purpose does Your Majesty build this altar? A thick wave of killing intent erupted from Jinli as she said coldly, Simply do as you are told, ask no questions. The Minister of Rights turned pale with fright, stammering incoherently. He spoke in terror, Though I am the Minister of Rights, in truth the actual power of my ministry rests entirely in the hands of that traitor, Sima Yan. If I am to mobilize the manpower and resources to build this platform, I must find a suitable justification. Hearing this, Jinli was left speechless, unable to argue. She grit her teeth and thought, This is going to be difficult. How can we build the platform without people right now? I am a textbook puppet. I control nothing and my life or death depends entirely on Sima Yan's whims. At that moment Aunt Qin asked, Is it not possible for Your Majesty to issue a personal imperial decree? Jinli hesitated. I could say I intend to offer sacrifices to heaven and earth and the ancestors. Is that reason enough? Drenched in sweat, the Minister of Rights stammered, Your Majesty, I fear it is not. He immediately fell to his knees, kowtowing and crying out, I have failed the imperial grace, Your Majesty. The most urgent priority is to leave the imperial capital. Please, Your Majesty, keep the big picture in mind and discuss the plan to relocate the capital to Yanbei Pass, ordering the General of Apocalypse to suppress the traitor. Beside him, Duke Yu also spoke, Your Majesty, it is best to leave the capital now. Only by leaving is there a glimmer of hope for survival. Jinli thought to herself, Leave the capital? I cannot escape at all. My only hope for survival lies in trusting Qi Yuan. She then darkened her face and said firmly, Build the ritual god platform. Both the Minister of Rights and Duke Yu fell silent, having nothing left to say. The Minister of Rights thought that while the previous emperor had also seen his power slip away, he had always sought ways to escape his cage, acting with the air of a wise ruler, whereas Empress Jinli, thinking of this, he kowtowed again and said loudly, I am incompetent and cannot resolve Your Majesty's worries. I am willing to donate 370 taels of silver to fund the construction of the ritual god platform. Duke Yu also mused, Does Her Majesty intend to sink with the nation? He let out a long sigh and also spoke, I am also willing to donate 80,000 taels of silver and 800 craftsmen to build the platform for Your Majesty. And consider it the final thing I do for Nanqing. Hearing this, Jinli was overjoyed, thinking that she no longer lacked money or men. She hadn't expected Duke Yu to solve her problem. Is he loyal to the country rather than to me? No. She remembered Aunt Qin saying that Duke Yu's daughter, noble consort Shi, had been poisoned, and it seemed Sima Yan was responsible. Perhaps Duke Yu knew the truth and had been hiding his strength all this time. Realizing this, she spoke, My thanks to Duke Yu. Duke Yu lowered his head and replied, Your Majesty, I do not know the intent behind Your Majesty's actions, but I wish to say that Your Majesty's life was bought with the sacrifices of countless people. Your Majesty's life or death concerns the very safety of the Nanqing kingdom. Please, Your Majesty, hold the state in high regard. I shall remain in the palace to oversee the construction of the ritual god platform. Jinli mused, Duke Yu means for himself to stay behind as a decoy to build the platform while I secretly depart. Thinking of this, she spoke, I understand. The Minister of Rights and Duke Yu then said respectfully, We take our leave. Jinli watched the two loyal ministers depart. She slumped into her chair thinking, Indeed, I am still not suited to be an empress. Once the matters of Nanqing are settled, I will go beneath that Guki spring tree. Then a voice sounded in her ear, Your Majesty. It was Aunt Qin. Aunt Chin leaned closer to Jinli and asked, "Is the construction of the platform the wish of that person?" Jinli spoke. "Aunt Chin, everyone need only do as I have commanded." Soon after, Aunt Chin also departed, but once outside she found Duke Yu standing there waiting. Duke Yu spoke. "Madam Chin, I presume you recognize the things on those blueprints?" Aunt Chin replied. "Yes." Duke Yu recalled the past. Legend has it that in ancient times, when the moon-watching continent was unified, there was once a divine court that shook the world. By building a ritual god platform, one could summon a divine army to descend. Aunt Chin replied with frustration, "Unfortunately, those are now nothing more than legends. The divine court collapsed long ago. Where would a divine army come from? 20 years ago, when Jingzhou in the Qing kingdom was besieged by demonic beasts, the governor obtained the blueprints and built a platform. And what was the result?" Duke Yu stroked his long beard and spoke. "I do not know where Her Majesty obtained those drawings, but placing hope in a ritual god platform is just as slim a hope as expecting Her Majesty to safely leave the capital." Aunt Chin looked around and spoke. "We shall do our best and leave the rest to heaven's will." The scene shifts to the Sima estate. Sima Yan laughed manically. "Building a ritual god platform? Ridiculous." The demon sovereign, sitting in the seat of honor, spoke playfully. "Using a sword from the ancient divine court to slay the demons of today, this Empress Jinli is quite adorable." He explained, "In the past, when the demon and human races vied for supremacy, a top powerhouse appeared among humans, revered as a celestial god. The celestial god founded the divine court and commanded the 4 divisions. One only needed to erect a ritual god platform to summon divine soldiers and suppress the demon race. The divine army once drove the demon race directly back to the frozen barrens. These records exist in the ancestral court of the demons." Beside him, the imperial ranker of the Tianyin sacred sect also spoke. "Let her build it. It is nothing more than a death struggle before the end. Right now, the most important thing is to establish supreme imperial authority. Everything else can be set aside. By the way, don't forget to help Dingtian keep a close eye on Empress Jinli. Don't let her slip away." The scene shifts. Qi Yuan was yawning incessantly, saying, "I'm exhausted." He felt his body and thought in surprise, "I didn't expect playing the game to be such a drain. Although I wasn't injured in the game, the mental exhaustion in reality is too severe. I'm incredibly tired. Is it because my soul is too weak to handle this level of consumption? It's a pity one can only sense the soul at the foundation establishment stage, and related secret arts and techniques are extremely rare. After I reach foundation establishment, I must find some soul cultivation methods, so I can play games for longer." He then stood up and walked out the door. "I'm already level 90. I have to say it's a total power trip in the game, but why do I feel like I've become much stronger in reality too?" Walking out of his room, he saw Zhang Lingzhu sitting there practicing. Seeing Qi Yuan emerge, Zhang Lingzhu also opened her eyes and glanced at him. Seeing Qi Yuan looking completely drained, she asked with concern, "Eldest senior brother, has something gone wrong with your cultivation?" Qi Yuan replied through yawns, "No, I just stayed up all night grinding a game. My body is a bit worn out." Zhang Lingzhu thought to herself, "This guy, it's a good thing my family sent over a few pills earlier." Just as she was about to rummage through her storage bag, Qi Yuan walked straight past her, saying as he went, "I'm going out for a massage. I should be fine in a bit. Oh, by the way, junior sister, do you want to give me a rub-down? I'll pay you 3 spirit stones as a fee." Hearing this, Zhang Lingzhu immediately lost all desire to give him the pills and barked angrily, "Get out!" Qi Yuan laughed heartily. After stepping out, he thought to himself, "Good thing my junior sister didn't agree. Otherwise I would have wasted another 3 spirit stones. The massages down the mountain are perfectly professional and they don't even cost spirit stones." At this time, Jinli had arrived at the ritual god platform to inspect it. Suddenly, Aunt Chin, covered in wounds, walked up behind her. "Cough, cough." Jinli ran over anxiously. "Aunt Chin, what happened to you? You've lost so much blood." The Minister of Rites also ran over, crying out in shock. "Madam Chin, how did it come to this?" Beside them, Duke Yu mused. "Earlier, Madam Chin said she was going to find an escape route for Empress Jinli. I didn't expect it to end like this." Aunt Chin wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said, "I'm fine." Unexpectedly, she covered her mouth and vomited another mouthful of fresh blood. Cough, cough. Jinli took out several pills and handed them to Aunt Chin. "Aunt Chin, take these quickly." Aunt Chin swallowed them rapidly, and after a moment the injuries on her body eased slightly. Jinli asked, "Do you feel better?" Aunt Chin replied with a smile, "Much better, thank you for your concern, your majesty." She then recounted what had just happened. "Just as I was preparing to leave the city, I was ambushed by 2 emperors." The Minister of Rites turned pale with shock. "What, 2 emperors?" Aunt Chin added, "If it were only 2, they wouldn't have been able to wound me this severely, but there were several more lurking in the shadows." Duke Yu spoke with a hint of disbelief. Aunt Chin shouted with resentment. "Most importantly, they weren't human. They were demons. Furthermore, they have laid out a massive array outside the capital filled with blood-red light and 3,000 white banners. I fear it is the soul-burying banner array." Hearing this, the others were terrified beyond belief. Duke Yu spoke. "The soul-burying banner array again? That is an array specifically used by the demon race to refine and slaughter the human race. 50 years ago, they refined a small country of several 100,000 people." "Madam Chin, are you absolutely sure?" Aunt Chin confirmed. I am certain it must be the soul-burying banner array. The Minister of Rights collapsed to the ground in terror. What kind of conspiracy is Sima Yan brewing? Could it be that what he wants is not the throne of Nanqing but... Jinli's face was deathly pale. Sima Yan, he doesn't just want to kill me, does he intend to sacrifice every citizen of Nanqing? How does he dare, how does he dare? A guard nearby spoke. Your Majesty, perhaps we should try to fight our way through together. There might still be a glimmer of hope. Jinli turned and said, I am the Empress of Nanqing, how can I abandon my subjects? Speak no more of this. She looked toward the ritual god platform and prayed silently in her heart. Qi Yuan, I believe in you. The day after next, the construction of the platform was complete and Jinli was to perform the ritual. At this time, the Minister of Rights held the imperial decree and announced loudly, Her Majesty arrives. Jinli, dressed in magnificent robes, slowly ascended. Meanwhile, Aunt Qin had spread the news of Sima Yan's array, hoping to gain more support to oppose him. However, everyone believed this was merely Jinli's attempt at sowing discord. Simultaneously, a troop of men was closing in on the ritual god platform. Sima Yan ordered, Halt, take men and surround this place. His son stepped forward saying excitedly, Father, if we had done this sooner I would have been the crown prince long ago. A trusted aide leaned in and asked, Right now all the civil and military officials follow you. Who dares say you are not the crown prince? The son laughed. Ha ha ha, good, an official said. Why don't we seize that false emperor right now? Sima Yan spoke, We must not push too hard. What if Her Majesty acts rashly and harms herself? What we need is an intact empress. He glanced at the demon sovereign, thinking that the other party still intended to keep Jinli as a tool. At this time the Minister of Rights announced loudly, The auspicious hour has arrived, please offer sacrifices to the heavens. Jinli slowly ascended the ritual god platform, sighing inwardly. To think that a grand national sacrifice was being presided over by only the Minister of Rights was truly pathetic. Below the platform, several corrupt officials watched with disdain. HMPH, still dreaming of the divine court's descent. Truly a fool's fantasy. The Empress has reached the end of her rope. On the platform, Jinli had reached the top. She asked silently in her heart, Qi Yuan, there has been no word for 4 days. Are you well? Nothing went wrong in the Forbidden Land, right? Right now the big picture is what matters. I cannot let my mind wander. I will follow the steps Qi Yuan instructed and begin the sacrifice. Below the platform, the Minister of Rights knelt and wept. Woe is me. This old servant is guilty. I have failed the late emperor and the ancestors. I am incompetent. Jinli stood on the platform, looking up for a moment, then took out 2 objects from her hands. She threw a bracelet from her wrist down from the platform, and it instantly shattered into pieces below. She began to chant in a low voice, The divinity descends to pity my thoughts as I hold the jade tablet. With a trembling heart I inform the heavens above. Sovereign heavens above, reflect upon the earth below. Jinli thought to herself that the prayer was not long. Most of it had been provided by Kang Qi, but the core and most critical parts were taught by Qi Yuan. She remembered Qi Yuan's words. These 2 lines did not need to be spoken aloud, only recited silently in her mind. Jinli then continued to chant silently. By the order of Qi Yuan, Lord of the Raiment Division guards, obey my command. She thought to herself that she would recite these 2 lines in a moment. At this time the sky remained clear and boundless. Duke Yu looked at the unchanging sky and mused, Indeed it is useless. Below the stage, several officials let out a cold, contemptuous sneer at the sight. HMPH, he truly won't admit defeat until the very end. Prime Minister Sima is the one the people truly support. That woman on the stage is nothing but a pretender. Meanwhile, Aunt Qin was also staring fixedly at Jinli from the crowd. She mused that even if the Raiment Division guards failed to manifest as planned, it would be fine, for the mysterious and formidable Qi Yuan was still their trump card. His power was comparable to that of a supreme emperor, as long as he could make it in time, even if he couldn't hold his own against 7 emperors at once. Escorting Jinli to safety would be child's play. Upon the platform, Jinli slowly closed her eyes. She marveled inwardly, feeling as though a subtle subconscious connection had been forged between herself and some enigmatic entity. Suddenly she spun around to look down upon the masses from her high vantage point, demanding with a voice like a crack of thunder, Sima Yan, I ask you, did you secretly erect the soul-burying banner array beyond the imperial city's walls? You have conspired with the demon race to lay such a malevolent formation. Do you truly intend to plunge every citizen of my Nanqing kingdom into an abyss of eternal ruin? In the face of this thunderous accusation, Sima Yan's expression remained grim as he maintained a deathly silence. And that brings us to the end of this video, concluding Qi Yuan's wild adventure at chapter 34 of the original story. The mysteries of the Divine Court and Qi Yuan's defiant plans are far from over, but while we wait for the next twists and turns, don't forget to dive into the massive library of masterpieces here on Bala Manhua Recaps to discover even more unique and thrilling cultivation journeys. If you enjoyed this recap, please hit the like button and subscribe to give us more motivation to bring you high-quality content. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. Now go ahead and pick another story from the screen to continue exploring the colorful world of manhwa with me. See you in the next one.